Chapter 17. The Queen's Heist. The mere recollection of her heroic feats from over a decade ago made Shun Feifei blush profusely. The once gluttonous and naive girl had matured, no longer causing disruptions in the classroom. Yet, her insatiable love for delectable treats remained unchanged. She still relished those sweet and tangy snacks. It goes without saying, she embarked on yet another shopping spree, returning laden with goodies. Within Shun Feifei's petite handbag seemed to lie an inexhaustible supply of cash, and no matter how many items she purchased, she always clutched those two small bags tightly. Overjoyed by her shopping and reveling in her delight, she let her guard down. Little did she know, amidst the throngs of people, a few pairs of shifty eyes were fixated upon her. "Hey, that girl has been in every shop, spending a fortune. She seems quite affluent. Have you seen her before?" remarked a gaunt figure resembling a leathery monkey to a burly man. "Never seen her. I know the daughters of nobility in the capital well, but her? She's probably just a tourist, a plump sheep ripe for the shearing. Let's gather the crew and catch ourselves a fat lamb today." He, the burly man chuckled, stroking the stubble on his chin. "What's that ruckus over there?" "Ah, it's the famous Capital Roast Duck Shop, where freshly roasted ducks have just emerged from the oven." The tantalizing aroma of the roast duck made Shun Feifei's mouth water uncontrollably as she dashed toward the street vendor specializing in Capital Roast Duck. Dating back to the Qing dynasty, Capital Roast Duck is renowned for its exquisite flavor. The tender duck meat, combined with the crispy honey-glazed skin, paired with their specially crafted sweet bean sauce, creates a culinary masterpiece. Thin slices of roast duck with crispy skin are wrapped in a delicate pancake, slathered with sweet bean sauce, and accompanied by crisp green onion slivers. The first bite is nothing short of divine. Oh, just the thought of that roast duck made Shun Feifei's stomach protest with fervor, a longing to savor it overwhelming her senses. Though roast duck can be found throughout Jiangnan, none could compare to the flavors of Capital Roast Duck. From the selection of ingredients to the roasting process, the difference is vast. Take the duck meat, for instance. Capital Roast Duck boasts its own duck farm, raising ducks that aren't fattened hastily, free from the excessive grease typical of ordinary ducks, resulting in tender yet lean meat. As for that crispy skin, it is brushed with genuine honey during roasting, rather than the industrial dyes commonly used by other establishments. The roasting method employs traditional firewood and clay ovens, never skimping on quality. With such standards, the discerning and gluttonous Shun Feifei had unwavering loyalty to Capital Roast Duck, dismissing the offerings of other duck shops entirely. Wiping away the drool that threatened to spill, Shun Feifei followed her nose to the roast duck shop. However, why did the path seem to narrow with every step? As she hurried along, Shun Feifei noticed that a group of individuals was intentionally crowding around her. A shove here, a block there, and the once approachable roast duck shop seemed to drift further away. These people were suspicious. Casting a wary glance around, Shun Feifei realized she was encircled by 7 or 8 men and women, being herded into a secluded alleyway. Who were these people? Military? Government? What were their intentions? Furrowing her brow, Shun Feifei halted, refusing to move further. Ouch! A corpulent woman behind her was caught off guard by Shun Feifei's sudden stop and collided into her, only to find herself crashing into the waist of a man ahead after Shun Feifei deftly sidestepped. "Miss, take care." One of the leading men blocked her path as she attempted to escape the encirclement. "What do you want?" Shun Feifei replied with a smile that barely concealed her rising anger. The tempting aroma of Capital Roast Duck beckoned to her growling stomach, while these blockhead miscreants dared to obstruct her. Glaring at the burly man, Shun Feifei felt an urge to take a bite out of his arm, reminiscent of a delectable duck leg. "Miss, we're the police. We received reports of a woman who has been wildly shopping with stolen cash on Gourmet Street. We suspect you're that person. Come with us for a moment," the man declared, his nostrils flaring as he cast a condescending glance at Shun Feifei. Upon hearing his words, the surrounding individuals closed in, further tightening the noose around Shun Feifei. "You claim to be police? Let me see some identification." Shun Feifei expressed her skepticism regarding their identities. None of them exhibited even a hint of military demeanor. Could it be that the elite police of the capital all resembled a bunch of limp rascals? "Need identification, do you? Huh. I've never encountered anyone who dared to ask for identification while I'm on a case. What a joke." The man's facade crumbled as he realized his first tactic had failed, and he scowled menacingly at Shun Feifei, attempting to intimidate her. "You're just a petty thief. You want to see identification? Come with us to the station to check it out." As he spoke, he gestured for another man to rush forward and seize Shun Feifei's arm. Goodness, just as the man reached for the hem of Shun Feifei's clothing, she shook him off and sent him sprawling to the ground. Thud thud crash. The group of 3 or 4 men, including the leader, was toppled over by the flying body of the man Shun Feifei had flung away, landing in a heap, unable to rise for some time. "You crossed the line. You dare to strike a police officer? I'll make you pay for this." One of the remaining individuals shouted in alarm, witnessing their leader being unceremoniously knocked down. "Come at me." The previously colliding woman, now angered, lunged toward Shun Feifei with outstretched fingers. Shun Feifei couldn't help but laugh. The plump woman, her body jiggling, resembled a human cannonball as she charged at Shun Feifei. Did she intend to crush her? However, this woman's clumsy assault only served to reinforce Shun Feifei's certainty that these individuals were imposters. What kind of police officer would attack without even the slightest hint of combat skills? It was akin to a street brawl between unruly women. "Get away." Shun Feifei didn't even flinch as she delivered a swift kick to the oncoming mass of flesh. The hefty woman didn't even have time to scream as she was sent flying backward, her speed exceeding that of her approach. Shun Feifei shielded her eyes, unable to bear the sight. That hefty figure, at least weighing 200 pounds, soared through the air and crashed into an unsuspecting accomplice. Although the weight of the plump woman, coupled with Shun Feifei's restraint, meant she suffered no serious harm, merely clutching her belly and groaning on the ground, another accomplice was far less fortunate. The impact of over 200 pounds, along with the force of the fall, resulted in a sickening crack as several ribs broke. The unfortunate soul collapsed, rolling their eyes back in unconsciousness. "Who else wants to have a go?" Shun Feifei inquired pleasantly, addressing the remaining 2 individuals. Chapter 18. A rampant plunder at the corner of a food street. 2 individuals stood defiantly while others lay injured on the ground. Shun Feifei stood nonchalantly within the circle, mocking them with a smirk. Brandished their bravado. Accustomed to being feared as gangsters, they could hardly fathom being intimidated by a woman seemingly unarmed. With a swift motion, one of them drew a long knife rolled in newspaper from his waistband. He removed the wrapping, revealing a blade that glinted ominously in the sunlight, exuding a chilling aura as though it had tasted blood many times before. Onlookers, startled by the sight of a weapon, gasped in fear of being caught in the fray, scattering in panic or seeking refuge in nearby shops. Some craned their necks to observe, whispering among themselves, while others hastily dialed emergency services. "Look out! Here comes the knife." The assailant swung the long blade menacingly toward Shun Feifei. The second thug, undeterred, brandished a baton and charged at her as well. This was no idle threat. These ruffians had the audacity to act violently in the capital. Disregarding the law and intent on murder, Shun Feifei narrowed her eyes. Initially, she had intended to teach these thugs a lesson and be done with it. However, the moment they brandished their weapons, she knew they could not be let off lightly. Just as the lethal instruments were poised to strike, Shun Feifei moved like a flash, her hand darting behind her to seize an object and counter the attack. "Ah, my goodness!" Gasps erupted from the crowd as they beheld what Shun Feifei wielded, a massive weapon. Unmistakably a human-formed, it was none other than a fallen thug in a leather jacket, still sprawled on the ground. Thud, bang. The thugs' weapons collided, but instead of striking Shun Feifei, they hit their own comrade. Boss, are you okay?" The 2 assailants stood dumbfounded, staring at their bloodied leader, unsure of their next move. Run, someone's going to die." The remaining thugs, still able to move, shouted as they tried to push through the crowd to escape. Shun Feifei pointed toward a secluded corner where no one else was present, save for a dark alleyway. Exchanging glances, the thugs comprehended their predicament. It was clear they were no match for Shun Feifei. Despite her being a woman, she had effortlessly outmaneuvered them, leaving their hefty leader vulnerable and unconscious, a mere ragdoll in her hands. These thugs, who typically thrived on deceit and intimidation, now realized they were operating on a completely different level. Resigned to their fate, the once arrogant gangsters assisted their bloodied leader, still clutching a knife at his waist, and the unfortunate fellow who had suffered broken ribs, as they trudged dejectedly toward the desolate alleyway under Shun Feifei's watchful gaze. As the thugs departed, the previously hidden tourists emerged once more, resuming their lively shopping and merriment in no time. The scene of the incident was engulfed by the crowd, the bloodstains on the ground obscured and, before long, completely erased by the throngs of passers-by. You all keep chatting, Heh. Two tourists, who had been resting on a bench in the alley, recoiled upon witnessing the gang's return, bloodied and armed, hastily collecting their belongings before scurrying away. Please, have a seat. The thug who had initially threatened Shen Feifei now behaved like a docile child, wiping down the bench and inviting her to sit. A whole group of gangsters stood obediently before her, heads bowed, awaiting her commands, not daring to make a sound. Are you truly the police? Shen Feifei seated herself with a flair, attempting to emulate the commanding presence of movie gang leaders. One foot perched upon the bench while she pretended to hold a cigarette, exuding an air of coolness. However, upon recalling the dangers of smoking, she relinquished the idea, yet one foot remained propped up as she cast a sidelong glance of disdain upon the gangsters. Sensing the shift in atmosphere, your proficiency suggests you've been at this for quite some time, accumulating quite a sum, I presume. Shen Feifei inquired nonchalantly. Well, not really, just a year or two. No savings, the thug mumbled, his voice dwindling to no money. And yet you sought to bargain with your lives, hoping to return alive. Shen Feifei's voice rose sharply, her gaze fierce as it bore down upon them like a predatory beast locking onto its prey. The gangsters scrambled, rifling through their pockets to produce all their cash, jewelry, and valuables. Before long, a pile amassed upon the bench. The haul was quite satisfactory. The capital's thugs were undoubtedly affluent, far wealthier than their counterparts from other regions. It is a small third-tier city. Although it lacks the bustling vibrancy of a provincial capital, it is blessed with verdant mountains and clear waters, inhabited by kind-hearted and simple folk. Historically, this place has been home to numerous esteemed poets and lyricists. Appearing listless and fatigued, faces were stern and somewhat rigid. The atmosphere had grown markedly quieter, heavy with a sense of oppression. Occasionally, a squad of fully armed military police would march by, their expressions grave. Even when they did exist, there were far fewer and they were not as frequent. Moreover, they were typically friendly and approachable, and the community enjoyed engaging with them, seeking their assistance when needed. Now, however, the citizens of City D regarded them with the same apprehension one would reserve for a natural disaster. Shen Feifei was torn, pondering what course of action to take. How could she meet her parents without revealing her true nature, while ensuring their safety in human society? With a troubled expression, she hesitated at the station entrance, her legs retracting after having taken a step forward. This indecision did not go unnoticed by some observant individuals nearby. Excuse me, miss, please present your identification. We need to conduct an inspection. A tall junior officer emerged. Please present your identification, or we will treat you as a potential carrier of a biohazard virus and take you into custody. The junior officer's expression darkened as he perceived her hesitation. Please hold on. We need to conduct further verification. The junior officer fixed Shen Feifei with a penetrating gaze, whispering to a nearby soldier. Moments later, the soldier dashed back to their patrol vehicle, rummaging for something before returning with a card reader. It appears that the individual who facilitated this counterfeit identification truly had connections, as it was indeed a legitimate document issued from the household registration office. That 200,000 yuan was well spent. The inquiries and inspections from this junior officer were mere trifles. There was no way she would reveal any flaws. In high spirits, she tossed her hair back, nonchalantly slinging her small bag over her shoulder. Some people were so intimidated by the military police during checks that they nearly wet themselves. What was once harmless suddenly became suspicious. Absolutely. A few days ago, some tourists spent several days in the police station before sorting things out. Or perhaps an advanced zombie, capable of consuming flesh and even speaking, retaining human memories. The military police might be here to prevent any disturbances from their return point. One individual lowered their voice to share this information, the gleam of their equipment particularly striking. Shen Feifei was oblivious to the discussions surrounding her. Even if she were aware, she would not concern herself with them, having lived in this city from a young age. Why would she bother to scrutinize? Naturally, this did not apply to the intimidating military police. Behold, the tall tower of the television station still stood, with a red scarf fluttering in the wind, a remnant of her middle school days when she and her classmates had tied it there together. Several meters high and hundreds of meters long, was still composed of the saplings she had planted alongside her teachers and classmates. Those slender saplings that once snapped at the slightest bend had now grown to the thickness of a bowl. Regardless of her state, she had returned, able to see her beloved parents once more. She decided to cast aside the turmoil of existence and non-existence, dispelling the shadows from her heart, and hurried toward her neighborhood. For she had changed. She was no longer human. She had become a loathed and hunted monstrosity, a creature that feasted on flesh and drank blood. Could her parents, Shin father and Shin mother, accept this zombie as their daughter? Hoping to gain their acceptance once more, intending to reveal the truth at an appropriate moment, if her parents still deemed her identity as a zombie unacceptable, she would have no choice but to distance herself from them. Naturally, Shin Feifei fervently wished for things not to unfold in such a manner. The Dasan Inn was the nearest lodging to her family's neighborhood, situated directly across from it, though modest in scale. Shin Feifei raised an eyebrow. Typically, such small inns did not require guests to show identification. All that mattered was having patrons to generate income. Dear, you must understand that times have changed. Military police are everywhere now. Our establishment is required to register guest identities, with inspections conducted daily. If we fail to comply, we could face hefty fines, or worse, legal troubles. You see. The proprietress maintained her gentle demeanor but firmly extended her hand, awaiting Shin Feifei's identification. All right, here you go. Shin Feifei retrieved her forged identification and handed it to the smiling proprietress, her heart silently cursing the military government. Checking identification. Will this truly prevent the invasion of zombies from the north? Wait, don't leave just yet. A soft yet firm voice called from behind them. Shin Feifei and the proprietress turned to see a woman in her 40s, sharp and competent, her expression stern, entering from outside with a notebook tucked under her arm. Shocking them both. How could the estate of a prominent real estate tycoon be reduced to such a pittance? After enlisting lawyers and friends, they uncovered the truth. Director Su's father had secretly distributed his wealth among countless mistresses. This incident profoundly altered Director Su's character. She developed a cynical perspective towards people and things, treating others with palpable harshness. Her fervent obsession with wealth became evident, as she seized every opportunity to amass riches. It is our duty to inspect establishments like hotels and karaoke bars. I do not wish to complicate matters for you. Just present the identification of each guest for my thorough examination. However, this was merely a fade. Once entangled with Director Su, it felt akin to being ensnared by an unrelenting specter. Oh dear, leader, we are but a small business if you inspect us 3 times a day. Should I summon the patrolling military police to conduct an inspection instead? Director Su threatened with a sharpness that left no room for dissent. For such a trivial matter, do not call the military police. Could they not employ some fresh tactics? Just as she contemplated this, Director Su inquired, your identification appears satisfactory, young lady. But are you visiting D City to see relatives, or merely for leisure? I'm here for tourism. Her identification might appear legitimate, having been procured from the police station, yet it existed solely in the police's computer records. Her family remained blissfully unaware of this new addition to their household. If a call were made, her counterfeit identification would surely falter under scrutiny. Once her family intervened, the truth would emerge, and the charade would unravel. Director Su was indeed sharp-eyed and cunning. Entangled with her felt like a relentless struggle. Let us not involve the police or frighten my family, as that would lead to unnecessary distress. She swiftly pressed the bundle into Director Su's hands, not lingering a moment longer. I see. You wish to spare your family from undue concern. I shall be cautious that I plan to stay here for just a few days before returning home. I doubt she will pester me too much, Shin Feifei replied, though she felt a twinge of gratitude towards the proprietress. Director Su's reputation for avarice was well known, fostering a belief among many that her character was questionable. Yet, Shin Feifei sensed a certain integrity within her. She was not one to harm others. The decision to part with a significant sum of money, though painful, bought her peace, preventing Director Su from incessantly hounding her and allowing her to meet her family without interruption while she plotted her next move. Savoring each bite while intermittently glancing outside, the porridge was thick and fragrant, having been simmered for hours, exuding a delightful aroma that filled her senses. Shin Feifei relished a generous bowl of steaming porridge. Keep the change, she exclaimed, already dashing out the door. The youth of today, the proprietress sighed, watching Shin Feifei's retreating figure, shaking her head at the sight of the sizable sum left behind, yet swiftly gathering the cash without delay, all the while lowering her head to exhale warm breath upon her hands. The warmth emanating from her breath swiftly mingled with the frigid air, transforming into a billowing white mist that settled upon her hands, which pounded its chest and quickly reassured Shen Feifei with those words. Yes, yes, there is nothing wrong with staying here. The room is spacious and quite affordable. Just look at how well ventilated it is. How bright the house is. Where else could you find such a place? At the ghost's prompting, old Wang became more astute and began to sing the praises of his property. Shen Feifei did not respond immediately to the proposition of renting. In no time, 3 handwritten copies of the lease were prepared. The deposit was 20,000, with a monthly rent of 10,000, rented for a year, with no option to terminate early or to damage the premises or make unauthorized alterations. Shen Feifei sighed in relief, opening all the windows and doors to air out the unpleasant odor of disinfectant lingering in the room. Inside, she could vaguely hear the movements of the Shen family below. Gradually, memories of happier times surfaced in Shen Feifei's mind. Back when she lived at home, her parents personally prepared breakfast and dinner every day, while they busied themselves in the kitchen and living room. Much to their playful chagrin, during meals, Shen's parents would always serve the largest and most delicious chicken drumsticks and ribs first into Shen Feifei's bowl, piling it high until there was no more room. They would then urge her with affectionate concern to eat more, to eat a little extra. Thinking of this brought tears to Shen Feifei's eyes once more. Now, Shen's father and mother were just downstairs. It was not an option for Shen Feifei at this moment. Not only was her current appearance unrecognizable to her mother, but the strict surveillance by the military police and neighborhood committee made the situation all the more precarious. She planned to stay here for several months at the very least, and being someone who cherished cleanliness, Shen Feifei was determined to treat this as her temporary home, ensuring it was arranged to her liking. That sound came from downstairs, specifically from the Shen household. What had happened? Shen Feifei's heart raced, and she quickly extended her mental prowess towards the Shen family. In the Shen family's former bedroom, Shen's father lay sprawled on the hard floor, clutching his leg in pain, his brow furrowed as he groaned softly, sweat beads forming on his forehead. Nearby, a plastic stool lay overturned, one of its legs broken. Not far off, a bundle of clothes, scattered on the floor, contained some of Shen Feifei's old garments. Was this a result of Shen's father attempting to tidy up her belongings, causing the long oxidized plastic stool to break and send him tumbling? Upon hearing the noise, "So I came to check," Shen Feifei managed to calm her impulsive emotions and explained. "Yes, my husband suddenly fell and can't get up. That I don't know if he's injured. I can't move him, but I'm just looking for someone to help." Having only seen Shen Feifei's current appearance twice, she could not dismiss the possibility that she was a spy sent by the military to monitor them. "Indeed, this morning I helped you pick some vegetables at the entrance of the community." No wonder this usually stoic and enduring man could not suppress his groans. The pain of a fracture is not something everyone experiences, yet it is a torment that far surpasses that of mere flesh wounds. Seeing her father gritting his teeth in silent suffering filled Shen Feifei with profound sorrow. This room had once been her home. Though she had long since departed, it remained impeccably clean, untouched by dust. Her touch tender as she feared causing him any additional pain. "Andy, could you fetch 2 splints? If those are unavailable, any sturdy cardboard will suffice, along with some gauze strips," Shen Feifei said. Her eyes reddened as she looked up at Shen's mother, beads of sweat cascading down his face from the pain. "Old man, are you all right?" Shen's mother watched with trepidation as Shen Feifei worked, her gaze darting anxiously towards Shen's father. "I'm fine. I'm fine. It feels much better." Despite the persistent pain radiating from the fracture, Shen's father recognized that this girl was skillfully mending his bone. The relief was unmistakable after receiving the splints from Shen's mother. She had merely wished to prevent Shen's father from lying on the cold floor for too long, fearing he might fall ill, and thus had carried him to the bed without intending to alarm them. However, without a cast, "I worry he might inadvertently move and misalign it again. It would be prudent to go to the hospital for proper casting," Shen Feifei advised. "They say it takes 100 days for a fracture to heal." Chapter 27. Outstanding medical fees. Shen's mother's sudden entrance cut short the exchange between Shen Feifei and Shen's father. Observing Shen's mother bustling around Shen's father with urgency, Shen Feifei chose not to pursue the conversation further. "Is someone in your household injured? Did you call 120? Yes, yes. My husband has injured his leg. Please come in," Shen's mother exclaimed, pushing past Shen Feifei with urgency, directing the emergency team inside. As the emergency responders rushed in with a stretcher. "An uncle will recover more swiftly," Shen Feifei managed before Shen's mother pushed her out of the house, firmly shutting the door behind her, not casting a glance back as she followed the ambulance away. Their cherished darling. Shen Feifei's heart felt as though it were being sliced apart. The resilient spirit she had maintained through countless trials, even during her transformation into a zombie, now lay shattered like fragile glass. Probing once more into the Shun household, there it was, unchanged. At a broken stool lay Askew, the room in disarray, and not a single soul was present in the Shun family home. This meant that Shun Fu and Shun Mu had not returned home yesterday, but had remained in the hospital. Shun Fu glanced at the empty bed beside him and said to his wife, who was gently wiping his face and hands, "Huan, Shun Mu's name is Zhang Wan. Did you happen to meet that girl who set my bones yesterday?" His voice rising. Just then, the tightly shut door creaked open, and a doctor clad in a white coat entered with an impassive expression, followed by a patient leaning on crutches, bandaged and limping, supported by family members. "There's an empty bed here. You can take it," the doctor coldly instructed the patient. Then, turning to Shun Fu and Shun Mu with no compassion, he said, "The patient in this bed owes a medical bill. The patient in this bed owes a medical bill. You must pay it immediately. That if payment isn't made today, your treatment will be halted." As he spoke, he pulled a colorful bill from his pocket. In addition, there were bed fees of 5,000 yuan, charges for surgery and recovery each at 1,000 yuan, a bone-setting fee of 10,000 yuan, and numerous medication costs, many of which Shun Fu and Shun Mu had never even heard of. In summary, the 40,000 yuan they had paid yesterday had vanished without a trace, leaving them with a debt of nearly 120 to 130,000 yuan to the hospital. This is outrageous. 3,000 yuan for an x-ray. In the past, Shun Fu stammered in shock. "You know it was in the past. What were prices like then, and what are they now? You can't compare the two." The male doctor admonished Shun Fu with disdain, lifting his chin higher. "And what about the AIDS test? My husband has a fractured leg. Why must he be tested for AIDS?" Shun Mu exclaimed, incredulity etched on her face as she gazed at the doctor. "It's hospital policy. Testing is mandatory. How are we to know whether you have AIDS? A test is necessary to reassure others. Otherwise, who would dare treat you or administer injections?" The male doctor looked at Shun Fu and Shun Mu with a hint of mockery. "If you fall short, you'll end up like them." The male doctor, with a vindictive smile, turned his nose up and, without sparing a glance at anyone in the room, strutted out in his newly purchased designer shoes. "What will become of me?" Shun Mu began to choke on her tears as she spoke. "Don't cry, Huan. Let us think of a way. We will surely overcome this hardship." Sigh, Shun Fu furrowed his brow, gently stroking his wife's graying hair in an attempt to comfort her. Since Feifei had gone silent, Shun Mu had often cried, her hair turning nearly entirely white, and she appeared to have aged decades. She frequently awoke in the night, weeping. Had it not been for Shun Fu's unwavering strength, she might have succumbed long ago. Now, with Shun Fu's leg broken, if he couldn't heal quickly and regain his strength, leading to widespread business failures and scarce job opportunities. At his age, Shun Fu found it difficult to compete with younger candidates, leaving him with no choice but to rely on dwindling savings. Who is also unemployed and remains at home. Fortunately, the Shun family was once affluent, and Shun Mu's frugality has allowed them to retain a modest savings of several million. Thus, the elderly couple need not fear starvation immediately upon losing their jobs. However, the welfare measures established by the government prior to the apocalypse have all ceased, as the loss of tax revenue from the prosperous Jiangnan region has left the government struggling to sustain itself. A mere potato, no larger than a small egg, can fetch over 10 yuan, not to mention the prices of other goods. Even with their adeptness at managing finances, Shun Fu and Shun Mu find themselves overwhelmed by such inflation, necessitating Shun Fu's hospitalization. It is worth noting that even before the apocalypse, ordinary folk dared not seek medical treatment for minor ailments, as hospitals were akin to insatiable beasts devouring gold, doctors and nurses. For more serious conditions requiring hospitalization, the financial toll was even more devastating. That a single hospital stay could cost tens of thousands, equivalent to a year's worth of living expenses for one person. And before the hospital has thoroughly emptied your pockets, escape from their clutches is impossible. Moreover, some doctors exhibit a haughty demeanor, frequently misdiagnosing or overlooking conditions, much like the doctor encountered earlier, whose nose seemed to point skyward. In the aftermath of the apocalypse, medical fees have skyrocketed, further dissuading ordinary people from seeking help. Unless faced with an unavoidable illness, few dare to enter a hospital, as evidenced by the sparse number of patients in the waiting area, forced to await their impending slaughter and humiliation. Chapter 29. The transformation of a shrew inside the hospital. Shun Fu and Shun Mu wore expressions of despair as they gazed at the bill. After paying a deposit of 40,000 yuan just yesterday, They had less than 100,000 yuan remaining in savings. Yet, they now owed the hospital an astonishing 120,000 yuan. This meant they had exhausted their entire savings and still owed the hospital over 20,000 yuan. Moreover, Shenfu's leg had just been encased in PL. Gradually, the temperament of the daughter-in-law began to alter, becoming exceedingly miserly. Every penny spent was meticulously calculated. Her spirit and temper deteriorated as well, often lashing out at the elder members of the household. Initially, the young man's family would engage in arguments and retorts, akin to the cries of a cat, and one dared linger in the cacophony, hastily scurrying away, eager to escape the curse-like din. Yet, at that moment, a slender girl with long hair, carrying a thermos, approached the commotion instead. Fearing the wrath of the yelling woman, this girl seemed oblivious to the tempest, as if she were unacquainted with the chaos surrounding her. In an instant, all eyes in the ward converged upon Shen Feifei. "Auntie, uncle, you're really here. How wonderful!" Shen Feifei exclaimed, her radiant smile lighting up the room like the gentle warmth of dawn. "My dear, you've come." Shen's mother looked at Shen Feifei with disbelief, then turned to Shen's father, her expression a mixture of suspicion and intrigue. "Please, have a seat here." Shen's father gestured towards the edge of the hospital bed, his eyes gleaming with excitement as he regarded Shen Feifei. "Auntie, uncle, have you eaten yet?" "Not so fast, my dear. Tell me, are you truly 22 years old, born on December 6th at 1 in the afternoon?" Shen's father asked, his eagerness to confirm the girl's identity causing him to blurt out the question. "Auntie, uncle, please eat the congee first, and let us set aside other matters for now." Taking advantage of the moment, Shen Feifei placed the thermos on the table and unscrewed the lid. A fragrant, rich aroma of rice wafted through the ward. No one else could replicate this ancestral flavor. Shen's mother, momentarily stunned, inhaled deeply a few times before suddenly springing to her feet, disregarding everything else, and lunging towards the warm thermos. The bill she had been clutching slipped from her grasp, culminating in a staggering negative balance, followed by 12 and several zeros. Shen Feifei's eyes widened in shock. 16,000 for a single day and night. The audacity of the hospital was astonishing. While prices had indeed surged, they had not escalated to such an outrageous extent. The typical fracture patient could not possibly incur such exorbitant charges. One could only imagine what the fees would be for more severe ailments. She recalled a story from her childhood textbook about a farmer in M country who, after finally recovering from a heart condition, was so horrified by his hospital bill that it triggered a fatal relapse right there at the billing counter. Now, the charges in her homeland were even more exorbitant than those in M country. Even someone as affluent as Shen Feifei was taken aback by the hospital's exorbitant fees, understanding now why patients and their families wore such glum expressions upon entering the hospital, why the family in the next bed was embroiled in such a fierce uproar, and why her own family had greeted her with such somber faces. Shen Feifei cast a glance at her ecstatic parents. Her parents had not sought employment, relying instead on their savings. It was often said that a family's wealth could not compare to a steady income. Even a substantial savings could not withstand the drain of expenses. Looking around, she noted that their furnishings had not been updated in quite some time, most remaining from before her departure. The old, rusted stool with a broken leg had yet to be replaced, a testament to the family's current financial struggles. Now, with a debt of 12,000 looming over them, life had become even more arduous. Since she had returned, these financial burdens could no longer be a source of distress for her elderly parents. Chapter 31. A family reunion. With the bill in hand, Shen Feifei arrived at the billing counter. From her small bag, she produced a large stack of crisp new bills and placed them on the counter. Here to settle the medical fees. Shen Feifei pushed the bill and the money towards the hospital staff behind the counter. The billing clerk, without even lifting their gaze, immediately fixated on the substantial amount of cash, nearly fainting at the scene. Really, one could appreciate money, but not in such a grotesque manner. The clerk's filthy saliva tarnished the bills. Who would dare touch them afterward? Yet, what astonished Shen Feifei even more was that the clerk, rather than utilizing the convenient counting machine, resorted to the tedious task of counting the bills by hand, each time pausing to moisten their fingers with saliva before continuing. While counting, they wore a lewd grin, their eyes nearly vanishing, seemingly unperturbed by the filthiness of the cash. Shen Feifei felt as though a flock of crows had just flown overhead. She had always considered herself the most avaricious person in the world. But compared to this clerk, her affinity for wealth seemed paltry, a mere trickle beside an ocean. Well, the debt has been cleared, but you still need to pay a deposit. Otherwise, you'll owe more tomorrow. gazing at Shenfei's handbag that appeared to be filled with money, his eyes sparkling with greed. Startled, Shenfei almost broke into a cold sweat, instinctively covering her bag, fearful that the cashier might seize it from her. However, she quickly reminded herself of her true identity. She was the zombie queen. It had always been others who feared her. How was it that today she found herself inexplicably intimidated by this mere hospital cashier? A mundane human devoid of any extraordinary abilities? Shenfei shook her head, silently mocking herself. How ridiculous it was to be frightened by this seemingly vampiric figure, fearing he might pilfer her purse. This time, she paid a sum exceeding 1 million, her impatience driving her to avoid encountering this vampire-like cashier again. What a nuisance! With the payment receipt in hand, she hastened away from the payment area. Inquiring about the direction to Dr. Zhao's office, fixating on the $1 million hospital receipt, the once arrogant doctor who had initially sought medical fees from Shen's father wore a puzzled expression, glancing alternately at Shenfei and the receipt. How could a wealthy relative suddenly appear? After a moment's hesitation, the doctor, still skeptical, picked up the phone to verify with the payment office. When he hung up, his face was immediately adorned with a broad smile. "Ah, my dear girl, I had no idea the Shen family had such a wealthy relative. How delightful. We have plenty of rooms available in the ward. I shall arrange for you a private suite immediately." Equipped with the finest amenities reserved for officials of bureau-level rank, the doctor's face beamed with joy, his enthusiasm palpable. Under the doctor's arrangement, within 5 minutes, Shen's father was escorted to an elegant ward. The room was spacious. What is happening, my dear?" Shen's parents gazed in awe at the nurses fluttering around them like butterflies, their faces alight with smiles as they attended to their needs, feeling as if they were in a dream. Shenfei said gently, gazing at her parents. Her parents looked at her with eager anticipation, wanting to speak but hesitating as they observed the bustling medical staff around them. On the table, the thermos that had accompanied Shen's father was already empty, devoid of a single drop. Once the medical staff finally stepped out, Shen's mother hurriedly rose and firmly closed the ward door behind her. Turning around, she locked her gaze on Shenfei, unable to look away. Shenfei did not shy away, meeting her mother's gaze, and silence enveloped them. Gradually, both sets of eyes began to glisten with unshed tears, brimming with emotion. The resemblance between this girl and their beloved daughter was striking. Grasping his warm, large hand, and the three of them embraced, weeping together. They cried for what felt like an eternity before the Shen family began to emerge from their sorrow, laughter mingling with their tears. "How did you return?" Once their emotions stabilized, Shen's parents embarked on their curious inquiry. Chapter 32. A happy family in the elegant hospital ward. Shenfei observed her parents' eager and inquisitive expressions, feeling somewhat overwhelmed. With a bitter smile, Shenfei decided to conceal most of the truth, including her identity as a zombie. "Dad, Mom, when the biochemical virus outbreak occurred, my classmates and I managed to evade the initial wave of the virus and remained uninfected." Shenfei recounted how she and her classmates fought valiantly to escape the zombie onslaught, hiding in a secluded location. Then, inadvertently, she revealed that during her escape, she had been scratched by a zombie. Filled with concern, Shen's mother seized Shenfei's hands, rolling up her sleeves to examine her skin meticulously. "Don't worry, Mom. There's nothing to be alarmed about. Let me explain further." Seeing that her parents did not shy away from their daughter, who had once been infected, a warm wave of affection washed over Shenfei. "That day, I had a fever and locked myself in a small dark room. Then I lost consciousness. I initially thought that with such a potent virus, I would surely become a bloodthirsty zombie like those others. But when I awoke, my fever had subsided and my head no longer ached. The virus not only failed to infect me but instead transformed me into an evolved being." As she reached this point, a bittersweet sensation enveloped her heart. How fortunate was she to become an evolved being? In truth, she was a zombie, an advanced one at that. "Look at my strength now." To mask her emotions, Shenfei immediately stood up, walking over to the long sofa and effortlessly lifting it with one hand. She wobbled it playfully before setting it down, her demeanor reminiscent of a child effortlessly lifting her small stool. "Ah, it's wonderful that you're back. Truly wonderful. You've suffered so much." Shen's mother observed Shenfei's playful antics but, instead of laughing, rushed to embrace her once more, tears streaming down her cheeks. Shen's father, sheltered from hardship, they had never allowed her to suffer. Yet, when the crisis struck, their daughter had endured so much suffering in Jiangnan while they were helplessly anxious in Jiangbei. Thank goodness their daughter had returned safely. Otherwise, they could not have borne the weight of such loss. "Mom, Dad, I'm perfectly fine now, so please stop crying." Xin Fei regretted adding even this bit of truth, knowing it would only lead her parents to tears again. All right, we won't cry anymore. Please continue and tell us how you managed to escape. Father Shen wiped away the tears pooling at the corners of his eyes and motioned for Xin Fei and Mother Shen to sit beside him. Later, we encountered rescue personnel from the military, and we followed them to the human base. After that, I enlisted and became a member of the corpse hunting squad. When I had leave, I rushed back to Jiangbei to find you. Yes, after I evolved, every aspect of my body changed. My appearance and height transformed completely, making me unrecognizable from before. That's why I didn't come directly to find you, but instead adopted a new name. My name now is Li Xind. Oh, you see this fake identification I acquired. It looks quite authentic, doesn't it? Worried that her parents might be further distressed, Xin Fei concealed much of the truth and casually mentioned her alias. Let me see. Father Shun and Mother Shun, intrigued, took the fake identification from Xin Fei and examined it closely, glancing back and forth between her and the photo on the document. Only to be taken away that night by military police clad in white protective gear. For over half a year, they had heard nothing, likely having met a grim fate, with such a vivid example. How could Father and Mother Shen not worry about Xin Fei's safety? Thus, having a fake identification was indeed prudent. Concealing one's identity was crucial, as long as their beloved daughter returned safely. What did it matter what name she went by? Suddenly, a cacophony of footsteps and screams erupted in the corridor. Chapter 33. Tang Xing's flesh is hard to bite in the hospital corridor. The sound of chaotic footsteps and panicked screams filled the air. While others feared a zombie attack, Xin Fei was unafraid. Who was she? The zombie queen, a high-level zombie. Any newly spawned zombies daring to challenge her authority would meet their end with a single slap. Let's go check. A sharp female voice called from outside. Bang, bang, bang. The door of the elegant room was knocked upon vigorously. Who was it? How bothersome. Xin Fei's temper flared instantly. Father Shen needed peace to recover. Why was there still disturbance after moving to a private room? What kind of management did this hospital have? Who are you, and why are you knocking? Xin Fei yanked open the door, glaring fiercely at the crowd outside. The people outside were the clinical patients and their families who had initially occupied the mixed ward where Father Shen had been. Among them was the delusional daughter-in-law, raising her hand in a knocking gesture. It was evident she had instigated this disturbance. Behind them was a throng of onlookers, including some in white hospital uniforms mingling within the crowd. What were they causing such a ruckus for? What do you want? Xin Fei blocked the doorway, her tone frosty, her gaze icy as she interrogated them. The crowd fell silent for a moment, and the delusional woman awkwardly ran her bony fingers through her dry. Take your family and leave immediately. Do not disturb the patient. Observing the woman's slightly contorted features, Xin Fei suppressed her anger and issued an eviction notice. If not for her parents' presence, Xin Fei might have revealed her fangs and claws to tear these humans apart. For repeatedly disrupting Father Shen's recovery was a grave sin. Oh, little sister, don't be angry. We mean well. Look, our old man came to visit his friend. Let us in, please. The delusional woman shamelessly shoved her frail. Just once, the elderly man, pushed by the delusional woman, began to lower himself to the ground, struggling to kneel before Xin Fei to Father Shen. This elegant room was several floors removed from the previous ward, and she suspected that this situation was inextricably linked to him. Oh, young lady, you saw me. I just arrived. I have no idea what is happening here. The doctor emerged from the crowd, feigning ignorance while inquiring about the commotion. Hoping to take a bite out of their wealth, Xin Fei and her family were now aware of their intentions. Indeed, they had come at the doctor's instigation, seeking financial compensation from the Shen family. Stop the commotion. They owe you nothing. If you continue, I will have security remove you. The doctor turned to Xin Fei, offering a sycophantic smile, then directed the security personnel who had just arrived to escort the troublesome family away. Preparing to slip away himself. Wait. Xin Fei's voice cut through the air, her tone as frigid as winter's chill. What is your command? The doctor stood before Xin Fei, bending in submission, not daring to move. If anyone else dares to disturb us, you shall bear the consequences, facing a fate akin to theirs. Xin Fei lifted her foot, retrieving the iron cane that had fallen from the elderly man's grasp. With a gentle twist of her hands, the dual-layered steel cane was twisted into a spiraled mass of scrap metal in mere seconds. No, that won't do. No one will disturb the patient's rest anymore. I assure you, The doctor's somewhat balding forehead glistened with cold sweat, feeling as though that cane were an extension of his own body, ready to be crushed into a mere pulp by Shen Feifei. With no money for medical fees, they faced the prospect of having their property sold off, leaving them homeless, the elderly and the children. Alas, Shen's father hesitated before voicing his sympathy. Indeed, they appear to be suffering quite a bit. They are no kin of ours. If we cover their medical expenses, what will others think? There are so many patients, and no family is affluent. If we help them, what about the others? Shen Feifei resolutely countered. While that family was indeed unfortunate, who among those seeking medical attention had not been bled dry by the hospital? Everyone had witnessed their earlier outburst. If we assist them, would not others come seeking aid as well? With so many struggling families, how could we possibly help them all? If it came to that, the Shen family would truly become a target, a delectable morsel for anyone in need. Shen Feifei knew her funds were hardly sufficient, caring only for their own overflowing pockets, indifferent to the plight of the populace. Even a mere visit to a small clinic felt like extracting half a life from the citizens, sooner or later. An abundance of treasures in her space, and countless invaluable gold artifacts. Yet, she found certain individuals thoroughly disagreeable, not to mention that deranged woman, whose incessant disruptions had plagued Shen's father's recovery. Her brazen demand for money and her disrespectful treatment of Shen's grandfather filled Shen Feifei with disdain. Yet this doctor was a peculiar anomaly among his peers, more enamored with money than with his own mother. His insatiable greed had long eclipsed any sense of medical ethics. The recent demand for medical fees from patients was orchestrated by him from the shadows. If he received money, it would only serve to fulfill his ulterior motives. He had pinpointed the Shen family's goodwill, and one could only wonder what further schemes he had in store. Thus, it was imperative to sever his claws promptly. Moreover, and most crucially, Shen Feifei's identity had transcended that of mere humanity. Though she resided within human society, she no longer considered herself one of them. The life and death of humanity had long ceased to concern her. Apart from her parents and her beloved Xiaoyi, she had no interest in the welfare of others. Her heart had grown increasingly cold and hardened, alien to humankind. Mom, Dad, I advise you to steer clear of these trivial matters. There are countless suffering, and we cannot possibly assist everyone. That we should focus on our own well-being. Otherwise, we may attract unwanted attention, inviting scrutiny from the military and police. At that point, Shen Feifei's tone conveyed a weighty warning. Should they attract the attention of ill-intentioned individuals, what would become of them? All right, let us refrain from discussing others and focus solely on our own affairs. Shen father and Shen mother conceded, and the family resumed their cheerful banter. In the doctor's office, the physician sat in a state of lingering dread, his fingers gently tracing the bruises on his neck. Pain, a sharp, agonizing pain. The moment he touched it, it throbbed. That woman was indeed ruthless. Who would have thought that such a seemingly delicate girl could wield such strength? He was a hefty man, yet in her grasp, he felt as powerless as a chick. How could an ordinary person possess such might? It defied logic. Could it be that she was a so-called evolved human? Evolved human. Evolved human. Good heavens, I have stumbled upon a treasure. As this thought crossed his mind, the doctor's expression shifted from fear to exhilaration. Evolved humans. The military had long issued proclamations that any discovery of an evolved human in civilian life must be reported immediately. Informants would be rewarded with significant prizes if this wealthy relative of the Shen family truly was an evolved human. Oh my, the military's reward for him as the informant would surely amount to millions. That would far surpass his daily toil of scheming against these ailing paupers. The doctor's eyes gleamed with excitement as he gazed at the military notice on his desk, saliva pooling in his mouth. The notice before him transformed into a colossal check worth millions, with colorful banknotes spilling across his desk. He lunged toward the dazzling bills, only to collide with the reality of his desk. Neck pain? The doctor's expression shifted as he recalled Shen Feifei's fierce demeanor and piercing gaze when she had gripped his neck. If he were to inform the military, would that woman come seeking vengeance? He shuddered, placing the informant's phone back down. His mind raced with the dilemma. To inform or not to inform? Reporting could yield a reward, yet the fear of that vengeful woman loomed large. Conversely, foregoing the report meant relinquishing the prospect of those millions, an unbearable loss. After much deliberation, the doctor wavered. Even if that relative of the Shen family was an evolved human, could she possibly rival the military's firepower in advanced weaponry? Did she stand a chance of evading the military's extensive net? Moreover, having an evolved human in the military would be a boon. The Shin family should be grateful, not vengeful. Thus, he decided. The doctor, convinced by his own twisted rationale. If you find any, feel free to select them yourself. The elderly man snorted dismissively, ignoring Xiao Yi's playful antics. Father, how can you cut my holiday short like this? You truly are the modern-day Huang Shuren. Xiao Yi replied helplessly, reluctant to defy his father's wishes too much, and thus began to peruse the documents. Xiao Yi's father was the Minister of Defense in the Jiangbei district, holding the rank of general. He commanded millions of troops as the supreme military commander, a powerful figure within the government of Huaguo. Apart from the president of Huaguo, he wielded the greatest authority and influence within the nation. Otherwise, they would have perished in Jiangnan without a powerful figure ever inquiring about their fate. As he flipped through the folder, Xiao Yi briefly scanned the list of evolved individuals that had been submitted. Another candidate from XX City possessed ice-based abilities, capable of converting water into ice for offensive purposes. He was fortuitously discovered and also had excellent physical fitness for military enlistment. There were dozens of such candidates listed. A few pages in, he encountered another section, suspected individuals, an unverified list of evolved personnel, LIXN. Female, 23 years old, approximately 1.7 meters tall, her identification documents indicating her as a resident of Li Family Village in B City. However, this document was newly issued just a few days prior and was a fabricated ID. There was no record of this individual in Li Family Village. According to the informant, this woman possessed extraordinary strength, at least 3 to 4 times that of an average person, leading to suspicions that she was a high-level evolved individual. Currently, this individual was active in D City and was closely associated with the Shin family, who were under tight surveillance. Preliminary suspicions indicated she might be a relative of theirs. Due to the inability to ascertain her true identity and to avoid alarming her, the military conducted only peripheral investigations and did not take further action. The report was submitted for military adjudication. This, Li Xine, the more Xiao Yi read, the more his brow furrowed. The information about this girl named Li Xine bore an uncanny resemblance to his beloved Xiaoya. Both were around 22 or 23 years old, both approximately 1.7 meters tall, and most notably, both had exhibited strength evolution. Moreover, the newly issued identification documents coincided with the timing of Xiaoya's departure from Jiangbei SC City. Especially upon reading the detailed military records of her penchant for reprimanding others by their collars, Xiao Yi became increasingly convinced that this unidentified girl was indeed his hidden Xiaoya. The Shin family? The Shun family of D City. Wasn't he that the family whose high-intelligence zombie daughter had cost their corpse-hunting team dearly, leading to the loss of even Xiao Yi's cousin? What could she? Father, I must immediately travel to D City to verify the true identity of this individual. Xiao Yi abruptly closed the folder and urgently informed his father, I in the orthopedic ward of D City's hospital. Shin Feifei and her family continued to live their blissful and warm lives, completely unaware that the exceptional doctor had reported her to the military. The local military had also dispatched personnel to thoroughly investigate her identity, uncovering her fraudulent identity as Li Xine. Dad, this is the deer antler tonic cake I purchased. It's excellent for bone health. You must try it. It's sweet and quite delectable. Mom, here are the apples I just bought. They are fresh and sweet. I peeled them for you to enjoy. All right. I appreciate your filial piety, but where will we put all this? With prices so high these days, you must have spent quite a fortune. Shin's mother gazed at the mountain of supplements and fruits that her daughter had brought, feeling a twinge of concern about the expense. Life had become arduous after the apocalypse, and Shin's mother had always been frugal. Now, seeing so much food that they could neither consume nor utilize, she worried about wastefulness. Don't worry, Mom. Your daughter is a wealthy woman now that I have plenty of money. You can buy whatever you wish. Enjoy yourselves. Shin Feifei had an abundance of resources in her space, and she wouldn't squander them on supplies for the apocalypse when she could use them for her family instead. Feifei, how on earth are we going to take all this back? We can't possibly eat it all. Sigh. Shin's mother looked at the pile of items, her heart aching at the thought of the expenses. Bringing it back? That was a simple task. Shin Feifei smiled gently, elegantly approaching the mountain of items on the sofa. With a mere gesture, everything on the sofa vanished as if it had never existed. Suddenly, they felt a dizzying sensation as a vibrant green, softly glowing enclosed space invaded their minds. Inside, there was a vast array of various living supplies filling the space to the brim. Additionally, a mountain of cash was piled high on a large bed. The unique radiance of gold is something no other metal can replicate at that moment. The gold was arranged neatly, almost forming walls that encased the emerald space, missing only a ceiling to become a veritable treasure room. As he was engrossed in the sight, his consciousness abruptly returned to reality, where Xin Feifei was smiling at them. After a moment of contemplation, Xin's mother pinched her arm and could not help but ask, "Does anyone else know?" Xin's father looked at his beloved daughter, concern etched on his face rather than joy. "Don't worry, Dad and Mom. I have never disclosed this to anyone else, only to you." "Good. As long as you don't tell anyone else, that's fine." Xin's father sighed in relief, gazing at his daughter with pride. That it was already miraculous that their precious daughter had returned unscathed from the perilous epidemic zone. They found it hard to fathom that such a small piece of jade could contain so much, causing their minds to momentarily short-circuit. Had Xin Feifei not initially guided their consciousness into that mysterious space and allowed them to witness the reality, they would have been incredulous. "Yes, it's just such a tiny space that can contain everything in the world," Xin Feifei exaggerated slightly. In truth, her space was only a few dozen cubic meters. On Shun father's sickbed, the jade stones, each distinct in form, lay scattered across the pristine white sheets, glimmering with an enigmatic radiance. Could we truly possess such a mysterious space? Shun father trembled slightly, while Shun mother alternated her gaze between Xin Feifei and her husband. Though the security in Jiangbei district remained relatively stable and harmonious, undercurrents of conflict brewed among various factions, sharply escalating tensions. It was solely due to the government's military might that order was maintained. In Jiangnan district, hordes of zombies lurked, eyeing these delectable human morsels. Once they evolved to a sufficient level of intelligence and strength, they would undoubtedly breach the barriers erected by humanity and descend upon Jiangbei for a feast. Moreover, this was merely a crisis unfolding within Huagua. Reports from neighboring nations suggested that similar biochemical disasters had transpired, potentially concealing numerous unknown threats. Although Xin Feifei had returned to her parents, her identity as a zombie could be exposed at any moment, forcing her to flee. How could she then protect her elderly parents? If they could discover a temporal space within these jade stones, they would be able to retreat there in times of danger, free from the fear of those frenzied humans and zombies. Only when her parents were safe could Xin Feifei truly find peace of mind. The subsequent procedure was straightforward. Xin Feifei instructed her parents to prick their fingers, letting their blood drip onto the jade stones one by one. That after a tense experiment, a miracle unfolded once more. Xin father's blood successfully awakened a lustrous jade pendant, conjuring a space of approximately 40 cubic meters. Once it acknowledged her, the ring vanished, transforming into an invisibility ring that melded seamlessly onto Xin mother's finger. This left Xin Feifei feeling envious. After all the commotion, her own space was the least impressive. Merely 60 to 70 cubic meters, devoid of any additional functions. Her lips pouted in frustration, almost as if they could hang a bottle of oil. Chapter 37. The misfortunes of the animals as the remaining energy-infused jade stones continued to shimmer boastfully. It seemed they were proclaiming, "I too possess a space. I too hold secrets. Come and recognize me." Xin Feifei, consumed by jealousy, swiftly retracted them into her space. Fearful that others might uncover their secrets, her petty nature had resurfaced. As long as her family had a space to safeguard their lives, whether others could possess such an escape was of no concern to Xin Feifei. After all, she was the Queen Feifei, a zombie, and had no intention of actively worrying about the survival and advancement of humanity. Once, before meeting her parents, she had even harbored ambitions of leading the zombies from Jiangnan to Jiangbei, devouring humanity and unifying the zombie realm. Though that notion had been quashed upon reuniting with her family, she had no intention of revealing to humans that the jade stones contained the coveted temporal spaces they yearned for. Artifacts only legendary beings were said to possess. Feifei, in a few days when your father is discharged from the hospital, let us visit Xianfu Palace to pay our respects to the deities and seek blessings for safety. Xin mother interrupted Xin Feifei's reverie. Seek safety? Oh, all right, Xin Feifei replied, raising an eyebrow, but ultimately acquiescing. Both Xin father and Xin mother were well-educated individuals, previously staunch atheists, when they took Xin Feifei to Xianfu Palace. It was merely for leisure rather than any genuine religious observance. However, Xin mother's spontaneous suggestion to seek divine blessings indicated that the recent extraordinary events had overwhelmed her comprehension, prompting a shift in her beliefs. Seeking the divine seemed to embody a hope, a form of spiritual solace. Though Xin Feifei felt some resistance within, her filial piety prevented her from defying her parents' wishes at this moment, unwilling to disappoint them. For the family to remain united and safe amidst this chaotic world was Shen's father and mother's desire, as well as Xin Feifei's own wish to fulfill this seemingly extravagant wish. A couple of homeless kittens and puppies huddled beside garbage bins or under eaves, shivering in the biting cold wind that howled around their already frigid bodies, urging them to curl up tighter. Lacking food and shelter, faced an uncertain fate, unsure if they would survive the harsh winter to see spring at that moment, a girl approached. Upon seeing the pitiable creatures, a faint smile graced her lips as she looked upon them with compassion. Ensuring no one was watching, Xin Feifei waved her hand, and the animals vanished from sight. Following the sensitive instincts of the animal emissaries, she located the next group of strays, and with another wave, they too disappeared. What did Xin Feifei intend to do with these animals? She was certainly not succumbing to a zombie's primal instincts, craving animal blood, nor was she acting out of maternal instincts. A shining beacon of compassion, seeking to alleviate the suffering of the destitute creatures. No, she required subjects for her experiments, subjects that would not resist or expose her identity. These voiceless, homeless animals were her ideal candidates. In her rented room above the Shun residence, Xin Feifei released the animals, placing steaming bowls of food before them, allowing these starving creatures, who had gone days without sustenance, to feast upon their release from the confines of their cramped space. Devouring their meal in an orderly manner, once satisfied, they dutifully followed her command to jump into the bathtub for a bath, drying off afterward. Even the most reluctant of cats complied, obediently allowing Xin Feifei to wash and dry them. Selecting 2 of the creatures, she sent the others to another room to wait patiently. Devour them, one for each of you. Xin Feifei placed several low-grade zombie cores before them. What was her intention? After a period of thrashing about, the 2 animals eventually succumbed to exhaustion and fell unconscious. Within the room, the other animals, witnessing the fate of their companions, huddled together in fear, fur bristling as they pressed closely against one another, transforming into a crystal of pure biological energy. This distinction could only be keenly perceived by Xin Feifei, who hailed from a zombie lineage. The crystal cores she offered to the small animals were also of this kind, devoid of infectious properties after her extraction of the zombie virus. After consuming the crystal cores, the little creatures did not transform into terrifying zombies, yet they still endured excruciating torment, slipping into a deep coma. The success of her endeavor would hinge on the behavior of the animals upon awakening. Xin Feifei mused quietly. They might either succumb to the overwhelming energy of the crystal core, shattering their veins and perishing, or they might undergo a metamorphosis, emerging as evolved beings as time ticked away. One of the small dogs in the space finally stretched its paw and whimpered, slowly opening its eyes. Xin Feifei, who had been waiting on the sofa, immediately sensed its awakening and jolted upright. Not having transformed into an evolved creature that would turn against her, instead, it nestled against her affectionately, rolling over and rubbing against her, akin to a beloved master. Xin Feifei, undeterred by the mud and grime on its fur, happily embraced and petted it. Since childhood, she had harbored a fondness for animals, especially the adorable ones. All right, you go to that room and stay with your companions. Take care of them. Xin Feifei gently patted the dog. Their hearts, once filled with trepidation for Xin Feifei's formidable experiments, now held a flicker of anticipation. Seeing this development, Xin Feifei smiled and selected several more animals for her experiment, this time carefully adjusting the energy content. A large dog could withstand the assault of a lion. However, their physical forms remained largely unchanged, appearing as ordinary small animals. Beneath their petite exteriors, no one could fathom the immense threat they now posed. Observing these spirited and orderly creatures, resembling her personal army, Xin Feifei beamed with pride. Having consumed the specially crafted crystal cores, these animals had subconsciously become marked by her spirit, akin to a master-servant contract. Destined to remain her loyal subordinates for life, they would unconditionally obey their queen, Feifei, without any inclination towards betrayal. With this army of animals, Xin Feifei felt assured that even if she departed from the Xin family, a formidable force would safeguard her parents' safety. She could venture forth with peace of mind. In the hospital, Xin Feifei handed 2 toxin-free crystal cores to her parents. Dad, Mom, these are the evolution crystal cores I found. Consuming them will enable you to become evolved humans. At the very least, you will strengthen your bodies and ward off ailments. You must eat them. After countless experiments, Shen Feifei had finally identified the appropriate energy content of the crystal cores. Ensuring they would enhance her parents' strength without exposing them to undue harm. Of course, she had refrained from embedding any spiritual marks within these cores. Are these crystals edible? Can they truly grant us the potential to become evolved humans? Look at me. I gained strength and vigor after consuming them. Shen Feifei exaggeratedly flexed her slender arms for her parents to see. Her antics elicited hearty laughter from Shen father and Shen mother, who, without a shred of caution, swallowed the crystal cores with delight. Little did they notice Shen Feifei's quiet demeanor, her eyes betraying a hint of anxiety. Moments later, the energy from the crystal cores surged forth. Quick, I need to use the restroom. Feifei, help me. Shen father clutched his stomach, attempting to rise despite his still healing leg. Oh no, my stomach hurts too. You go here. I'll find another place, Shen mother exclaimed, also clutching her abdomen. Unwilling to move. Feifei, what did you give us? Why such a strong reaction? Did you not wash them properly? Shen mother, drained, inquired. Not at all. I washed them several times. This is merely a normal detox reaction. Just look at how radiant your faces are now. Shen Feifei smirked, her lips curling into a smile. This time, her smile was genuine, albeit slightly awkward. Initially, she had conducted numerous experiments on small animals, achieving success. However, she had never attempted crystal core evolution experiments on normal humans. She had hoped that if her parents consumed the crystal cores, they would transform into evolved beings. If they were unsuccessful and became like her, she could accept that. At worst, she could conceal her parents in the space and gradually feed them evolution crystal cores, nurturing them back to human intelligence. This way, they would still be a family, living together happily. Yet, this thought was somewhat radical. It would mean she had inadvertently turned her parents into zombies, into non-humans, an act profoundly contrary to human ethics. Chapter 39. The Mysterious Immortal Master. Qingqing Mountain in D-City. Shen Feifei surveyed the seemingly endless stone steps before her. Each step was impeccably clean, devoid of any debris, and despite the thousands of steps ascending high, while other areas of the mountain were blanketed in snowflakes. Who had been so diligent? D-City had experienced a significant snowfall just days prior. Even with the recent rise in temperature, it shouldn't have melted so rapidly. Should it? Clearly, someone had taken the time and care to sweep the steps from the base to the summit. Feifei, stop dawdling. Let us hurry up the mountain to pay our respects, Shen mother urged, pulling the still-dazed Shen Feifei along to join the procession. A procession, indeed, a group of people ascending the mountain to worship. At this moment, several clusters of individuals had formed small groups at the foot of the mountain. The cold, treacherous paths and fierce winds made it uninviting. No one would willingly brave the winter chill to climb the mountain, aside from the Taoists at the Xianfu Palace and the staff at the scenic area. Shen Mu, going up the mountain to pray was rather foolish, yet she was surprised to find so many others accompanying them in their folly. I have no idea, young lady. Recently, a few immortal masters have come here, and it is said that they can summon the wind and rain, wielding great powers, and they are indeed real. That we are all here to witness the skills of these immortal masters. Ever since the apocalypse began, this place has been bustling with activity. Unlike other scenic spots, an elderly woman, who had also ascended the mountain, replied breathlessly before Shen Mu could speak. Immortal masters, summoning wind and rain. Shen Feifei raised an eyebrow. With people offering incense, praying, and visiting, the throngs bustling together in a lively atmosphere. Rows of Taoist priests chanted fervently, surrounded by swirling smoke from large incense sticks, while devoted worshippers offered their prayers, and the imposing main hall was graced by a sign reading Palace of Immortal Blessings, further enhancing the solemnity of the already majestic temple. Amidst such an atmosphere, Shen Mu and Shen Feifei found their spirits uplifted, their respect for the three pure ones and four emperors within the main hall blooming within them. Having spent a considerable sum, Shen Mu procured a long, thick incense stick, ignoring the cold, hard ground before the statue, and knelt down, sincerely bowing before the deity, murmuring words of gratitude for their family's reunion and praying for continued peace and happiness in their lives. Seeing her mother kneel, Shen Feifei had no choice but to follow suit, joining her hands in prayer, aligning her heart with her mother's devotion. Just after offering their incense, they heard a commotion outside the hall. The Immortal Master is coming! The Immortal Master is coming! Everyone, come to pay respects to the living deity. Outside the hall, the crowd buzzed with excitement as a large group surged towards them. Gradually, the crowd swelled and donned in an ancient gold-embroidered robe featuring the Taiji symbol, striding confidently towards the main hall. Trailing behind were two young disciples clad in checkered attire, flanking him on either side. The priest, after parting the crowd, approached the hall directly, swiftly taking the incense from the hands of the attendant priest and bowing in a hurried manner, as if completing a mere formality in just a few seconds. Showing little genuine reverence for their ancestral deities, Shun Feifei pouted, internally scornful of him, a disciple of Taoism. How could he lack respect for his own ancestors and yet claim to seek enlightenment? Quickly, everyone step aside. The Immortal Master is about to perform his immortal arts and pray for divine blessings, shouted the two young disciples outside, as the guards ushered the crowd to the sides. Before long, a significant space of around 70 to 80 square meters was cleared in the courtyard, which had previously been filled with people. Then, several lower-ranking priests busily arranged the scene, moving tables and preparing offerings. Bustling back and forth, the Immortal Master stood with his head held high on the steps of the hall, gazing down at the crowd of devotees bowing in reverence, completely ignoring them. This man. Humph, humph. The Immortal Master, exuding an air of authority, stroked his mustache, hands clasped behind his back, and began to pace down the steps. Chapter 40. Encountering a notable individual on Qingqing Mountain, hundreds of devoted pilgrims, braving the cold winter, gazed eagerly at the legendary Immortal Master, awaiting him to summon divine blessings from the heavens, promising relief from ailments and successful prayers. However, the Immortal Master took his time, descending the steps. Taking a sword-shaped talisman handed to him by one of the young disciples, with a grand flourish of his wide sleeves, he raised the sword and chanted, "Heavenly spirits, earthly spirits, Taishang Laojun, Buddha Sakyamuni." How can this Immortal Master call upon him while chanting Taoist incantations? And what of summoning all heavenly deities? Does this Immortal Master truly possess such abilities? This is absurd. Such grandiose claims. Surely he must be a charlatan. The Immortal Master continued his performance. Taishang Laojun, I summon you. Urgent as the law commands, swiftly. After an extensive recitation of incantations, the Immortal Master finally concluded his lengthy speech, picking up an ancient-looking bottle of wine from the table. Uncorking it, and taking a mouthful, he then directed a spray of wine onto a yellow talisman he held aloft, exclaiming, "Ha!" Instantly, the yellow talisman ignited spontaneously, a blue flame flaring up high, roaring in the wind, and quickly reducing to ashes. The Immortal Master casually collected the ashes and deposited them into a large jar behind him. Witnessing this seemingly miraculous display of spontaneous combustion, the surrounding pilgrims erupted in admiration that it truly ignites without a flame. Meanwhile, Shun Feifei struggled to contain her laughter. This Immortal Master was indeed a fraud. Of all the tricks he could employ, he chose one that many were already familiar with. The illusion of spontaneous combustion was merely the result of adding phosphorus. That looks like phosphorus burning, Shinmu murmured to herself, her previously smooth forehead now creased with concern at a SA teacher. Shinmu had certainly encountered these little tricks before, leading her to question the authenticity of this so-called Immortal Master. However, what transpired next shattered Shinmu's understanding. The Immortal Master dramatically turned to kneel before the deity's statue within the hall, bowing his head and repeatedly exclaiming, "Please grant the immortal talisman," at this, creating a truly spectacular scene. Shinmu felt compelled to join the throng in kneeling, but was firmly grasped by Shun Feifei, who urged her to stay upright in this biting winter, even as the weather turned milder. They could not simply kneel outside, lest they suffer from chronic cold legs. Consequently, the mother and daughter pair remained at the back of the crowd, observing with cool detachment. Strangely enough, after the fervent worship of these individuals, a whirlwind suddenly swept through the heavens, sending dust and debris swirling into the air. Many were compelled to squint their eyes against the onslaught of grime, unable to discern the events unfolding before them. At that moment, a yellow talisman drifted down from the sky, carried by the wind, and gracefully landed near the Celestial Master. "The talisman has descended! The talisman has descended!" The two acolytes behind the Master exclaimed in unison. They shivered yet praised the Celestial Master's profound abilities, marveling that such a talisman could be summoned. Meanwhile, Shun Feifei could only watch in disbelief. The whirlwind seemed orchestrated by an unseen fan. and the talisman appeared to have been tossed from the roof of the main hall by someone. The worshippers, intent on their devotions and shielding their eyes from the dust, paid no heed to their surroundings. Directly facing the plaza, there were even several others positioned at different angles, blowing air in unison. The individual who had cast the talisman must have clambered up a ladder from behind the hall. First come, first served. Arrive late, and there shall be none left. The security Taoist shouted loudly, urging the crowd to queue for the elixir. Indeed, their boisterous calls prompted many to obediently line up, while those who had hesitated, upon witnessing the frenzied scene, abandoned their doubts and joined the rush to purchase the elixir. The atmosphere was vibrant, akin to a frenzied scramble for a priceless potion. Fei, let us buy a couple of bowls. The elixir indeed originated from the peculiar little clouds, but it was simply rainwater and nothing more, devoid of any miraculous qualities. Shen Feifei had already sensed this with her abilities. Moreover, the vat outside had accumulated a thick layer of dust, and the bottom was not clean either. Combined with the ash, it was filthy beyond measure. How could such a concoction be fit for human consumption? In the dead of winter, the air was frigid, and the water in the vat was icy cold, akin to a blade piercing the gut. If they were fortunate enough not to drink it, they would likely suffer from severe diarrhea if they did. Shen Feifei hastily pulled her mother down the mountain. The rain-inducing talisman was indeed real. However, it was not the celestial master who possessed the ability, but rather the person behind him who had true skill. Possessing formidable strength, Shen Feifei realized this individual was not to be trifled with. Given her current second-tier prowess, she would be no match for him. Thus, she intended to keep her distance, lest she be discovered as a zombie. A dire threat to humanity. Filled with anguish, scram. If you have no money, don't come here causing trouble. A Taoist's voice rang out, followed by the sound of shattered dishes. Damn it. How dare you break the Master's bowl? Have you lost your mind, disturbing our business? The sounds of fists striking flesh and the woman's cries echoed in the air. Don't hit my mother. Please don't hit my mother. The gaunt woman holds a child in her arms. The child's eyes are closed, his clothes in disarray, the cotton coat that had wrapped him torn away during the altercation with the Taoist priest. He is left with only thin undergarments, his bare shoulders exposed, his face turning a bluish hue from the cold, his body limp, inhaling less and exhaling more. Witnessing this scene, Shenmu feels an overwhelming sense of compassion. She and Shen Feifei prepare to descend the mountain. Please, don't go, elder sister. I beg you, give us 20,000 yuan that we can buy a bowl of miraculous elixir to save the child. Please, I implore you. The old woman, spotting Shenmu's kindness as a lifeline, seizes her sleeve and pleads, refusing to let go. Why should we? Shen Feifei's expression darkens. Although her mother had given the woman her coat, she had remained silent then due to the family's evident plight. However, that did not imply that the Shen family could be taken advantage of. Sister, you are the kind lady who raised funds for us on the highway. Shen Feifei had even generously raised 100,000 yuan for their treatment. This boy was the one they were trying to save. But didn't you raise enough money for his medical fees? And we still lack a substantial amount. However, my brother's condition cannot wait any longer. We heard there are sages here who can provide miraculous elixirs that are effective. So we came, but we spent part of the money on the way, making life increasingly unbearable. This family, unable to afford treatment at the hospital, had resorted to desperate measures, seeking out this so-called sage for an elixir. Yet that elixir could hardly cure the child's ailment. Shenmu's heart aches for their suffering. Mom, can that elixir even be consumed? Look at how thick the grime is and how cold the water is. It's frozen at the rim. Drinking that would only worsen the child's condition. Freezing on their cheeks. Unable to seek hospital treatment or consume the elixir, the ailing child appears doomed. All their efforts to gather funds seem futile now, having just lost a husband and father. Equally despondent and lost. No, you cannot just die like this. Come back. We have a way to save him. Upon witnessing this, Shenmu rushes forward to block the path of the old woman and the girl. What other way is there? There is no way. No way at all. The old woman, unmoved by Shenmu's pleas, sidesteps her and continues toward the cliff. Ahead, mere meters away, lies a treacherous precipice, nearly 1,000 meters high. Don't you have that thing? Perhaps it can save the child. Please. Shenmu clings tightly to the old woman, refusing to let her take another step forward. This mother is actually suggesting that Shen Feifei use the zombie crystal core to save the boy's life. I beg you, just this once. Shenmu feels her heart breaking as she watches the family prepare to leap into despair. Fine, just this once. Don't even think about asking again. Shin Feifei's heart softens in response to her mother's pleas. After all, she too harbors a sense of human compassion and rationality that she cannot easily dismiss. Thus, Shin Feifei and Shin Mu pull the family, intent on self-destruction, to a sheltered spot behind a large rock. As soon as the core contacts her saliva, it swiftly liquefies, almost as if alive, slipping down the woman's throat and into her body. Seeing her mother consume it, the girl smiles at Shin Feifei. Her eyes filled with trust and gratitude, and without hesitation, she too devours a piece of the core the pain. Within a few minutes, both women clutch their stomachs, moaning in agony, despite the cold winds atop the mountain and the frigid temperatures. The mother and daughter duo dashed out in a hurry, making a beeline for it.in truth. The zombie crystal cores that Shin Feifei had given them were identical to those provided to Shin's father and mother. What nonsense are you spouting, you scoundrel? The girl, upon hearing the Taoist's words, erupted in anger that it would have been better had she remained silent. The moment she retorted, the Taoist, as if possessed, leaped forward and struck her across the face. And she was soon knocked to the ground, blood trickling from her mouth as she cried out in pain. What are you doing? Stop hitting her. Stop it. The woman, witnessing her daughter being attacked, rushed forward in an attempt to push the burly Taoist away. In the ensuing struggle, the woman inadvertently tugged at the Taoist's robe, causing a strap to snap. To their astonishment, his outfit flapped open, revealing a large red bra meant for women beneath. Emblazoned upon the vibrant bra were golden threads depicting a couple of foreigners in a passionate embrace. The scene undeniably intimate and suggestive. Ha ha! The bystanders, drawn by the commotion, erupted into laughter at the spectacle before them. Chapter 44. A new wave of chaos atop the Xianfu Palace. A Taoist stood with his robe flapping open. On the mountain path, only Shin Feifei and her companions remained, locked in a standoff with the Taoists. How curious, it seems your lackey initiated the insults and violence. Even your scruffy lover's garment failed him. Revealing the truth, this cannot be blamed on us, Shin Feifei remarked, struggling to suppress her laughter at the sight of the two Taoists in love. Love between men is not a crime, but defending such behavior so blindly is not right either. This immortal teacher does not care, regardless of right or wrong. My people have been wronged. You shall either surrender all your wealth to compensate for my followers' grievances and bow in apology. Disregarding the law, Shin Feifei immediately accused, hoping to instill some sense of caution in them, so they would not recklessly defy the laws of life and death. Kill, rob. Ha ha ha. I have powerful connections behind me. It's a trifling matter. The arrogant immortal master laughed heartily, his two little mustaches quivering with delight, utterly unrepentant, completely disregarding Shin Feifei's words. This immortal master wielded considerable influence in D City, maintaining good relations with the upper echelons there. He had powerful backing in H province or even higher governmental bodies. Shin Feifei discerned this meaning from the words he spoke. Her gaze turned icy, and her expression immediately darkened. To avoid a confrontation with the mysterious, powerful figure behind that immortal master. As if that were not enough, he harbored malicious intent to kill Shin Feifei and her companions without hesitation. These scoundrels truly dared to do anything. She, Shin Feifei, was the queen of zombies. She would bow to heaven. Shivering uncontrollably. Quick, someone come, protect me. Instinctively sensing danger, the immortal master's expression turned frantic as he scrambled up the steps, resorting to imperial language in his flustered state. His close companion, the coarse-faced Taoist, was pushed forward as a shield, blocking Shin Feifei's path, but soon he abandoned him. Truly, a wife is but a garment, easily discarded. The coarse-faced Taoist, sensing Shin Feifei's threatening aura, swiftly turned and leaped aside to hide behind a large tree, clearing the way for Shin Feifei. Engaging in a relationship with the immortal master was a matter of self-interest. Sacrificing himself was not worth it. Chapter 45. Retribution is inevitable on Qingqing Mountain. The wind howled, and ghostly wails echoed ominously. Shin Feifei's complexion had turned a ghastly white, her eyes flashing with a hint of blood red. This oblivious immortal master had overstepped her boundaries. If she did not teach him a lesson today, he would never understand why flowers bloom so vibrantly. Protect me, protect me. As the charlatan immortal master's pitiful cries rang out, the security Taoists wielding clubs rushed towards Shin Feifei, eager to strike. Don't hit my daughter, Shin's mother cried out in alarm, trying to intervene, but she was a moment too late, shoved aside by the security Taoists. The stout clubs were poised to strike Shin Feifei's head. Bled from their palms. Do you dare to hit me? After enduring a few blows, Shin Feifei's mood soured. She turned to glare at them, Her eyes had transformed into a crimson hue, resembling a demon risen from the depths of hell. In terror, they turned to flee, only to find a figure suddenly blocking their path. Before they could discern who it was, each Taoist was kicked into the air one by one. They tumbled through the air, as if she intended to devour him. Fear gripped him, rendering his body weak and reluctant to emerge. He remained frozen within the icy depths of the Diane, but a short while, his thighs had grown numb. Devoid of sensation at this rate, it would not be long before this immortal master would meet their divine ancestor. Please, spare me. I am on the brink of freezing to death. I beg of you. The immortal master pleaded with Shen Feifei. Chapter 46. Exposure of identity. The individual in the vat was on the verge of losing consciousness, nearly succumbing to the cold. The fragments of ice, once scattered, were now beginning to coalesce, and it was only a matter of time before they fused into a large mass, completely encasing the immortal master in a solid block of ice. Yet, Shen Feifei remained unmoved by his pleas, her gaze fixed upon him with a fervent intensity, relishing in the sight of his slow demise. Now, having endured the frigid water for so long, his end was imminent. Feifei, let him go. He will freeze to death. This will lead to a tragedy. Shen's mother returned just in time, witnessing the scene and rushing forward to persuade Shen Feifei. It was merely for her mother's sake, to alleviate her worries. This immortal master, being of considerable influence, could not be allowed to live. Should he regain his strength, he would undoubtedly exploit his connections to trouble them incessantly. They had been no, she is not my daughter Shen Feifei. She is merely my adopted daughter. Please do not harm her. Shen's mother, isolated by the surrounding warriors, was utterly panicked upon witnessing the scene. Yet, Shen's mother chose to do so for the sake of Shen Feifei's safety. Resolutely, Shen Feifei decided to comply with her mother's wishes and temporarily assumed the role of Shen's adopted daughter. Well, you see, Xiao Xian came here to visit and conveniently rented a house from our neighbor. Upon seeing my husband injured, she came to help us take him to the hospital and care for him. Shen Feifei remained silent, her expression distant as she regarded Xiao Yi. Feifei, is this true? Xiao Yi stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder, and quietly inquired. Humph. Shen Feifei turned away, refusing to acknowledge him. Did you not intend to kill me? Why have you not acted? Shen Feifei feigned a refusal to forgive him, engaging in a childish standoff, while internally she felt a deep sorrow. Wasn't that just a misunderstanding? This Xiao Yi, he still could not fully accept her. The moment he learned she was Shen Feifei, the one who had slain his cousin, the one who had constantly opposed him, the zombie queen. The inhuman entity, his demeanor shifted coldly. He had summoned the military to confront her with intentions to kill. Although he temporarily accepted her mother's fabricated story, he knew the truth would eventually come to light. When that day arrived, how would he treat her? Would he personally end her life? Feifei, what is wrong? Are you still upset with me? Xiao Yi questioned, concerned yet tinged with regret, as he felt her body stiffen against him. It's nothing, truly nothing. I forgive you. Wu nestled in his warm embrace. Inhaling his masculine scent, Shen Feifei could no longer resist her yearning for him. Her heart softened, and she burst into tears. Nearby, Shen's mother observed the two in an embrace, her mind swirling with unspoken thoughts in the Shen household. Uncle, Auntie, Xiaoya is my girlfriend. I apologize for the trouble we've caused during our visit to D City. We have decided to return to the capital in the next few days. Shen Feifei temporarily lowered her noble head, pretending to be this version of herself, truly believing in this fade. For Shen Feifei's sake, Xiao Yi suppressed all doubts and inconsistencies, as long as there was no glaring evidence. He was willing to believe that she was Lu Yi, and that everything that had transpired was reasonable. Their love and passion were rekindled, and they agreed that Shen Feifei would accompany him to the capital to meet Xiao Yi's parents, as well as his friends and extended family. After bidding farewell to Xiao Yi, Shen Feifei transferred most of her resources into her parents' space. She also gifted them the capable A Mao and a Go, who could serve as part of a military force. Moreover, she repeatedly cautioned them against being too lenient, emphasizing that in such times, self-preservation was paramount. The three of them had little left to cherish at home. Shen Feifei arranged for them to stay in the house she had previously rented, caring for her family. After all, they had consumed crystal cores and had become part of Shen Feifei's world. After much discussion, Shen Feifei reluctantly said her goodbyes to her parents, reuniting with Xiao Yi. What would she encounter on this journey ahead? Chapter 48. This Xiao mother is not that Xiao mother. The military aircraft was remarkably efficient. Within half an hour, it landed at the Xiao family's private airstrip. From above, The Shao residence resembled a typical affluent household, occupying a vast expanse of land in the capital, adorned with several exquisite villas, albeit heavily guarded. However, upon disembarking, Shen Feifei quickly realized that her assumptions had been wildly inaccurate. Having considered herself well acquainted with luxurious structures, having visited numerous five-star hotels and opulent family mansions in Jiangnan, she felt like a rustic villager stepping into a grand estate upon arriving at the Shao family residence. The Shao family was a prestigious clan that had long held military power in Huagua. With a rich cultural heritage, their architecture was distinct from that of other affluent families. Their estate spanned several thousand square meters, an impressive expanse amidst the capital's high-value real estate, complete with pavilions, corridors, and sunlit terraces. These architectural terms, which Shen Feifei had only encountered in literature, were all present here. The buildings exuded an ancient charm, radiating an air of nobility and grandeur. Shen Feifei, feeling like a country bumpkin, wandered about the premises, curiously observing everything and occasionally posing ludicrous questions to Xiao Yi. This led to Xiao Yi feeling embarrassed in front of the Shao family staff. "Mom, Dad, this is my girlfriend, Lu Yi," Xiao Yi announced with a smile, introducing Shen Feifei to his parents. Xiao Yi's father, a general in his 50s whom Shen Feifei had seen on television, possessed an imposing presence. While she had not felt much while watching him on screen, in person, his commanding aura was palpable. His every gesture exuded an air of authority that was both formidable and pressuring. Initially, he remained silent, and he subtly raised an eyebrow, allowing a warm smile to grace his lips as he nodded in acknowledgement. Lu Yi, a friend of Xiao Yi's. "Very well, please take a seat." He gestured toward a nearby sofa. "You are Xiao Yi's new girlfriend?" Once they were seated, Xiao Yi's mother, who had been quietly observing Shen Feifei, finally spoke, her tone laced with sharpness and discontent. "Yes, I am Xiao Yi's girlfriend." Shen Feifei sensed a hint of hostility in Xiao Yi's mother's demeanor and chose her words carefully. Responding politely, "Lu Yi, is it? Who are your parents? Are you from a prominent family? What do you do for a living? I have never heard of you before." Xiao Yi's mother bombarded her with questions. "I am simply a girl from an ordinary household, without any lineage, and I have a regular job." Her tone was somewhat brusque. This was Xiao Yi's mother. How could she lack the grace and elegance typically expected of a cultured matriarch, instead resembling a petty, snobbish individual? "You, a mere commoner, aspire to become the daughter-in-law of the Shao family? Is this not a jest?" The matriarch of the Shao family immediately scoffed, her eyes brimming with disdain and contempt. Shen Feifei looked up at him, her confusion evident. "It seems the familial dynamics within the Shao household are far from simple. Enough, enough. Let us refrain from further quarrels. Today marks the first visit of Xiao Yi." Though they could not be overly extravagant in front of Zhao's parents, before long, the symbolic family gathering concluded. Later that evening, in the guest room of the Shao residence, Xiao Yi affectionately pinched Shen Feifei's little nose. All right. Cease gazing at me with those innocent big eyes. I'll reveal to you the truth." Xiao Yi relented, pulling Shen Feifei into his embrace. From Xiao Yi, Shen Feifei learned that the matriarch was not his biological mother, but rather a half-sister of his mother. Meddling in the affairs of others, before Zhao's father, she would not dare to act out, yet in front of Xiao Yi and other relatives, she was unrestrained and often rude, lacking decorum. This behavior made Xiao Yi reluctant to encounter her, opting instead to encourage him to follow her to the next store. "Look over there. That jewelry store has a golden chariot, as large as a real one. Just imagine how much gold it must contain." It was pure gold. Even the horse's belly was not hollow but filled with high-purity gold. Solid. To create such a chariot would require several tons of gold dough. If only it could be placed in her abode. Previously, when he wooed girls, he merely handed them money, allowing them to purchase what they desired, never displaying the patience to accompany them on shopping trips. He understood that these magnetic creatures were natural shoppers, capable of spending half the day wandering from store to store, utterly maddening. Yet, despite Shen Feifei's shopping spree, he found himself inexplicably drawn to follow her, willingly becoming her mobile shopping cart. Perhaps this was the power of love. Turning around, Xiao Yi intended to call Shen Feifei to join him for a rest when he noticed her gaping in awe at the pure golden chariot. "If you're not buying, please don't block the way. It hinders our business." A rather effeminate voice, tinged with a southern accent, rang in Shen Feifei's ears. "What? Is the queen not allowed to admire a golden chariot without obstructing your business?" Nearly a head shorter than her, clad in a snug uniform, his excess flesh spilling out. He was now striking a pose with his fingers delicately arched, addressing Shen Feifei with exaggerated flair. Am I blocking your business? Am I standing in front of your counter? Am I preventing anyone from purchasing your goods? Shen Feifei's previously cheerful demeanor soured as she pressed forward with a barrage of questions, advancing toward the clerk. You, young lady, ought not to be so rude. Dai Ti is quite impolite. Under the aggressive demeanor of Shen Feifei, the supervisor retreated step by step, his fingers gesturing helplessly behind him, while his mouth continued to express dissatisfaction towards her. In an instant, the other patrons in the hall turned their attention to the unfolding scene. Security! Security! This woman is not here to make a purchase. She is here to cause a disturbance. Hurry and escort her out. Is there something wrong with your merchandise? Xiao Yi, incensed by the supervisor's unreasonable behavior, furrowed his brow, his expression darkening with an air of menace. Xiao Yi was not only a soldier accustomed to the battlefield, but also a scion of one of the most prestigious families in Huaguo, often courted by others to patronize their establishments. Thus, it was intolerable for him to be treated with such disrespect in a place where he had come to spend his money. Dear, do not argue with him. A sly smile curling at the corners of her mouth, leaving the stout man shivering with trepidation. Chapter 50. Swift revenge. Nightfall in B City. As the hours grew late, the myriad lights flickered out. Any intruder would trigger an immediate alarm. For decades, no one had succeeded in breaching its defenses. At that moment, a magnificent golden carriage stood silently in the hall, its exquisite craftsmanship reflecting the dim amber light, exuding an ethereal and mysterious allure. On the street, a lithe figure swiftly approached the entrance of the jewelry store. Through the bulletproof glass doors, Shen Feifei observed the interior clearly. The security personnel had vacated, leaving the hall devoid of any presence. Earlier, after the stout man had insulted her, Shen Feifei had chosen to leave without a word, not out of cowardice, but rather to bide her time for an opportune moment to deliver a fitting reprimand to this ill-mannered individual. To bully the Queen Feifei would necessitate a grievous recompense. Was this century-old jewelry establishment not known for its poor service? Did they not take advantage of their size to intimidate customers? Shen Feifei's nails suddenly morphed into razor-sharp talons. A flicker of azure flame ignited from her fingertips, enveloping the talon with a searing aura. With a swift motion, she etched a large oval into the bulletproof glass. Perfectly sized for her passage, with a subtle gesture, the sizable glass oval vanished, leaving only a transparent void connecting to the hall. In a blink, Shen Feifei slipped silently into the jewelry store's grand hall. And its security system was not a mere fade. Ordinary thieves stood no chance here. Suddenly, her pupils transformed from round human irises into elongated slit-shaped pupils, akin to a cat's eyes under the midday sun. Moreover, they glowed with a mesmerizing crimson hue. As her eyes shifted, the laser security beams sprang to life, weaving a dense web throughout the room, leaving no corner unguarded. These lasers, finely calibrated, would trigger alarms at the slightest disturbance or upon detecting human body heat. With agile movements, she danced through the beams, her form fluid and light, as if performing a graceful ballet. Within mere seconds, she arrived before the golden carriage. None of the laser beams grazed her attire. Nimbly leaping out of the laser grid through the oval opening, disappearing into the shadows, having executed her plan without a trace, it was as though she had never been there at all. In her wake remained the hollow expanse of the hall and the faint traces of dust beneath the carriage. Only then did the surveillance cameras swivel back to scan the now empty hall. Yet, as he casually lifted his gaze to the screen, a sense of unease crept in. Something seemed amiss in the hall. What was it that was missing? Yawning, he pondered for a moment, then suddenly jolted upright. With a sudden jolt, he sprang to his feet, reviewing the footage with keen attention, and promptly pressed the alarm button on his desk. The shrill, urgent alarm echoed throughout the vacant hall, startling the guards. The alarm ringing today is a sound they have not heard in quite some time. Instinctively, upon hearing it, they all sensed that something significant had occurred at the store. In less than a few seconds, they rushed into the hall. However, the hall was eerily silent, devoid of any sign of thieves. The precious jewels remained untouched. So what exactly was missing? The guards were momentarily at a loss, unable to comprehend the situation. Shen Feifei was experiencing just such a sentiment. She wasn't genuinely interested in purchasing jewelry. She had more than enough in her possession. She simply wished to visit the jewelry store to gather information and witness the disgrace of those who had lost their possessions. It would serve as a form of satisfaction. Shen Feifei was far from a weakling who viewed misfortune as a blessing. She was one who believed in retribution. If someone harmed her, she would retaliate tenfold. Yesterday, she refrained from humiliating the personnel at the jewelry store, merely biding her time for today's amusement. After all, who dared to bully her? The Queen Feifei. They deserve their misfortune. The head of the task force scrutinized the photographs in his hands. Remarkably, the state-of-the-art indoor laser security system had remained untouched. How could a thief possibly evade all those delicate, intricate laser beams? Additionally, the surveillance cameras, which scanned the area every few seconds, had captured no clues or figures. The thief appeared to be a legendary master criminal, capable of traversing layers of laser security, seizing a gold carriage weighing several tons in mere seconds. The speed and skill demonstrated were unprecedented, leaving even this seasoned detective bewildered. What kind of slender physique would the perpetrator possess? What kind of strength and expertise in thievery could enable such a feat? Moreover, how did this individual manage to avoid triggering the laser beams upon entering and while removing the carriage? Was that large hole in the door truly the escape route used during the theft? How could a 5 to 6 meter long golden carriage possibly exit through an opening meant for a single person? Oh dear, this was a convoluted mess. The task force leader felt a throbbing headache. Every analysis seemed to lead to a dead end. Yet, he had heard that this jewelry store maintained close ties with the highest echelons of Huaguo. The value of this theft, amounting to hundreds of billions, had prompted an urgent directive from above to resolve the case within a strict time frame. Otherwise, everyone would be facing legal repercussions. Alas, there was not a single lead in sight. To have it stolen is an affront to us. You absolutely must capture that scoundrel and ensure they meet a grisly fate, cried a short, plump man with flamboyant gestures, prancing towards the task force leader and poking him with his dainty fingers. We will do our utmost to investigate. Have you offended anyone recently? The task force leader, feeling a wave of revulsion at the sight of this effeminate man, quickly sidestepped to avoid the prodding fingers. However, in order to glean some clues, he had to muster the energy to engage in conversation. Indeed, yesterday a young woman seemed particularly interested in that golden carriage. Chapter 52. The police encounter the Rabbit Lord on a sunny winter day. The other, gentle and beautiful, captivated those around them, inciting envy and longing in many onlookers. In front of the century-old jewelry store, a crowd gathered to witness the commotion. A long blue police tape barred entry at the hall's entrance, preventing anyone from entering. Inside, numerous uniformed investigators busily moved about, taking photographs and using tweezers to search for any trace of evidence. This was the peak season for gold sales, with merchants reaping substantial profits. It happened last night. Someone cut through the door and made off with it in mere seconds. Wow, what skill that must take. That golden carriage weighs several tons. Even dozens of people couldn't lift it. It was dozens of thieves. I heard it was just one. They suddenly appeared and took the golden carriage. Really? How is that possible? It must be a ghost. Have they caught anyone yet? No, given the circumstances. It seems unlikely. Outside the store, many voices chimed in with speculation. Watching the commotion, this was the favorite pastime of the people of Huaguo. After the recent zombie incidents in Jiangnan, everyone was on high alert. As if relishing the misfortune of the jewelry store. With that demeanor of yours, it couldn't possibly be your doing, Xiaoyi jested, observing Shen Feifei's infuriatingly smug expression. Shen Feifei chuckled without a response. What sort of national master is that? Shen Feifei had never heard of anyone by that title. Could it be a newly emerged celebrity or film star? Or perhaps a highly skilled investigator from their police system? It didn't seem so. Regardless, as long as he wasn't of a higher ability level than her, Shen Feifei had nothing to fear. A mere police officer was of no concern to her. Inside the jewelry store, the diminutive, rotund man, with his fingers elegantly arched, was incessantly nagging the head of the special investigation team about the events of the previous day. That woman yesterday, she didn't even buy anything. Bulging eyes at the police officer. The officer, startled, stumbled backwards several paces, nearly losing his balance, only saved by a nearby display stand. Oh dear, darling, did you not fall? The rotund man, overly familiar, had automatically elevated the head of the special investigation team to the status of his beloved. It's all right. It's all right. Please continue to provide your account. The head of the special investigation team hastily withdrew his hand from the rotund man's grasp, his face ablaze with embarrassment, struggling to muster a smile for the rotund man. How could these officers possibly deduce it was her? Moreover, these officers had always been incompetent. When had they ever displayed such investigative efficiency? Chapter 53. The case is solved. Outside the century-old jewelry store on North Street. Without solid evidence, the accusation against Shen Feifei was merely conjecture. Upon overhearing their conversation, Shen Feifei quickly understood the situation. Who are you people, and what do you want from us? Xiaoyi, displeased by the officer's demeanor, barked at them with an intimidating glare. Can't you see we are police officers? I am the captain of the Major Crimes Unit in B City. We suspect you have significant involvement in yesterday's theft of the golden carriage from the century-old jewelry store. Take them away. The head of the Special Investigation Team dismissed Xiao Yi's protests, believing that suspects would never admit to their crimes at first. Once brought in and subjected to interrogation, they would eventually confess. He immediately noted the colonel insignia on his uniform. The head of the Special Investigation Team's eyelids twitched. Upon further examination of the information, Xiao Yi, a scion of a noble lineage. Age 24, colonel rank, deputy chief of the B City Military District, concurrently serving as the leader of the Jiangnan District Corps hunting team. The prominent steel seal stamped next to his photograph was unmistakable. Sir, I apologize. We have made an error. Please, you are free to go. The head of the Special Investigation Team's expression shifted rapidly as he bent over, ingratiatingly escorting Xiao Yi and Shen Feifei out. The head of the Special Investigation Team disdainfully swatted the rotund man's hand away from his clothing. He certainly did not wish to offend a member of the Xiao family. Shen Feifei cast a scornful glance at the rotund man, pointing at the large hole in the door, addressing the leader of the investigation team. Report, sir, it was cut by the thief. He entered and exited through this very opening to steal the golden chariot. The leader of the investigation team responded briskly this time. The thief cut this. The edges are quite smooth, lacking any sharpness. Xiao Yi fell into contemplation. This cut was not made with a glass cutter. Utilizing a cutting tool is labor-intensive and time-consuming, especially given the substantial thickness of this bulletproof, heat-resistant glass door. By the time he finished cutting, he would have long been discovered by the patrolling personnel. She must be the thief. The short, stout man seemed to hold a grudge against Shen Feifei, persistently hounding her. Oh, this person is rather amusing. Shen Feifei cast a meaningful glance at him. My dear. For such a bizarre burglary to occur at the century-old jewelry store. What do they call this? Justice served. Chapter 54. A Heart Full of Sorrow. Nighttime. Xiao Yi, responding to an invitation from friends within the circle, brought Shen Feifei to a lavish establishment that resembled neither a park nor a villa area. A haven for the affluent. According to Xiao Yi, the owner of this establishment was one of their raucous companions, a well-known scion of wealth in the capital. There was no need to show him respect. If he was displeased, one could simply disregard him. Though Xiao Yi spoke so casually, Shen Feifei felt compelled to be on guard and prepared to engage with utmost caution. These individuals were Xiao Yi's friends. After which the guards would salute and grant them passage. It was evident that this place belonged to a powerful and influential family, where ordinary folk were not permitted entry. Hey, did you bring the invitation? It was not as if they would slap her in the face. Before long, they arrived at the entrance. Based on the preceding circumstances, Xiao Yi and Shen Feifei should have disembarked to present their invitation for verification. However, the driver seemed oblivious, continuing to drive the car further inside. Xiao Yi maintained a neutral expression, as if this were entirely normal. The guards, who had initially been very meticulous in their checks, appeared perplexed. Not only did they not halt the vehicle, but they also hurriedly cleared the path for it to proceed. The scene resembled that of the guards belonging to Xiao Yi himself. This fellow holds a significant position here. This wretched bald man was clearly one of Xiao Yi's friends. She could neither kick him nor wish to be embraced, so she could only sidestep him slightly. Get away from here. Stop trying to embrace and kiss. He raised his glass in a gesture of acknowledgement and downed it in one gulp before turning to follow Xiao Yi and the others upstairs, leaving the crowd still treating him with utmost respect. Unless he is from the Xiao or Li family. The Li family only has one young lady. Could it be that this young man is the eldest son of the Xiao family? The military hero Xiao Yi? Indeed. I have heard that the eldest son of the Xiao family recently returned from Jiangnan with a girlfriend. Those two must be them. What a pity we could not toast them. Now, before them stood the eldest son of the Xiao family, whose influence surpassed that of the Wang family, yet they did not recognize him, missing their opportunity. How could they not feel disheartened, observing Shen Feifei's inquisitive gaze? The bald man explained, those are just some rascals from various provinces and cities, here to network. They are of no significance. Do not bother with them. His words clearly conveyed his disdain for these individuals. His face framed by 3 long strands of black beard, and his large eyes sparkled with vitality. His demeanor exuded an ethereal grace, reminiscent of a celestial being in flowing white garments. Who was this Taoist? The fact that even someone like Shen Feifei, who had just touched the threshold of the 3rd tier, could not ascertain his level indicated that this Taoist was at least above the 3rd tier. Oh, young Master Xiao, what great fortune you possess, King Fengzi exclaimed, momentarily thwarted by Xiao Yi's protective stance, his ambitions tempered. If this woman were indeed a practitioner of many years, he would surely reap great rewards. His master had passed away decades ago, leaving him without guidance. If he could not break through soon, his lifespan would wane, leading to his inevitable demise. To seize the remaining decades of his life, he could enjoy centuries of earthly pleasures once more. After witnessing the earlier exchange, Xiao Yi's impression of King Fengzi had soured considerably. With a cold demeanor, he and Shun Feifei retreated to a corner, resolutely ignoring the Taoist. The Taoist's gaze was unmistakable. Even a fool could see his intentions towards Shun Feifei. To dare covet the fiancée of young Master Xiao. He would not remain unscathed. He then approached Xiao Yi and Shun Feifei to explain, I invited him here for his extraordinary abilities. He can enliven the festivities. As individuals with special powers, if you could take him as your master, you would surely ascend to immortality, eternal life, free from worldly troubles. How about it? Consider my offer. Xiao Yi intended to ignore him, yet King Fengzi was relentless. At that moment, King Fengzi was busy groping a beautiful starlet while simultaneously eyeing them with his bulging eyes. The Taoist's incessant nagging left Xiao Yi and Shun Feifei with throbbing headaches. Their eyes narrowed in frustration as they glared at the incessant chatterbox, wishing to tear his incessant mouth to shreds. What a buzzkill. Xiao Yi could no longer tolerate it, standing abruptly and pulling Shun Feifei with him, intending to exit the hall. This annoying, loquacious Taoist was a nuisance. Fighting was not an option, so evasion was the best course. Just then, a young man in a suit, with a rough face, emerged from the group of attendants, holding a steaming, exquisitely crafted hand warmer. Approaching Qing Feng's as he brushed past Xiao Yi and the others, the young man suddenly faltered. His body trembling uncontrollably, the hand warmer shook in his grasp, the lid clattering against the body. Rough face, what's the matter with you? The Taoist noticed the young man's odd demeanor and inquired, who had attained the initial stage of the third level of cultivation. After the deceiving immortal master met his demise, the rough-faced security Taoist quickly aligned himself with King Fengzi, the true power behind the scenes. Weeping uncontrollably, stop right there, King Fengzi bellowed, halting Shun Feifei and Xiao Yi in their tracks. Humph, ignore him. Xiao Yi had also heard the young man's lamentations, but had no intention of paying him any mind. Sensing the murderous intent radiating from King Fengzi, Xiao Yi instinctively shielded Shun Feifei, bracing for a confrontation. King Fengzi, filled with fury, exuded a chilling aura, fixated on Shun Feifei behind Xiao Yi, as if harboring a deep-seated grudge, ready to flay her alive. Over 200 years ago, King Fengzi had entered the mountains to cultivate alongside his master, losing contact with his family. Upon returning to the mortal realm 2 centuries later in search of descendants, he discovered that his lineage had dwindled to but a few, that a mortal master was his descendant, a direct line passed down through generations. Originally, he had intended to pass on his cultivation techniques to him. But the immortal master turned out to be a complete failure, lacking any spiritual roots and incapable of learning the immortal arts. Reluctantly, King Fengzi allowed him to go his own way, but fearful of potential trouble, allowing him to act as he pleased. Now, the immortal master had indulged in debauchery for far too long, and at over 30 years of age, he had yet to produce any offspring. Shun Feifei's act of killing him equated to severing King Fengzi's bloodline. King Fengzi summoned energy, his robes billowing without wind, and with a swift motion of his hands, he prepared to strike at Shun Feifei. Xiao Yi and Shun Feifei exchanged glances, instinctively repositioning themselves, channeling energy and readiness to confront the Taoist. With the situation escalating, both sides were on the brink of battle. The onlookers in the grand hall immediately erupted into a frenzy, scrambling down the stairs. The clash between evolved beings was far too perilous for mere mortals to witness. It was best to flee and avoid the chaos. In an instant, the hall emptied, leaving only Shun Feifei, Xiao Yi, the Taoist, and the heir of the Wang family. Please, please, do not fight here. Any misunderstandings can be resolved peacefully. If he were harmed, it would surely lead to significant turmoil, as his father, Wang Bo, held a position as a deputy commander in the military, second only to Xiao Yi's father. Chapter 57. The male lead is dead, glaring at the pair before him. Dared to kill his descendant and challenge his authority. She deserved death. This time, he would capture her, subject her to humiliation and torment in retribution for his beloved grandson. He would extract her cultivation pearl and consume it, thereby enhancing his own power and longevity. Xiao Yi, fully aware of the situation, still chose to protect her, clearly not taking King Fengzi seriously. Very well, as long as that Xiao Yi was not severely injured. In an instant, a fierce gust of wind swept through the hall, sending a long table crashing towards the two. Block it. Xiao Yi saw the long table hurtling toward them and immediately summoned an earthen shield to defend. Even his signature earth shield was easily destroyed. There was not enough time to summon another shield, and the long table was barreling toward them. If struck, it would surely result in broken bones and a gruesome demise. King Fengzi retrieved a yellow talisman from his wide sleeves, muttering incantations under his breath before tearing it and flinging it at Shen Feifei, his breath heavy with anticipation for the ensuing spectacle. What trickery was this Taoist up to? Shen Feifei was taken aback, perplexed by the sudden rain. Did he think rain could defeat her, the Queen Feifei? Had the Taoist lost his mind? Suddenly, a crackling sound echoed above her. What was she to do now? Once, she feigned a relationship with him merely to infiltrate human society. However, as time passed, and they fought side by side, Shen Feifei found herself genuinely developing feelings for this fellow. Came the arrogant and vindictive laughter from behind. King Fengzi, who had initially intended to strike down the woman, but was interrupted by the fearless Xiao, now barely clinging to life. Today, King Fengzi resolved to eliminate both of them. Though not an elixir, it was indeed a rare life-saving remedy. She recalled how this core had healed dying children and swiftly mended human injuries. Surely, it could aid Xiao Yi, who had been struck by lightning. With that, Shen Feifei relinquished Xiao Yi and turned to face King Fengzi. Her expression darkened and fearless. Her eyes were gradually turning crimson, and her finger blades lengthened, casting an elongated shadow in the hall. With a swift motion, her 10 finger blades gleamed darkly, slicing through the air as they lunged towards the Taoist dot in the grand hall. Shen Feifei's sharp finger blades danced around King Fengzi. His purple-gold crown lost to the chaos, and he bore the marks of her ferocity across his skin. By the boundless life of Buddha, you demoness, you must be eradicated today. If not, I shall be mocked by the world. It was evident that he had spent his time merely chanting spells and drawing talismans, neglecting the cultivation of his own body, a trait inherited from his fraudulent lineage. After this confrontation, Shen Feifei felt no fear of this third-tier master. She was filled with confidence, ready to confront him. Demoness, behold my treasure. In a swift motion, King Fengzi produced an object resembling a large basin from his voluminous sleeves and poured its contents toward Shen Feifei. However, as she observed, it appeared that something was writhing within the water, approaching with a menacing intent. Instinctively, she sidestepped to evade the onslaught of the water stream. To her astonishment, the liquid coalesced mid-air into a massive serpent. Shen Feifei was uncertain. Regardless, she was merely a zombie, not a practitioner of the arcane. Since it was a water serpent, she had a means to counter it. Silently, she summoned a ball of fiery energy in her palm. This blue flame, capable of vaporizing most metals, would surely consume the water serpent. Beware, serpent, she called out, launching the blue flames toward the creature. Its elemental fire, King Fengzi exclaimed. Taken aback, he hadn't anticipated that Shen Feifei possessed multiple elemental abilities, including fire alongside her metal and speed powers. In his mind, he had thought to ensnare her with his water serpent, but now he realized too late that she could counter it. As the flames engulfed the serpent, it writhed in agony, its form disintegrating under the fierce heat. The serpent, once proud, was now reduced to a mere shadow of its former self, retreating in a panic. But as it thrashed about, its long tail threatened to sweep towards the unconscious Xiao Yi, who was already on the brink of death from King Fengzi's earlier attack. In a split second, Shen Feifei lunged to protect Xiao Yi, but was met with a resounding crash as the serpent's massive tail struck her back. Without her protective flames, she might not have withstood its assault. Ha ha ha, demoness, you've been gravely wounded. Where will you run now? King Fengzi's derisive laughter echoed behind her. As her flames flickered and extinguished with her injury, King Fengzi brandished his basin with a sinister grin, reveling in his apparent victory over Shen Feifei and Xiao Yi. Though the great serpent was grievously wounded, it yet clung to life that moment. It coiled within the bowl, hissing at Shen Feifei with its truncated tongue, its gaze fixed upon her with a seething hatred, eager to devour her at any moment. Do you believe you have triumphed? Ha ha ha, Shen Feifei turned her head, a trickle of blood at the corner of her mouth. Cradling the still unconscious Xiao Yi in her arms, she offered a grim smile to King Fengzi, her eyes radiating determination and resolution. Chapter 59. The wedding. On the front line within the grand hall, Shen Feifei propped up the unconscious Xiao Yi, gently resting his head against her chest as she meticulously wiped the dust from his face. Xiao Yi, do you love me? Shall we marry today? She asked tenderly, a smile gracing her lips as she entirely ignored the presence of King Fengzi, as if the imminent danger had vanished. She was gravely injured. while Qing Fengzi, who ranked above her, had only sustained superficial wounds. Although the serpent had lost many of its components due to Shen Feifei's fiery powers, its combat prowess remained intact. In comparison, should he launch an attack, Shen Feifei and Xiao Yi would face certain death. It was evident that this madman, Qing Fengzi, would never relinquish such a prime opportunity. In her final moments, Shen Feifei harbored but one wish: to unite with Xiao Yi in matrimony. Her previous encounters had been disheartening. The scoundrel Luo Hao had deceived her, stealing away her first love and her heart. For the sake of trivial gains, he had cast her into a sea of corpses. She had been indifferent, had rejected, had feigned ignorance. Yet, he had gradually made his way into her heart. Faced with a formidable foe, this noble scion of humanity had unhesitatingly shielded her, willing to sacrifice himself for her. Solely because he loved her. True, he was human, and she was a zombie. Two distinct races, even adversaries. Yet love knows no boundaries of race. Just as the white snake could fall in love with Su Xian and ultimately achieve their happy ending, why could not Shen Feifei and Xiao Yi unite, bound together for eternity? At the brink of death, Shen Feifei resolved to marry Xiao Yi, fulfilling their shared desire. Ha! You wretched beings, you are both destined to die. I willingly choose to marry Xiao Yi, to be together for all eternity, unwavering until death. A deep, resonant male voice emerged from within her embrace, so melodious it was enchanting to be. You have awakened. This is wonderful. Though they bore traces of dust and a hint of charred aroma, bah, bah, bah. You two wretched lovers, I detest the displays of affection in this world. I shall tear you apart, ensuring you can never be together. Even in death, Qing Fengzi seethed, watching them with loathing, his feet stamping in frustration. Having retreated into the mountains to cultivate hundreds of years ago, he had severed all ties with worldly affections, never to see his wife again. For centuries, he had endured solitude. Initially, he missed his family, yet could not descend from the mountains, left only with longing. Upon learning that his family had all passed away, his heart grew increasingly twisted and reclusive. Warping his mind, seeing Shen Feifei and Xiao Yi's tender moments led to a complete eruption of his perverse rage. Hand in hand, Shen Feifei and Xiao Yi leaned closely together, smiling at the frenzied display of Qing Fengzi. Life and death had become inconsequential to them. Their hearts were tightly entwined. As long as they could be together, Qing Fengzi's pathetic performance was merely an embellishment to their wedding. Just as Qing Fengzi approached with a sinister grin, their cheeks pressed together, feeling and caressing each other. Suddenly, bang, don't move, move again, and I shall fire. Just as Qing Fengzi prepared to strike, the doors of the hall were blown open by a group of soldiers. Wang Deshao arrived with a battalion of soldiers, shielding Shen Feifei and Xiao Yi. Upon hearing Xiao Yi's voice earlier, he knew what must be done. He had immediately called his father for reinforcements. Xiao Yi appears to be an admirable choice for a daughter-in-law. Very well, you may marry Xiao Yi. After much contemplation, General Xiao finally lifted his head and smiled. Really? That's wonderful, father. Thank you. At this moment, Xiao Yi transformed from his earlier solemn demeanor into one of exuberant joy. Xiao Mu burst in, dampening the festive mood. Why did you barge in without knocking? Where are the guards? General Xiao scolded her loudly, clearly displeased by her sudden entrance. I sent the guard away to fetch something. If I hadn't come to bring you tea, I would still be oblivious to this matter. My dear husband, deciding on Xiao Yi's marriage so hastily is rather premature. Xiao Mu cooed sweetly at General Xiao. Yes, the tea is quite nice. General Xiao inhaled the fragrant aroma deeply, reminiscent of the true Xiao Mu. His late wife used to brew tea for him, and this flavor evokes memories of her. Xiao Mu smiled charmingly at him, her voice low and enticing. Well, do share your thoughts. I have already consented to their marriage. Under Xiao Mu's persistent gentle persuasion, General Xiao began to relent, yet he firmly reiterated his stance. This will also give them a chance to acclimate to one another, preventing future regrets, don't you think? The second aunt of Xiao Yi understood that she could not oppose the elder's decision directly, and he felt a twinge of unease before nodding in agreement. Thus, under Xiao Mu's suggestion, the wedding was transformed into an engagement. 3 nights later, the grand hall of the Xiao residence was ablaze with light. A group of elegantly dressed noblemen gathered together. Have you heard? The future daughter-in-law of the Xiao family is an orphan that Xiao Xiao picked up from Jiangnan. Indeed, she hails from a common family. Ha ha ha. Who can argue with that? Yet, I've heard that the girl is a high-level evolved being, nearly at the 3rd tier, capable of matching King Fengzi, the national master. Oh, how impressive. No wonder the Xiao family would allow their young master to marry a common girl. A near 3rd tier expert is indeed a treasure. I would be willing to marry her myself. With your looks, you have neither the physique nor the capabilities. Do you really think you could attract a third-tier expert? I might stand a better chance. A group of noble ladies also congregated. Just a country girl, and yet she has managed to steal our beloved Xiao Xiao away. Truly outrageous. A stunningly dressed beauty complained as she paced, compelling her to relinquish Xiao Xiao. Otherwise, what face will we noble ladies have left? One young lady ground her teeth in anger. Exactly. How could you permit such a lowly woman to enter the Xiao family? As for me, I find myself lacking in status and thus powerless. When she descends, you must all ensure to curry her favor. Xiaomu responded to the noble women's complaints with an air of grace. A picture of a virtuous wife. In truth, her words merely redirected the ire of the group onto Shun Feifei. Chapter 62. Miss Li in the grand hall of the Xiao family. The lights suddenly dimmed. The guests instinctively fell silent. Dressed in an evening gown, Shun Feifei entered the hall holding Xiao Yi's hand, a bright circular spotlight illuminating her as she moved. Look, the leading lady has arrived. She is truly beautiful. Is she a celestial being descended to earth? Am I dreaming? A few murmurs of awe escaped the crowd. No wonder Xiao Xiao would choose her. This vixen. I feel a twinge of envy. One noble lady could not help but indulge in gossip. Applause erupted spontaneously as the crowd welcomed Shun Feifei and Xiao Yi, the protagonists of the evening. Today, Shun Feifei wore a deep brown off-the-shoulder evening gown, puff sleeves accentuating her figure, her hair elegantly styled, her delicate features radiating charm. Her ivory skin exuded a translucent quality. With a slender waist and a perfectly cut high-slit skirt, her figure appeared even more refined, exuding an air of grace. The applause lingered as Shun Feifei and Xiao Yi stood at the center of the hall, the guests still clapping enthusiastically. The noble women who had initially sought to trouble Shun Feifei appeared momentarily dazed. He felt a headache coming on. Miss Lu Yi, do you wish to establish a marriage contract with young Master Xiao, with the hope of growing old together? The officiant's booming voice resonated throughout the hall. I do. Shun Feifei's cheeks flushed with a hint of shyness, yet her response was resolute. Her answer was met with a round of applause. Mr. Xiao Yi, do you wish to establish a marriage contract with Miss Lu Yi? With the hope of growing old together, the officiant turned to Xiao Yi, inquiring. All eyes were on them, the atmosphere charged with anticipation, eager for his affirmative response to ignite a celebration. Xiao Yi gazed affectionately at Shun Feifei, his face glowing with warmth. Absolutely not. You cannot become engaged. Before Xiao Yi could finish his declaration, a cold voice rang out from the entrance, abruptly interrupting him. Someone is causing a scene. The crowd instinctively turned to see who would dare to disrupt the engagement ceremony. In the doorway stood a fiery-haired girl clad in fur, heavily made up, who boldly pushed aside the guard blocking her path and strode in. Miss Li, the eldest daughter of the Li family. What brings her here? Was she not sent off to Europe for a vacation? She must have heard about young Master Zhao's engagement and rushed back on a private jet. Well, this promises to be entertaining. Believing that only she, the foremost lady in Huagua's political arena, is worthy of the nation's most prominent young master in the military, the head of the Li family has often hinted at a potential engagement, arranging for her to attend school alongside Xiao Yi from kindergarten, hoping to cultivate a deep-rooted relationship. Alas, the goddess's affections were unrequited, and the prince remained indifferent. Proud Xiao Yi has never been fond of the delicate and spoiled Miss Li. The eldest daughter of the Li family burst into tears, her makeup running as she gazed pitifully at Xiao Yi, leaping onto the stage to grasp his clothing. Get away from me. I have never claimed to like you. And the delicate Miss Li crumpled like a gourd, rolling off the stage and landing before a crowd of newly arrived guests. Chapter 63. The Queen is a Mistress. The crowd in the Xiao family hall watched as Shun Feifei effortlessly deflected the attack. Only then did he realize that the oversized hidden weapon that had rolled towards them was his treasured daughter, Li Shuyuan. She had just been sent flying by her own bodyguard. At this moment, her face was pale, blood trickling from her mouth, clutching her abdomen as she writhed on the ground. The kick from the evolved warrior had not been gentle, striking her abdomen and nearly turning her insides to mush. Help! Someone! Please help! Immortal Master! Save her! The head of the Li family's expression changed drastically as he rushed to embrace Li Shuyuan, calling out in desperation. May the Buddha grant us longevity. Let me see if there is any elixir left. Seemingly reluctant. Hurry! The head of the Li family, in a panic, snatched the pill and forced it into Li Shuyuan's mouth. He cared not for the elixir's rarity or its centuries-old formulation. Saving his daughter was paramount. Indeed, it was a miraculous remedy. In no time, color returned to Li Shuyuan's face, and her pain lessened. With the crowd's assistance, the still unconscious Li Shuyuan was transported to the hospital for further treatment. Old Xiao. That woman has severely injured my precious daughter. What do you propose we do? The head of the Li family accused Shen Feifei, his face stern. Did I injure this young lady from the Li family? Just moments ago, Xiao Yi's future bride had not laid a hand on anyone. She merely defended herself against Miss Li's sharp claws. Yet, it was his own bodyguard who had injured her in plain view of everyone. Those who met his gaze quickly averted their eyes, huddling together in fear, except for a few who remained steadfast. After a moment of silence, a major in military uniform stepped forward, his countenance resolute. One after another, voices from the crowd echoed in agreement. Among them were many from the Xiao faction, as well as those who had long harbored grievances against the Li family. Others simply could not stand by and allow the truth to be concealed. As long as the boy is happy, her background is of no concern. There are many with unclear backgrounds who roam freely in society, Father Xiao replied, casting a sidelong glance at the sullen national master. Clearly addressing him, Old Xiao, it is only right for our two families to unite through marriage. No matter how good that Lu Yi girl is, she cannot be the primary wife. I suggest we let Xiao marry Shu Yuan and have Lu Yi as a concubine. The head of the Li family seethed internally, but considering his daughter's desperate desire to marry Xiao Yi, he had no choice but to compromise. Boy, what is your opinion? Father Xiao asked, not even raising his eyes. Impossible. In this lifetime, I will marry no one but Lu Yi. I will never take a concubine, Xiao Yi replied resolutely. Though Huagua officially practices monogamy, in reality, many powerful and wealthy individuals take concubines, often referred to as keeping a second wife, third wife, fourth wife, and so on. However, Xiao Yi was resolute in his decision against such a course of action. He could never marry the insufferable Li Shuyuan, a woman as bothersome as a persistent pest. Nor would he ever consider taking his beloved Xiao Yi as a mistress. If Xiao Yi were to discover that she was to be relegated to such a role, it was likely she would dismember Li Shuyuan in a fit of rage, and subsequently crush the head of the Li family patriarch beneath her heel. Xiao Yi could vividly imagine her fury, one hand clutching the severed head of the Li patriarch while the other, still dripping with blood, wielded a gleaming steel blade. He instinctively glanced at the neck of the Li patriarch. Upon witnessing Xiao Yi's resolute refusal, the Li patriarch's ire began to simmer, threatening to erupt. Suddenly, he felt a chill envelop his neck as a gust of cold wind swept through. What was this unsettling sensation? The Li patriarch instinctively recoiled, drawing back his neck. Do you not yet understand who Lu Yi is? She is a demon cultivator. The theft of the golden chariot from the 100-year gold shop is inextricably linked to her. Sooner or later, her demonic nature will manifest, and she will lose control. Posing a threat to you all, it would be prudent to hand her over to me for proper management. This is for the best of everyone. The national master spoke with an ominous expression. At the Xiao family estate, the guests who had attended the engagement banquet had long since departed. The interference from the Li family had merely added a convoluted prelude to the engagement ceremony. You've been smiling like a fool. What is this? Are you dreaming of marrying me? You, who says I dream of marrying you? How self-important. Shen Feifei's cheeks flushed as she lowered her head, refusing to concede. As the saying goes, which daughter does not yearn for love? Which woman does not desire a husband? At 23, Shen Feifei was a young woman amidst a sea of suitors, having endured the trials of life and death. Coupled with the treachery of her first love, she craved that genuine love, that deep affection. Now, she felt she had found it, the love she had long sought. How could she not be immersed in it? How could she possibly extricate herself? Yi, you are truly beautiful. Gazing at the charming girl before him, reminiscent of a rosy apple, Xiao Yi felt his throat tighten and his mouth dry, barely able to contain himself. Vulnerable and exposed, she felt a twinge of fear, uncertainty coursing through her, her heart racing uncontrollably. Suddenly, Xiao Yi grasped Shen Feifei's hand, placing it against his heart, panting slightly. Listen to my heartbeat and compare it to yours. Her arms instinctively found their way to his back, feeling every subtle shift of his body beneath her fingertips. Do you truly love me, regardless of who I am or what my identity may be? He lowered his head and captured Shen Feifei's lips, drinking deeply from her sweetness. The fervent kiss crashed upon her like a tempest, leaving Shen Feifei breathless and struggling to keep up. His ardor enveloped her, igniting every nerve and resonating deep within her soul. Involuntarily, Shen Feifei cried out, only to have her voice silenced by Xiao Yi's sensual lips, engulfed by his dark gaze. This night, she became a woman. His woman, belonging to the one she adored. Chapter 65. The arrival of the scoundrel Luo. How the warmth of the sun bathed Shen Feifei's exquisite features, casting a luminous veil of soft light across her delicate visage. As her eyelids fluttered, Shen Feifei opened her eyes and brushed aside the strands of hair that had fallen from her pillow, tucking them behind her ear. The other side of the bed lay empty, save for the lingering impressions of his presence and the faint warmth that still remained. Reflecting on the passionate night they had shared, Shen Feifei felt her cheeks flush once more, instinctively covering her face with her hands. She had not anticipated that the usually composed and mature Xiaoyi could be so vigorous and fierce in bed. Even with her extraordinary resilience, she struggled to withstand his relentless demands. By the end, she found herself pleading for mercy, yet he refused to relent. They had spent the entire night awake, only collapsing into a state of exhaustion as dawn approached. Now, as midday arrived, the one who had shared her bed had already left to attend to his affairs. Leaving Shen Feifei to finally rise from her slumber, "My dearest, I have been preoccupied with official duties. You may rise when you feel rested. Do not rush. Kisses to you. Forever loving you." Eat out on the bedside table. Xiaoyi left behind a pristine note. Those few short sentences encapsulated his boundless affection that as she savored her breakfast. Shen Feifei clutched the note, lost in reminiscence, a blissful smile blossoming on her face, directing them to push her inside. Yesterday, that Li Shuyuan had used her as a cushion, injuring her legs under the sheer force, resulting in some fractures, rendering her unable to walk properly. Thus, she was confined to a wheelchair for recovery. This Xiao mother was indeed not one to be trifled with. Typically, she would not even spare Shen Feifei a glance, always walking past with her nose held high, dismissing her with a huff. Never engaging in conversation. Now, with her leg injured, instead of resting upstairs, she had come to seek trouble with Shen Feifei. The intent to spar was unmistakably clear, despite her disdain for this Xiao mother. Shen Feifei, thinking of her beloved Xiao Yi and the long duration they would have to coexist, resolved to endure for his sake. She would grant her some face as an elder. Shen Feifei swallowed her irritation and politely addressed her as aunt. The Xiao family is a distinguished household, not just any wildflower can enter. Since you are ostensibly the future daughter-in-law of the Xiao family, you must learn to observe the rules and avoid bringing shame upon the Xiao name. Listening to the woman's rude remarks, Shen Feifei felt herself on the verge of an eruption. What audacity, a mere mistress of the Xiao household, though she had cohabited with Xiao father for decades. What do you intend to do? Shen Feifei's sudden rise startled Xiao mother, who then beheld the eerie red gleam in Shen Feifei's eyes and the deadly glint of her elongated fingers. To a mere weed, a lowly creature. Well, if she was frightened away, it would serve her purpose. From now on, Xiao mother would surely avoid her, and even if they were to meet, she would not dare to provoke her again. However, she had underestimated Shen Feifei, who was no ordinary weak woman. Shen Feifei could not be measured by conventional standards. To put it plainly, she simply would not succumb to Xiao mother's machinations. Thus, the carefully orchestrated drama of the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had begun with a significant disadvantage for Xiao mother. Shen Feifei felt a twinge of satisfaction. Ring ring, just as she reveled in her triumph, her previously silent phone rang. It was a call from the Shen family. Days had passed, and although Shen father and Shen mother had worried for Shen Feifei's safety, they had refrained from contacting her, fearing the revelation of her true identity. But why now? And during the bustling noon hour, could something have occurred? A sense of unease washed over Shen Feifei, yet she pressed the answer button. "My daughter, that Luo Hao has come. Do you wish to see him?" Shen father's heavy voice resonated through the phone. "Luo Hao? That scoundrel? He is still alive and has sought refuge at Shen's home? How despicable, how shameless. Not only had he cast her into a horde of zombies, but he also had the gall to approach the Shen family to curry favor. Splendid. Truly splendid. It seems that fate has delivered him to her doorstep without her having to search for him." Fearing to alarm Shen father. Yet, her hands trembled with rage, the delicate silver chopsticks in her grip bending into a twisted heap of scrap metal. "Very well. This child has endured much. It is truly pitiful." Shen father sighed as he hung up, unaware of the extent of Luo Hao's transgressions against his daughter. He felt a twinge of sympathy for the man who had once been his daughter's boyfriend. She rushed off after receiving a call today. It seems she is involved in something clandestine. Yes, a call from D-City. I hear she has foster parents there and something about Luo Hao. Good. I shall inform Xiaoyi. This will be quite the spectacle. Haha, Xiao mother despised Shen Feifei with a passion, her teeth grinding in rage. This accursed woman had not only caused her daughter's demise but had the audacity to contest her position as the matriarch of the Xiao family. I will return shortly. Shen Feifei opened the hatch and climbed into the cockpit, fastening her seatbelt and preparing for takeoff. The capital city is several hundred kilometers from City D, and traveling by car would take a considerable amount of time. She had long since overcome any fear of flying and had learned to operate an aircraft. Moreover, with her metal manipulation abilities, she could communicate with metallic objects. Thus, not only could she pilot a plane, creating a buzzing sound, gradually disappearing from sight, leaving behind only a series of circular arcs in constant motion. The wind generated by the rotor was fierce, causing the surrounding trees to bow their heads and bend low. Gently descending, temporarily suppressing her rage, Shen Feifei, her eyes reddened, ascended the stairs with purpose and knocked on the Shen family's door. "Mom, Dad, where is Luo Hao?" After scanning the room, Shen Feifei did not spot Luo Hao and hastily questioned her mother. "Don't rush. He's upstairs. I've asked that mother and her child to take care of him." This poor child arrived in such a state, his clothes in tatters and riddled with holes that in this frigid weather he could have frozen to death. Fortunately, he remembered our address and managed to find us. He was shivering outside the community gate this morning, freezing cold. If your father hadn't happened to run into him, he would have either frozen to death or been apprehended by patrolling soldiers. Sigh, it's all due to the bioweapon crisis, Shen's mother lamented, unaware of Luo Hao's misdeeds, yet feeling sympathy for his unfortunate plight. "Oh, so he is upstairs, dressed in ragged clothes, suffering from cold and hunger, resembling a beggar. It seems that the nearly 10 million in prize money he deceitfully obtained from Shen Feifei has not brought him any fortune." Enveloped in the warmth of a freshly dried cotton blanket, feeling utterly comfortable, he had no recollection of the last time he had enjoyed such luxury. Unconsciously, he rubbed his freshly washed, fragrant hair, turning over to continue his slumber. A sweet smile gracing his lips. In his dreams, he was frolicking with Shen Feifei on the university campus, chasing and playing together in lecture halls, concert halls, cinemas, beneath tree-lined avenues, and in the light of the moon. They strolled hand in hand, discussing their aspirations, their lives, expressing their love and reluctance to part. The more he gazed at his girlfriend, the more beautiful she appeared to him, prompting him to kiss her expressive, glistening eyes adorned with long, delicate lashes. He closed his eyes, savoring the moment, feeling an overwhelming sense of happiness and joy. Suddenly, the scene shifted. That lovely, sweet gaze transformed into a pair of lifeless eyes, rolling back to reveal the whites, emanating a foul stench of decay, with maggots occasionally wriggling out from the eye sockets. Before him, Shen Feifei morphed into a grotesque figure, mouth agape and drooling, her body riddled with gnawed holes, oozing pus and blood, dragging a length of intestine, reeking of decay. Her straight arms bore long, black, sharp nails, serrated like teeth, as she cackled ominously and lunged toward him. Those terrifying eyes drew ever closer, nearly touching his face. In fright, he stumbled backward, falling to the ground, yet the owner of those eyes would not relent. She opened her putrid mouth to bite down. "Don't come near, Feifei. I didn't mean to push you into the horde of zombies." "No," Luo Hao thrashed about in his nightmarish state, futilely resisting the non-existent zombie, tangling the blanket around him. Sweat soaked through his clothing, cold beads trickling down his forehead, yet his eyelids felt as though they bore the weight of 1,000 pounds. I couldn't save her. I'm in torment. I'm useless, utterly useless." As he spoke, tears streamed down his face, hands covering his eyes, overwhelmed with emotion, resembling someone who had lost a dear lover. Utterly heartbroken and helpless, Luo Hao, who had just received the winning ticket from Shen Feifei, found himself in the midst of a bioweapon crisis. The streets were filled with flesh-eating zombies and corpses. He had sacrificed Shen Feifei to the tyrant Niu Laoda in search of protection, then pushed her into the horde of the undead, barely escaping with Niu Laoda from the piles of corpses to reach the base. However, life at the base was equally harsh, with scarce food and a brutal survival of the fittest, and he often endured bullying and insults from Niu Laoda and his cohorts. Feeling life was devoid of meaning, he contemplated suicide on several occasions, yet, upon grasping that hard-won lottery ticket, he found solace and renewed courage to carry on. As long as he could escape the Jiang'an quarantine zone and reach the normal society of Jiabei. Seeing that he could no longer remain in the refugee camp, he devised a plan to acquire a rickety boat, saved food for several days, and clutching that lottery ticket, he chose a pitch-black night to attempt to row across to Jiangbei and fulfill his dream of wealth. Little did he know, the Jiangbei district was heavily guarded along the river, and his frail boat was discovered midway, riddled with bullets from heavy machine guns, sending him tumbling into the water. Fortunately, having grown up in the water-laden Jiang'an, he was an adept swimmer and held his breath, swimming to Jiangbei. Thanks to the darkness, the patrolling soldiers believed him to be dead and ceased their search, allowing him to escape with his life. This incident fueled him with boundless motivation. He shook off the water like a dog, and continued on his quest for wealth. However, subsequent events did not unfold as smoothly. The Jiangbei district was rife with inspections. He finally dared to enter a large lottery exchange station, disguised as a typical Jiangbei citizen. The young woman on duty at the exchange station was truly beautiful, her large, sparkling eyes rivaling Shen Feifei's. While the other staff took his lottery ticket to verify its authenticity, who would have thought that, before long, a battalion of heavily booted military police would surge into the lottery center, each one glaring fiercely at him. As a result, he was swiftly knocked to the ground by the group of officers, his hands cuffed behind his back, and dragged like a lifeless dog into a prisoner transport vehicle. Thus began his tragic existence behind bars. The prison bully frequently imposed rules upon him, forcing him to adapt to their harsh environment. He was beaten 3 times a day, rising before the roosters, and receiving meals inferior to that of a dog, all while working harder than an ox. And then there were those unspeakable incidents. The prison lacked women, and this delicate young man from Jiang'an became the target of attention. Each night, he was compelled to serve those older men. A moment of profound humiliation for any man. Each time he recalled those moments, a sharp pain surged through him, a reminder of his suffering. Thankfully, he had grown accustomed to it. That pain had become numb, devoid of feeling. Reflecting on this, he caressed the soft. Ouch! You are Shen Feifei. I thought you were dead, turned into a zombie. Don't come near me. Don't come near. Luo Hao trembled, clutching his injured waist, his voice growing hoarse and dry as he shouted. His words stretched thin and muffled. Yes, I have turned into a zombie, thanks to you. Ha! Shen Feifei dropped her pretense, exposing her sharp teeth and gleaming 3-foot-long claws as she advanced towards Luo Hao. Her eyes ablaze with a crimson hue. She had endured for far too long, awaited this moment for an eternity. To exact her revenge, she had traversed the breadth of the land, endured humiliation, and now. This was the moment of reckoning. She yearned to personally carve him apart, piece by piece, feeding his flesh to the dogs, extracting his bones for broth, stripping his tendons to fashion a belt, and removing his skin to craft cushions. She intended to torment him, allowing him to experience every agony imaginable, to repay her for all the suffering he had inflicted upon her, before he could finally perish. Once, she had loved him dearly, had trusted him implicitly. For him, she had quarreled with her parents and endured long separations. She had fought tooth and nail to protect that lottery ticket. Yet, in the end, she had gained nothing and had been treated like a burden. Thrown to the zombies, her hatred for him was profound, keeping her awake at night, choking down her meals, as if a thorn lodged in her throat. Today, she would kill him, heal her wounded spirit, and seek solace for herself and her friends who had succumbed to zombies because of this selfish man. Luo Hao, already weakened from prolonged escape and malnutrition, had further suffered the torments of imprisonment. After enduring Shen Feifei's fright and blood loss, he finally succumbed, his eyes rolling back as he fainted. Feifei, you. Her father's voice trembled with trepidation, but in her fervor for revenge, she had momentarily forgotten about her parents, who remained in the room. Well, it was time for her true identity to be revealed to them. Today, she would lay it bare. Dad, Mom, Shen Feifei turned to face her parents, her teeth and claws still bared, her eyes glowing with a devilish crimson. Feifei, you are a zombie. Her father stumbled back, aghast at her terrifying appearance, his expression one of shock. Her mother, too, clung to her husband, trembling in disbelief. Yes, Dad, Mom. I have already become a zombie. Shen Feifei spoke each word slowly, a bittersweet smile gracing her lips as she looked at her parents. Feifei, my Feifei. Unexpectedly, her mother, who had been on the verge of fainting, rushed forward, enveloping Shen Feifei in her arms, weeping uncontrollably, disregarding the blood from Luo Hao that still stained her daughter's claws. Mom. Shen Feifei embraced her mother tightly, tears streaming down her face. Even after transforming into a foul zombie, she had revealed her true form before her parents, her demeanor monstrous, as she had tortured Luo Hao. Yet her mother did not recoil in horror, disregarding her own safety to embrace her daughter, fully aware of her identity. This love was profoundly heavy, rich, and sweet. Feifei, you have suffered. Her father approached, embracing both of them, tears streaming down his face, his heart heavy with sorrow. The 3 of them wept together, united in their grief. Their precious daughter had endured so much suffering, pushed into a horde of corpses, transformed into a zombie. Yet still retaining her humanity, she had traversed great distances to return and protect her elderly parents. This bond of family, this depth of love, left them in awe. How could they ever turn their backs on her? His heart ached, Shen's father pounded his chest in anguish. He was a man, a father, yet he had been unable to safeguard his only daughter. All of this was the doing of that scoundrel Luo Hao. He would make sure to settle the score with him. Shen's father turned to search for Luo Hao's whereabouts. Upon hearing of Shen Feifei's plight, Shen's father finally grasped the gravity of her situation. As if that were not enough, he audaciously dared to come to the Shen household, attempting to deceive them in a bid for refuge. With brazen words, he professed his undying love for Feifei. Spinning tales of his valiant efforts to save her. To their dismay, they believed him, kindly bringing him back to their home, offering him a bath, a meal, and providing clean clothes and bedding for him to rest. Fury etched across his face. Shen's father abruptly turned, intent on seeking out that scoundrel, Luo Hao. However, he soon discovered that the very Luo Hao who had been sprawled on the floor moments ago was now nowhere to be found. "Master, he is over there." A rescued child pointed towards the balcony. Following the direction indicated by the child, Shen Feifei and her family were astonished to see Luo Hao dragging himself up to the balcony. A mangled leg hindering his escape as he tried to leap down to flee. It appeared that after losing consciousness, Luo Hao had been revived by the excruciating pain from Shen Feifei's kick that had shattered his thigh. "I shall not let you go today." Her icy words sent a chill down Luo Hao's spine, causing him to break out in a cold sweat, initially daunted by the height from which he was about to leap. To think that this cowardly, spineless wretch would dare to take his own life, Shen Feifei was taken aback for a moment before rushing to the balcony to peer down. There, Luo Hao resembled a heavy, which cushioned his fall. He then bounced off and collided with the ground, kissing the earth with his face. Someone just jumped from the building. The unloading crew below gasped, pointing at the sprawled Luo Hao. Alas, it seemed that Luo Hao had not yet met his demise. At that moment, he struggled to rise, dragging his mangled leg in an agonizing effort. Truly, he was like a cockroach, so resilient that no amount of torment could extinguish his life. Trembled on the icy ground, blood trickling from his lips as he pitifully pleaded for mercy. Still pretending, still attempting to deceive her. He loved her yet offered his cherished lover to that brute. With a sickening crunch, she severed his leg cleanly, exposing the stark white bone beneath. "Help! Help!" Luo Hao howled in agony, rolling on the ground, blood from his severed limb spilling everywhere. The residents of the community, witnessing the spectacle, hurriedly shut their doors and windows, too terrified to peek outside. Those with a touch of bravery dared to glance through the cracks of their windows, while the timid cowered in corners. "Scream, scream all you want." Shen Feifei, with a chilling efficiency, severed Luo Hao's remaining limbs, leaving only a motionless torso sprawled on the ground, blood gushing from the stumps. Observing the pitiful state of this wretch brought Shen Feifei immense joy. A euphoric liberation. This scoundrel, who dared to betray her love and cast her into the horde, deserved the most excruciating demise. Zombie, zombie, zombie. Luo Hao, with his trachea severed by Shen Feifei's blade, managed to utter one final word before his eyes widened in death. His expression frozen in disbelief. At last, he had perished. Shen Feifei closed her eyes, exhaling the pent-up turmoil within her. Scenes from the past flickered before her. From the moment she met Luo Hao in school, to falling in love, to his contemptuous gaze as he pushed her toward death, culminating in the horrific sight of his demise. It was over. Everything had come to an end. She had avenged herself. Her spirit finally unburdened. That a single drop of crimson tear escaped her eye, falling onto the soil still stained with Luo Hao's blood. "You're a zombie, aren't you?" A familiar, trembling voice called from behind. "What?" Shen Feifei's body jolted. "Turn around. Let me see." The voice behind her suddenly turned cold, issuing a command. Shen Feifei's body stiffened as she slowly turned to face the slender, alluring silhouette illuminated by the sun. It was truly him. How had he come to be here? "Xiaoyi, you've come," Shen Feifei said, a bittersweet smile gracing her lips as she looked at the newcomer. Indeed, the visitor was Xiaoyi, her fiancé, whom she had just betrothed the day prior. 7th chapter. From allies to enemies below the Shun residence, the zombie-like Shen Feifei turned to face Xiaoyi, who stood at a distance, accompanied by a throng of special forces executing their mission. You're truly a zombie," Xiaoyi exclaimed, his face a mask of shock, disbelief, and anguish. Before him stood Shen Feifei, her blood-red, narrow eyes, eerie pupils, ashen visage, and a row of razor-sharp fangs, glistening with remnants of flesh and blood. At a glance, she was unmistakably not human. All her attributes resembled that of a zombie, the very zombie king he had been pursuing relentlessly. The enigma was finally elucidated. She had deceived him. She had murdered his childhood friend, his cousin, the cold-faced girl. She had slain his comrades, those with whom he had fought side by side through thick and thin. Moreover, she had infiltrated the base, masquerading as a human, committing heinous acts that led to the demise of countless innocent lives. Xiaoyi recalled the police zombie incident at Base C, realizing it was Shen Feifei's doing. Yet, he had foolishly believed her to be a promising military asset. Nurturing her with care, shielding her from troubles. In the end, he had fallen hopelessly in love with her. He had brought her back to Jiabei, introduced her to his family, defied opposition, and secured their engagement. Just last night, they had been entwined in each other's embrace, lost in passion. Oh heavens, how could this be? How could it come to this? Gazing at the zombie before him, Xiaoyi clutched his head, tugging at his hair in despair as he sank to the ground. Weeping uncontrollably, he resembled a child, overwhelmed by a heavy blow, unable to manage his emotions, resorting to self-destructive behavior. Xiaoyi, you, Shen Feifei said, her heart heavy with bitterness as she attempted to approach him, hesitating to reach out in her current zombie state. With a sigh, she retracted her monstrous appearance, returning to her human form, and cautiously approached Xiaoyi. I did not intend to deceive you. I truly love you. Shen Feifei extended her hand, wishing to help him up from the ground. She clung to the last vestiges of hope, yearning to salvage the situation. Begone, you deceiver, you monster. Stay away from me. On the ground, Xiaoyi suddenly sprang up in disgust the moment she brushed against the hem of his garment, forcefully pushing her away, as if terrified of even the slightest contact with her. Tears welled up in her eyes and cascaded down her cheeks. She was a zombie, but it was not of her own volition. She had been slain by that scoundrel, Luo Hao, even in her undead state. On the verge of collapsing, daughter, do not fall. Do not frighten us. Shen's father and mother, along with their family, rushed to her side, supporting her before she could hit the ground. You knew she was your biological daughter, Shen Feifei, didn't you? Xiaoyi's laughter faltered as he turned his cold gaze upon the family, tears still glistening in the corners of his eyes. Xiaoyi, you scoundrel, what wrong has my daughter done to you that warrants such treatment? You are no different from Luo Hao, who shoved her into a horde of zombies to perish. Neither of you are good men. Shen's father bellowed in fury, glaring at Xiaoyi in his rage. Now of advanced age, how could he hope to match the young, high-ranking, and well-trained Xiaoyi? In an instant, Xiaoyi knocked Shen's father to the ground, and soon after, he was subdued by the special forces. Xiaoyi, do not harm my parents. They're ordinary humans. Whatever happens, let it be directed at me. Shen Feifei pushed her mother and family away. Wiping the blood from her mouth, she slowly rose to face Xiaoyi. Perhaps never truly loving him, merely using him to infiltrate human society and create chaos. They had become strangers, their trust shattered. There was no possibility for them to be together now. They were destined to be adversaries. Enemies in a bitter struggle for survival. Fine. Our matters are none of your parents' concern. Release them and let them go. Xiaoyi regarded the woman before him, a fresh wave of pain surging through his heart. Her voice cold and commanding. Today, she and he were fated to engage in a battle to the death. Her family could not be dragged into this conflict. Within the community, dozens of special forces stood guard, sealing off all exits, prohibiting entry and exit. In the distance, the sound of sirens wailed as a large contingent of military and police continued to arrive. Shen Feifei and Xiaoyi stood facing each other, coldly regarding one another, neither willing to make the first move. The biting cold wind howled, causing the dry trees to rattle incessantly. A confrontation was inevitable. Chapter 71. Heartbreak, Life and Death Duel below the Shen residence. The area was heavily fortified, surrounded by a multitude of military police special forces who encircled Shen Feifei and Xiaoyi, with infrared targeting systems locked onto her. Dozens of red dots danced across her vital points. Xiaoyi, do you not wish to engage in a war of attrition, to win through sheer numbers? Shen Feifei smirked disdainfully, watching Xiaoyi, the tears in her eyes still glistening. Stand down. I will handle my own affairs. Xiaoyi commanded loudly, not wanting Shen Feifei to look down upon him, nor did he desire others to intervene. In his heart, Shen Feifei still held an important place, despite his inability to articulate his feelings toward her at that moment. Xiaoyi and Shen Feifei stood there, face to face, neither making the first move. The north wind howled, the trees creaked, and the onlookers stood silently, observing the unfolding situation. The sun gradually drifted from the center, and in a swift motion, he drew his combat knife. The long blade gleamed ominously as it lunged toward Shen Feifei. The two figures collided, merging into one in an instant. The clash of metal rang out as their weapons engaged, the knife and blade dancing in a fierce confrontation, producing the distinct sound of clashing steel. After several exchanges, they separated. Shen Feifei's blade remained unscathed, while Xiaoyi's knife was riddled with tiny chips, yet still capable of inflicting fatal harm. Xiaoyi's knife, razor-sharp, had been reinforced and tempered by Shen Feifei's metallic abilities, designed to ensure his survival in battle. Ironically, it was now being wielded against him. A bitter smile tugged at Shen Feifei's lips. Was this her doing? For him to use the weapon she had enhanced to bring about her own demise, glancing at Shen Feifei, then at his damaged knife. Xiao Yi felt a pang of frustration rise within him, and he lowered his hand, contemplating discarding his weapon. But then he recalled the cold-faced woman and the countless comrades and innocents torn apart by the zombies, and retaliated with a swift kick. With a resounding thud, Xiao Yi was struck in the abdomen, sent sprawling to the ground, kicking up a cloud of choking dust, though Xiao Yi was nearly a second-tier master. With formidable abilities, ordinary zombies were no match for him. Among humans, he was a top-tier fighter. However, Shen Feifei stood at the pinnacle of the second tier, merely a step away from advancing to the third tier. The disparity in their levels was significant, compounded by Shen Feifei's zombie origins, granting her enhanced physical prowess and speed. Thus, her abilities far surpassed Xiao Yi's. During their earlier fierce exchange, Shen Feifei had refrained from using lethal force. Otherwise, Xiao Yi would have long since met his end. In her heart, she felt a twinge of reluctance. That faint sadness accompanied her as she fought, preventing her from striking with full force. Yet upon seeing Xiao Yi on the ground, her instincts kicked in, and she swiftly pursued him, raising her blade to strike at his head. Before Xiao Yi could rise, he beheld the glinting blades rushing toward him, realizing he had no time to evade. It was over. Everything was over. He was to die at Shen Feifei's hands, the hands of his former lover, finally liberated from his suffering. Time seemed to freeze as he widened his eyes, fixating on the approaching blades. He awaited his fate, a faint smile gracing his lips. Suddenly, the blades halted, pressing against his throat, unmoving. The figure before him hesitated, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Bang, bang, bang. The surrounding military personnel, witnessing the dire situation, immediately opened fire. A torrent of bullets rained down upon Shen Feifei. Shen Feifei took a step back, hastily brandishing her 10 resilient finger blades, deflecting the incoming bullets with precision, thereby shielding her own body. These ordinary bullets posed no threat to her. However, the heavy sniper rounds would still cause discomfort upon impact. If she allowed them to strike her, even with her current cultivation level, she would sustain some minor injuries, while Shen Feifei was preoccupied with blocking the bullets. Rendering her impervious to blades and bullets, the dagger would have long since penetrated her heart. Xiao Yi faltered, gazing into Shen Feifei's eyes. Those eyes remained as clear and profound as ever, familiar and endearing. However, at that moment, a surge of golden light erupted from the blade, propelled by a mysterious force that pushed Xiao Yi forward. With a dull thud, the dagger breached Shen Feifei's protective skin, plunging deeper towards her heart. He intended to end her life. What love, what vows of eternity, merely illusions, deceitful words. Luo Hao was one way, Xiao Yi was no different. At a critical moment, he too would wield a dagger against her. A bitter smile twisting her lips as she suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood, her complexion growing pale and ghastly. Though the dagger had pierced her chest, her swift evasion meant the blade had merely grazed her heart, resulting in a wound that, while painful, was not immediately life-threatening. Yet, the true pain resided in her heart, not from the physical injury, but from Xiao Yi's cold-heartedness. That dagger had severed the last remnants of her affection for Xiao Yi. This profound emotional blow caused her heart to falter, resulting in the sudden expulsion of blood. Ignoring the wound still bleeding, Shen Feifei swiftly withdrew the dagger, casting it to the ground. Come, let us engage in a true duel. He discarded a torn yellow talisman onto the ground. It was this talisman's spiritual energy that had empowered Xiao Yi's dagger, rendering it sharp and luminous. As for why Xiao Yi had suddenly acted with such force, thrusting towards Shen Feifei, that too was the result of King Fengzi's meddling. Who gave you the right to interfere in my affairs? Xiao Yi, the national master, is aiding you in ridding the world of a menace. Nearly marrying his only heir, such a scandal, if made public, would be the subject of ridicule among the noble families of the Flower Kingdom. If Xiao Yi could not see the gravity of the situation and sever ties with this zombie, the reputation of the Xiao family, built over centuries, would be tarnished. How could the Xiao family maintain their standing in the military and face the billions of citizens of the Flower Kingdom? Their downfall would be imminent. Thus, he felt compelled to prevent Xiao Yi from acting foolishly and to support King Fengzi's stance. Xiao Junzi, calm your emotions. Do not act rashly. Allow me to apprehend this demoness, King Fengzi declared, swaggering towards the arena. Thanks to the informant, Hua Xiao Yi's int, he had learned of Shen Feifei's whereabouts. With his keen instincts honed through 3 levels of cultivation, he had deduced that Shen Feifei's helicopter excursion held ulterior motives. He reported this to his master, the head of the Li family, upon learning that Xiao Yi had mobilized military forces to D City. The Li family patriarch sensed the gravity of the situation and persuaded General Xiao and King Fengzi to observe the unfolding events. Indeed, King Fengzi managed to seize the opportunity to catch Shen Feifei off guard. In truth, King Fengzi had long been present, merely observing from the sidelines, watching how they would resolve the situation. When he noticed Xiao Yi's hesitation, he acted swiftly, inflicting severe injury upon Shen Feifei. Demoness, you have harmed countless lives. Today marks your end. King Fengzi glared at the injured Shen Feifei, his heart filled with resentment. This enchantress had slain his only surviving descendant, severing his bloodline and driving away his serpent artifact. She was nothing but a worthless zombie. This accursed zombie lacked the coveted pearls of cultivation he had once desired. Thus, aside from venting his anger by eliminating her, he stood to gain nothing. To kill her, King Fengzi had invested considerable effort, yet now he was left with empty hands. What a regrettable venture. Regardless of whether it was a losing proposition, this zombie bore a deep-seated grudge against him. If he did not deal with her today, she would undoubtedly return for vengeance once her strength surged. Therefore, she must be eliminated today. Humph, you vile Taoist. It is you who has orchestrated this. Prepare to meet your end. Shen Feifei realized then that it was not Xiao Yi who sought her demise, but this Taoist who bore ill intent. This scoundrel had pursued her like a specter, proving to be her nightmare. It was King Fengzi who had thwarted her plans, leading to her estrangement from Xiao Yi and their mutual destruction. Her dreams lay in ruins. Today, it would be either King Fengzi's demise or her own survival as the Queen of Feifei. Thus, she had no time for idle chatter and was ready to fight for her life. As she spoke, Shen Feifei began to conceal her sure eyes, her hooked fangs emerging. In her duel with King Fengzi, she felt no need to hide her true strength. She would unleash her utmost power. Although the wind howled, the crowd of military personnel surrounded both King Fengzi and Shen Feifei, creating a barrier against the gusts. Within the throng, not a whisper of wind could be felt. Instead, the atmosphere grew stifling and tense. At that moment, Shen Feifei's hair and attire began to sway without wind, her 3,000 strands of hair shimmering with a metallic luster, forming a fan-like display above her head. The finger blades in her hands gleamed ever sharper, streams of light dancing along their edges. You foul Taoist, perish! Shen Feifei cried, leaping towards King Fengzi with a swiftness akin to a shooting star. So fast that she became a blur to the naked eye. In an instant, the two figures collided, engaging in fierce combat. King Fengzi's talismans flew rapidly, each one as sharp as a steel needle, sweeping towards Shen Feifei. She, undeterred, wielded her finger blades like shadows, relentlessly attacking her foe. The two clashed with such velocity that it seemed they exchanged 1,000 blows in the blink of an eye. The onlookers could only watch in awe at the swirling figures in the center of the arena, unable to discern which was King Fengzi and which was Shen Feifei. Minutes later, a thunderous crash reverberated as both fighters were forced to retreat a few steps to regain their footing. Chapter 73, A Fierce Battle with King Fengzi on the Battlefield. Shen Feifei's attire was torn, her hair disheveled. Those once vibrant strands of hair were now partially severed, some stained with blood and bits of flesh. Certainly, it is not the fresh blood of Shen Feifei herself, but that of King Fengzi. Shen Feifei possesses the extraordinary ability of the gold element, infusing her long hair with golden energy, transforming each strand into a steel blade, ready to strike at her whim. Coupled with her 10 fingers, each adorned with razor-sharp talons, her entire body becomes a formidable arsenal of offensive weaponry. Thus, although she bears some scars, overall, she has not sustained significant losses. At this moment, she can be likened to a humanoid combat robot, each strike inflicting wounds upon King Fengzi, rendering him a pitiable sight. In stark contrast, King Fengzi appears somewhat disheveled. Although he stands there with the poise of cast iron, seemingly unyielding, he trembles imperceptibly, gritting his teeth just to remain upright. The newly acquired purple gold crown has been cleaved in two, one half drooping over his head while the other lies in the dirt, trampled to pieces by Shen Feifei. His attire is in tatters, with his toad-like visage marred by several slashes, revealing flayed flesh, spitting out a mouthful of congealed blood. King Fengzi curses, "This madwoman is truly formidable in close combat." Had he not prepared adequately with gold protective talismans and windspeed charms, he would have been reduced to mere fragments by her onslaught. Her talons and bone blades are exceptionally sharp and resilient. Even with his protective charms, he has been gravely injured. Each of her attacks is also laced with a significant amount of zombie virus. No, he cannot engage her in close combat any longer. With this thought, King Fengzi swiftly retrieves a handful of yellow talismans from the remnants of his sleeves, tearing them apart and casting them towards Shen Feifei. Despite her swift evasion, a bolt, as thick as an arm, still connects with her. With a resounding crack, Shen Feifei is struck by the lightning, momentarily halted before collapsing to the ground. smoke rising from her charred form. Her face darkened by the shock. Cursed be that fool of a priest. His strikes are merciless. Shen Feifei rolls on the ground several times, slightly recovering before leaping back to her feet. Her abilities span the 5 elements of gold: wood, water, fire, and earth. Thus, while the lightning is indeed peculiar, it does not entirely sever her connection to these elemental powers. Hence, she has not perished from the strike, though she has certainly endured pain. The wound on her chest. It rapidly dissolves, coursing through Shen Feifei's body, mending her chest wound and replenishing her depleted energy. Within a few breaths, she feels revitalized. "What are you consuming?" King Fengzi inquires, his eyes widening. Initially pleased to see Shen Feifei struck down by lightning, he is dismayed to witness her quick recovery, particularly as she consumes a handful of energy-rich substances. Even a fool can discern that what she ingests is beneficial, surely aiding her in healing and replenishing her strength. Instantly, greed glimmers in King Fengzi's eyes as he fixates on Shen Feifei's mouth. He has long suspected that this woman harbors many untold secrets. If he could obtain her healing elixir, the potential benefits would be immense. His greed flares anew, momentarily causing his spellcasting to falter. All of this is observed by Shen Feifei. Regardless of her physical state, she swiftly charges towards King Fengzi. She has recognized that while King Fengzi can utilize talismans for ranged combat, he is utterly inept in close quarters. Thus, she seeks to create an opportunity for intimate confrontation. In a duel of experts, distraction is the gravest peril, and King Fengzi's moment of greed provides her with a prime opportunity for a surprise attack. In the blink of an eye, Shen Feifei leaps, descending from above, 10 razor-sharp talons poised to strike at King Fengzi's head. Should she connect, King Fengzi would be cleaved into pieces, even with his gold protective charm. He would stand no chance against Shen Feifei's full-force assault, facing certain death. In a moment of dazed clarity, King Fengzi perceives Shen Feifei descending upon him like a vengeful deity, her gleaming talons poised to deliver a fatal blow. In an instant, King Fengzi's right arm is severed into 10 pieces, scattering across the ground. Only as these fragments tumble does blood erupt from his body, propelled by internal pressure, spraying several feet high. As he witnesses his right arm dismembered, the equilibrium of his body falters, and he stumbles backward, collapsing to the ground. Ha ha ha! Shen Feifei, her visage smeared with King Fengzi's blood, approaches him with a sinister grin. At this moment, King Fengzi is akin to a fish on her chopping block, entirely at her mercy. Why you mustn't come closer? King Fengzi gasps, struggling against the pain that nearly causes him to faint. Yet, his years of rigorous training have endowed him with formidable willpower, enabling him to endure despite trembling. Nonetheless, he is compelled to retreat step by step, evading the approach of this harbinger of death. The surrounding atmosphere is eerily quiet. Onlookers stand agape, as if mesmerized by the unfolding spectacle. No, you cannot kill any further. Just as Shen Feifei raises her weapon to sever the head of the old Taoist King Fengzi, Xiaoyi appears before her, obstructing her path. What? He dares to stop her from slaying King Fengzi? Yet, it was King Fengzi who had clearly sought to end Shen Feifei's life. This Xiaoyi, without discerning right from wrong, chooses to stand with humanity. You move aside. Upon seeing Xiaoyi in her way, Shen Feifei's fury ignites. She swings her long blade toward him. However, the whistling blade halts mid-air, ultimately refraining from descending. Biting her lip, Shen Feifei stomps her foot, shoving him aside, her rage propelling her once more towards King Fengzi. Chapter 74. Captured in error on the battlefield, Xiaoyi obstructs Shen Feifei's advance. Yet, Shen Feifei cannot bring herself to strike down her former beloved, gritting her teeth as she pushes him aside, intent on continuing her assault on the prostrate King Fengzi. Unbeknownst to her, the cunning King Fengzi seizes this fleeting opportunity. Channeling his remaining magical power, he enhances his sweeping brush, pouring all his strength into a powerful strike aimed at the chest that Shen Feifei has just exposed. With a resounding hum, the energy vibrates as King Fengzi's talisman-laden white broom pierces Shen Feifei's chest. Staggering backward, Shen Feifei takes several steps away, the broom embedded within her chest. As a third-tier practitioner, King Fengzi has nearly exhausted all his power into this blow. The thousands of soft bristles of the broom transform into countless indomitable blades, all thrusting towards Shen Feifei's heart. Yet, Shen Feifei, distracted by Xiaoyi's interference, finds her will and defenses weakened at this critical moment. This strike, she fails to evade, and King Fengzi successfully lands a surprise attack. With a dull thud, Shen Feifei hears her heart rupture, a torrent of blood gushing forth. Her vision blurs, and she collapses to the ground. The broom still lodged in her chest, having pierced through from front to back. Typical zombies like a heartbeat. Their hearts have long ceased to function, rendering them ineffective. As long as their head's crystal core remains intact, they cannot die. However, Shin Feifei is unlike ordinary zombies. Her heart remains alive, albeit beating slowly, continually supplying her with sustenance and vitality. It is precisely because of her unique heart that she retains her humanity. Now, within a single day, her heart has endured repeated assaults, sustaining severe injury, and now it has been brutally struck by King Fengzi's full force. Consequently, her heart has suffered a significant rupture, causing her to lose an alarming amount of vital blood. It swiftly circulated within her, continuously providing restorative energy. Although the process was slow, it was visibly healing her wounds. Feifei, upon seeing Shin Feifei collapse, Xiaoyi felt a surge of urgency in his heart and rushed forward to lift her. Xiaoyi, do not go. With swift reflexes, General Xiao intercepted him, wrapping his arms around his son to prevent him from advancing. Shin Feifei was a zombie, an enemy of humanity. This was something witnessed by thousands of soldiers and civilians present. This could not be allowed. With his father blocking the way, Xiaoyi was compelled to halt, gripping his father's arm, his gaze torn between the fallen Shin Feifei and his own turmoil, filled with unease and anxiety. Blood continued to drip from his right side, yet thanks to timely medical attention, the bleeding had been significantly alleviated. King Fengzi staggered, leaning on others for support as he approached Shin Feifei to assess her condition. Yet, despite her closed eyelids, he could perceive her pupils occasionally rolling beneath the surface. She was still alive, having endured such a severe blow from him. She still had breath, though her wounds were obscured by blood. As if countless energies were being infused into the talisman. In no time, the talisman appeared as good as new. Suddenly, King Fengzi let out a loud roar, spewing a mouthful of fresh blood onto the talisman. Passing the talisman to Xiaoyi, before he could finish, the color of King Fengzi's hair visibly faded to white, and his face aged considerably, transforming from that of a middle-aged man to that of a frail old man. Though this zombie appeared temporarily devoid of combat ability, this was only true for high-level evolved beings like King Fengzi and Xiaoyi. To ordinary people, she could still easily slay them, having exhausted his lifeblood in casting the spell. King Fengzi too had lost his capacity to fight. Only Xiaoyi remained capable of subduing Shin Feifei. Xiaoyi, quickly take it. General Xiao commanded firmly, his voice imbued with righteous authority. Now is the time to vindicate the Xiao family's honor. Xiaoyi could not allow personal sentiments to interfere with duty. Under the stern gaze of his father and the scrutiny of thousands, Xiaoyi accepted the talisman from the Taoist's hand. Trudging forward with heavy steps towards Shin Feifei, the talisman in his grasp felt as if it weighed 1,000 pounds, pressing down on him, rendering his movements labored, making it hard to breathe. Though he felt reluctant and guilty, he was human, the sole heir to the Xiao lineage. He could not act on impulse, nor could he conspire with the zombie, even if she had once been the one he loved. Now was the moment for him to make the right choice. Suddenly, Shin Feifei opened her eyes, fixing her gaze upon him. Xiaoyi, promise me you will take care of my parents, do not trouble them. Shin Feifei smiled weakly, her expression filled with sorrow. Today, there was no escaping her fate. Her parents were her only ties to this world. Very well, I promise you. Xiaoyi nodded heavily. No longer hesitating, with a resolute demeanor. Xiaoyi stretched out his hand and firmly pressed the talisman against Shin Feifei's forehead. Chapter 75. The woman in the laboratory. Shin Feifei found herself in a dream. In her dream, she appeared within a vast, shadowy underground palace, immense and chillingly silent, devoid of any human presence. The palace walls were constructed from ancient blue bricks, solid and thick, seamlessly joined without a hint of a gap. They exuded a chilling mist, droplets of water forming pools at her feet. Aside from the occasional eerie sound of dripping water, there was no other noise. Shin Feifei felt cold and hungry, her attire scant. Clad only in a white tank top that bared her shoulders and a pair of shorts, barefoot as she traversed the darkened corridors of the palace, with damp hair clinging to her forehead. She felt both helpless and disheveled. Hugging her shoulders, she shivered in fear, navigating the maze-like passages, one after another. After what felt like an eternity of wandering, with countless turns, she found no way out. These labyrinthine corridors seemed endless. Devoid of any light, uncertain of how long she had been walking, she felt lost in despair, ready to give up when a glimmer of light appeared ahead. Overjoyed, she quickened her pace towards the light. As the illumination grew closer, it emanated from a crack in a grand door. Faint voices could be heard from within. Straining, Shin Feifei managed to pry the door open slightly, which creaked heavily, releasing a cloud of dust as if it had been sealed for ages. Instantly, the bright light within was blinding, causing Shin Feifei to shield her eyes. After a moment of adjustment, she peered through the gap between her fingers. What she beheld was a sight both bizarre and terrifying. Inside, the bodies of children, human organs, arms, thighs, and disembodied heads with wide-open eyes and disheveled hair floated in formaldehyde solution. Shen Feifei involuntarily shuddered, wrapping her arms tightly around herself. Feeling increasingly cold. The heart has been extracted. Still warm, ha ha ha. A voice, old yet reminiscent of a night owl, reverberated from the operating table. An imperial soldier from the Ur country triumphantly held a beating heart extracted from the open body of a woman. Observing it in delight as he laughed heartily, the other doctors and nurses watched him, chuckling in agreement. Suddenly, the doctor removed his bloodied mask, revealing his true identity. That person, that elderly doctor, was none other than the perverse professor from the Z-City base. Shen Feifei froze, her eyes widening in terror. At that moment, a more horrifying event unfolded. After reveling in his twisted delight, the perverse professor opened his mouth wide, revealing rows of sharp, hooked teeth, and swallowed the still beating heart whole. The sharp teeth glistened with the blood and flesh of the deceased. In a swift motion, a nurse stepped away from the operating table, creating a small gap. At that moment, the head of the corpse on the table emerged, revealing that the woman was Shen Feifei. Shen Feifei could no longer contain herself, letting out a piercing scream of terror. With a slight tremor, Shen Feifei gradually awakened. Z-City Laboratory. Professor Yao, the subject number 1 has reacted, reported a young male voice. Oh, let me see. An emaciated old man, upon hearing this, sprang up with surprising agility, lunging towards the glass enclosure of the laboratory. His eyes wide open and pressed against the shield as he observed intently. She had become the prized experimental specimen of the perverse Professor Yao. The moment Shen Feifei felt the talisman paper affixed to her head by the Taoist King Fengzi, a wave of dizziness overwhelmed her. It flowed slowly, akin to a snail, gradually repairing her injuries. Finally, she could endure no longer. Darkness enveloped her, and she succumbed to unconsciousness. When Shen Feifei was jolted awake from her dreams, she could hear the voices of the twisted professors conversing. Stripped bare, she was tightly bound within a glass coffin, while numerous individuals clad in white coats surrounded her. Before them lay an array of strange experimental instruments, flashing and beeping ominously. An emaciated, grotesque old man was staring intently at her from outside the glass enclosure. It would be their greatest error not to eliminate her while she was at her most vulnerable. Patience, patience. The flames of vengeance blazed fiercely within her heart. Xiaoyi, humanity, may they all go to hell. Why is there still no response? Bring me the detection records. Professor Yao, after observing Shen Feifei for a considerable time without detecting any reaction, furrowed his brow in suspicion. On the life detection monitor, a faint wave emerged momentarily, only to be followed by a flat line, devoid of any further fluctuations. Chapter 76, Perfection in the Laboratory. The twisted old man scrutinized the experimental results for an extended period before casting a dubious glance at Shen Feifei within the glass enclosure. When she first appeared as a member of the corpse hunting team, showcasing her prowess alongside Xiaoyi, he had immediately recognized her innate mental abilities. From that moment on, she had been etched into his mind. Professor Yao was determined to conduct thorough research, biopsy, blood extraction, tissue sampling. He yearned to dissect her, to observe her under a microscope, reduced to individual cells. Yet, this living specimen was far too precious. Among billions of zombies, she was the sole one capable of speech, possessing human cognition and emotions. Thus, he had to approach the sampling with utmost caution. The door to the laboratory opened silently, and a plump, middle-aged man entered. He immediately approached the glass enclosure, peering intently. He was the head of the laboratory, the previously encountered corpulent man. This zombie woman was truly remarkable, having gone without sustenance for half a month. She remained stunningly beautiful. A natural beauty. Observing her, he let out a sigh. It was said that as the zombie queen, she had endured numerous hardships to return to her homeland in search of her family, even engaging in a romance with the Xiao scion, nearly becoming a daughter-in-law of the Xiao family. Comparing her to the bloodthirsty zombies lurking outside the base, he marveled at her humanity. Old Yao, has there been any progress in the experiment after more than half a month? The plump man inquired, turning to Professor Yao. There is some progress. Here is the experimental report. Take a look. Professor Yu seated himself at the table, handing over a stack of reports. As the plump man perused the experimental report, his forehead furrowed deeper with concern. She cannot be classified as a complete zombie, he asked anxiously. Indeed. Have you ever seen a zombie with a beating heart? Have you witnessed a zombie exhibiting humanity? Have you ever encountered a zombie that refrains from consuming human flesh? Professor Yao crossed his arms and unleashed a barrage of questions. Then, what exactly is she now? Beads of sweat formed on the plump man's forehead. Their base, while situated in the Jiangnan district and protected by the military, was essentially a pawn of the Li family, a clandestine operation embedded within the military. Thus, any substantial experimental findings had to be reported in detail to the Li family. She is currently in a state between a zombie and a human. The zombie virus exists in large quantities within her, fully integrating with her blood cells, causing her heart to beat slowly while harnessing immense energy. She can survive for extended periods without food or water in extremely harsh conditions, accomplishing feats that many humans could only dream of. She can even undergo beastification, transforming into a zombie state for combat before reverting to her normal human form afterward. Consider how perfect a specimen she is. She could easily be regarded as the ultimate goal of human evolution. It is a rarity for such a perfect human to evolve among billions, truly a treasure. Even Alice pales in comparison to her. Can Alice navigate through a horde of zombies unscathed? Can she command the undead? No. Professor Yao's enthusiasm grew as he spoke, his eyes gleaming with excitement, gesticulating animatedly. The epitome of human evolution. Even the Alice from the biohazard was inferior. This was nothing short of blasphemy. If this information were to leak, the Xiao and Li families would surely descend into chaos. Professor Yao observed the plump man's retreating figure, then turned his focus back to studying Shen Feifei's blood samples. The power struggles among the great families of the Li and Xiao clans were of no concern to him. Within the glass enclosure, Shen Feifei's eyelids fluttered slightly. Professor Yao and the plump man were so engrossed in their conversation that they failed to notice her reaction. In truth, she had heard every word they exchanged with clarity. What was this? What did this mean? Simply because she possessed a still-beating heart, she was not considered a complete zombie. She was the perfect evolution of humanity. Shen Feifei could not help but bitterly smile within. Thinking of the treachery and cunning of humanity, the cold-blooded cruelty of those within the base, the merciless acts of Long Gu and his ilk at the Peace Shopping Mall, and Xiao Yi's callousness. She felt an overwhelming sorrow. Love for humanity had long since departed from her heart. Gradually, Shen Feifei's heart grew cold once more, as frigid and unyielding as stone. Humankind, we are destined to be adversaries. Shen Feifei had made her choice. She believed that being a zombie was far superior to being human. Li family. What? That woman isn't even considered a zombie. The head of the Li family slammed a hefty file onto the ground. Exasperated as he inquired, how could this woman still not be a zombie? If the Xiao family were to discover this, what would become of the Li family? The visage of the sly old fox that was the head of the Xiao family flashed before the Li family's patriarch, along with the sinister glare of the Xiao heir, sending a shiver down his spine. Go, immediately kill that woman. Leave not a shred behind. Hurry, he bellowed, his spittle landing on the face of the plump man before him. Especially those of the upper echelons of society. Each one was a coward at heart. If an antiviral serum were to exist, their worries would be alleviated. If the Li family were to possess such a thing, they would not only wield immense power in the Huan nation, but their influence would extend globally. It appeared that this woman, Shen Feifei, could not be eliminated just yet. Tell them to expedite their research and develop the antiviral serum. He retrieved a fire bowl and methodically incinerated each document, carefully reducing them to ashes before he ceased his actions. Xiao family, you shall never uncover the truth. A sinister smile curled at the corners of the Li patriarch's lips. Was gulping down drink after drink. Before him lay an array of colorful bottles, tin beer bottles, glass fruit wine bottles, and assorted cocktail glasses, amounting to no fewer than several dozen. The dim light of the liquor flickered and danced, casting transient reflections onto the patrons' garments. A throng of men and women were wildly leaping and shouting on the dance floor, creating a raucous and vibrant atmosphere. Bring me 2 more bottles, the strong stuff. He grabbed 2 newly purchased bottles of potent liquor and staggered toward the exit. At that moment, a crowd of figures approached from outside. Hey, you blind fool, how dare you bump into Brother Hua? A man clad in black, sporting dark sunglasses, shoved Xiaoyi aside. With a crash, Xiaoyi fell to the ground, dropping 1 bottle and spilling liquor everywhere. You bastards! How dare you push me? I'll show you. Spilling liquor as it flew, and with a resounding crash, it struck the leader of the group squarely on the head. Instantly, the tattooed man, wearing a vest in the winter, was left with a bleeding forehead. His body splattered with Xiao Yi's high-proof liquor. You dare throw a bottle at me? Brothers, get him. The gang, already predisposed to violence, surged toward Xiao Yi. These ruffians would not tolerate such affronts, especially from a drunkard who dared to injure their leader. They closed in, ready to teach him a lesson. Thus, they descended upon Xiao Yi, delivering a flurry of kicks and punches. One kicked his waist, another struck his chest, while others rained blows upon his face. The onslaught was relentless, battering him mercilessly, even targeting his most sensitive areas. Yet Xiao Yi lay there, devoid of resistance, moaning as he accepted the beating, utterly passive. He yearned to fight back, but the alcohol had rendered him weak. He even began to relish the ferocity of their blows, embracing the bone-crushing agony. At last, the assailants grew weary, panting as they ceased their assault. Spit, dead drunk. Watch yourself next time, the leader spat at Xiao Yi. waving his hand as he and his gang departed. After what felt like an eternity, Xiaoyi struggled to rise from the cold ground, wiping the blood from his mouth, limping and battered, with torn clothing and a swollen face. He clutched a half-empty bottle of liquor, taking swigs as he made his way back to the Xiao family estate. Late at night. I in the Xiao family living room. You wretched boy, just now returning? What time is it? As soon as Xiaoyi entered, he was met with a thunderous roar from the old general, who sat regally on the sofa in full military attire. Xiaoyi stood silently, discreetly hiding the bottle behind his back. Humph, just a woman, and you've turned into this worthless being. You are the sole heir of the Xiao family, the future hope. Pull yourself together. Do not let others look down upon you. It's nothing. I'm fine. Xiaoyi, submissive, lowered his head like a child caught misbehaving, refusing to elaborate. Humph, as long as you're fine. Here. This is an invitation from the national master. I've heard he is nearing his end and wishes to see you before he passes. You must go tomorrow. With that, the old general thrust a piece of paper into Xiaoyi's hands and turned away, leaving him to ponder. Chapter 78, Legacy and Conflict. The next day at noon, Xiaoyi slowly rose from his slumber and washed his face, only to discover that the wounds inflicted upon him by yesterday's assailants no longer pained him. He hurriedly examined his reflection in the mirror and found that the injuries on his face had healed, leaving behind only a faint trace of bruising, which was hardly bothersome at all. How could I recover so swiftly? Xiaoyi pondered, a sense of bewilderment washing over him. Indeed, he was an evolved individual with remarkable regenerative capabilities. Yet such rapid healing was unprecedented. The last time he sustained injuries from Qing Fengzi's lightning, it took over a week for him to fully recuperate, which had puzzled him at that time. Now, the wounds inflicted by those ruffians had vanished overnight. What could account for this anomaly? Could it be related to Shen Feifei? He recalled the refreshing taste that lingered in his mouth upon awakening and the warm current that flowed within him. Tirelessly mending his body. In the urgency of the situation, he had paid it little mind. Reflecting on it now, it was evident that this phenomenon was connected to that warm current. Shen Feifei harbored many secrets yet to be unraveled. However, at this moment, Xiao shook his head, dismissing the thought. The past was behind him. His father had spoken wisely. He was the sole heir of the Xiao family, destined to be its future patriarch. He must be resolute, able to bear burdens and let go of the past. After hastily tidying up, Xiaoyi drove towards Qing Fengzi's Taoist temple. The military vehicle came to a halt at the foot of a mountain near the capital. This ancient temple, steeped in history, boasted a majestic architecture that towered impressively, making anyone standing at its base feel like a mere ant, insignificant in comparison. From a distance, it appeared as though a veil of mist enveloped the mountaintop. His hair, once merely streaked with gray, had now turned almost entirely white and hung loosely without any adornment. His eyebrows had also turned white and had thinned considerably, leaving only half of their original length, resembling chicken skin. Noticing Qing Fengzi's arm, which was wrapped in layers of gauze, Xiaoyi took a seat. Speak plainly. I have little patience for idle chatter, Xiaoyi replied, a hint of impatience in his tone. His disdain remained unaltered. Young man of the Xiao family, I am on the brink of attaining enlightenment. Could you not muster the patience to hear me out? Qing Fengzi sighed in resignation. Humph. Xiaoyi turned his head slightly. Very few individuals in this world possess such roots. Over the past few centuries, I have only encountered you, and that demoness with spiritual roots. Though her talent is commendable, she is a zombie and cannot be counted. And aside from you, there is no one else to inherit my legacy. If I do not choose you, who else is there? The Taoist smiled bitterly. And what about that demoness? Do you believe she has been completely subdued? Not at all. Once the talisman is removed, she will swiftly regain her strength. As long as that demoness lives, humanity will never know peace. Sooner or later, humanity will face extinction at her hands. Thus, your responsibility is immense. Qing Fengzi became increasingly agitated as he spoke, his breath becoming labored, his gaze fixed upon Xiaoyi. You want me to continue battling Shen Feifei? You want me to shoulder the burden of saving humanity? His eyes fluttering open. A torrent of robust energy coursed through his body, filling him with an overwhelming sensation of vigor, as if he were brimming with energy yet had no outlet for its release. The guards outside were also taken aback, their expressions shifting in shock, their minds racing as they wondered what calamity had befallen them. Bowing respectfully to Qing Fengzi's lifeless form, Xiaoyi exited the great hall. Xiaoyi, now a high-tier evolved individual, possessed the strength to contend with Shen Feifei. Chapter 79. The zombie uprising in the laboratory of the Jiang'anzi city base. The emaciated old Yao paced anxiously, hands clasped behind his back. It had been nearly a month since Shen Feifei was brought to the experimental base, yet their research had stagnated. Ever since the instruments indicated her reaction, it was as if her body were under the control of some mysterious force. Blood draws yielded scant results. Tissue samples were as hard as steel, making extraction exceedingly difficult. Even the duckbill-shaped dilator embedded in Shen Feifei's wound was being gradually compressed by the slowly healing injury. Shrinking in size, now, the ribs she had once displayed clearly were obscured by a layer of flesh. The wound had significantly diminished in area. If this continued, obtaining samples would become increasingly challenging. However, her blood contained an excessively high viral load, complicating isolation efforts. Creating an antiviral serum would be a daunting task, necessitating a substantial volume of blood as a foundation. What to do? What to do? The head of the Li family continued to press for experimental results. Sigh, Professor, why not proceed with the next experimental plan? Prolonging this indefinitely is not a solution, a well-meaning assistant ventured. Very well, let us move on to the next phase, old Yo conceded, rubbing his forehead in resignation. Wandering about, beneath their feet lay human skulls and an assortment of cleanly picked bones. These bones were jostled about as the zombies moved, occasionally kicked against the walls or trampled underfoot. Some zombies would occasionally squat down, grasp a bone, gnaw at it for a moment, and then toss it aside. Suddenly, a hatch in the overhead metal passage swung open, and a metal bed clattered down the slide. Hee upon hearing the noise. The zombies erupted into strange laughter, surging toward the metal bed like a swarm. Whenever the metal passage emitted a sound, it signified their mealtime, and they were, of course, ecstatic. However, when this group of exuberant, flesh-hungry zombies lunged forward, they discovered a fellow of their kind lying on the iron bed, rendering them unable to feast upon their usual prey. Hungry, hungry, hungry. Most of the zombies, disheartened, began to drift away from the iron bed, leaving only a few high-ranking zombies lingering nearby, unwilling to accept their disappointment. In the observation room above, Yao Laotu and his team were fixated on the zombies' reactions, their surveillance equipment faithfully documenting the unfolding events. This was their laboratory's new subject of study, aimed at investigating how Shen Feifei, this perfect evolutionary specimen, managed to survive among the horde of the undead. Cough, cough. One high-ranking zombie extended its putrid hand to poke at Shen Feifei's arm, only to receive no response. Cough, cough. Another zombie reached out to touch the bloodstains on her chest, yet still, there was no reaction. Cough, 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 cough. The high-ranking zombies, now bored, began to disperse. This individual on the iron bed was indeed a kindred spirit. Unappetizing. Such disappointment. Professor, look, they truly regard her as one of their own, showing no response. Should we pull the iron bed back? Not yet. Let us observe a while longer. Yao Laotu always felt that Shen Feifei was already awake, but stubbornly refusing to open her eyes to cooperate with their experiments. Perhaps this was an opportunity to compel her to reveal her gaze. In such a foul dungeon, let us see how long she could maintain her charade. Time trickled by, and the laboratory staff had already shifted several times. Yet Shen Feifei remained utterly still. Late at night, one of the duty personnel rubbed his aching eyes, battling drowsiness. After a brief struggle, his eyelids began to droop once more. The other duty personnel were no better off. In the monotonous environment, devoid of television and unable to leave their posts, they could only stare at the motionless, stinking zombies in the dungeon. The boredom was suffocating. At that moment, a finger on the iron bed stirred slightly. Shen Feifei expanded her mental prowess to its maximum range, discovering that the duty personnel were drowsy and had closed their eyes. What a splendid opportunity. She directed her oppressive force towards the nearest high-ranking zombie. Cough. The zombie emitted a soft sound, as if under control, its formerly vacant gaze igniting with life as it moved towards Shen Feifei. The other zombies continued to wander aimlessly, bumping into one another. There was nothing in this world that could bind her any longer. At that point, she could do as she pleased. Leading the zombies to wreak havoc in Jiangbei would be an unimpeded endeavor. As the zombie's hand approached the talisman, ready to peel it away, a resounding crash echoed through the chamber, sending the high-ranking zombie hurtling against the iron wall of the cage, as if repelled by some unseen force. The talisman then radiated a burst of golden light, the characters upon it flickering erratically. What a twist. This talisman could resist and repel the zombies. Shen Feifei cursed the old Taoist priest 100 times over in frustration, immediately alerting themselves to the scene. Before them unfolded a spectacle of astonishing proportions. The zombies scrambled towards Shen Feifei, each one vying to reach her first, only to be sent flying back as if struck by an invisible hand. They would rise again, relentless in their pursuit. What are they doing? Do they wish to devour her? No. Look, the talisman is flashing incessantly. They're attempting to remove the talisman to free this woman. The laboratory observers finally discerned the secret, pressing the red alert button instead. Wail, wail. The sharp, urgent alarm blared once more throughout the laboratory. Upon hearing the alarm, Shen Feifei was momentarily taken aback. these humans were surprisingly vigilant. Hurry, hurry. Shin Feifei disregarded the humans' reactions and continued to urge her zombie minions. In the dungeon, the glow of the talisman dimmed further, while the zombies continued to howl with excitement, eagerly charging towards the figure on the iron bed. They nearly surrounded it, with the observers above unable to discern any further details. With the exception of the occasional zombie being flung from the perimeter, the cameras could capture no other actions. It's stuck. It's stuck. Send in the troops to rescue her, Yao Lautu exclaimed. Stomping his feet in frustration, there are several high-ranking zombies inside. Sending in the troops would result in heavy losses. One person cautioned. I don't care. We must rescue her. If this woman escapes, none of us will survive. Yao Lautu nearly roared in desperation. Clank, clank, clank. The heavy sound of metallic doors opening echoed through the chamber as a fully armed team of military police stormed into the dungeon, raising heavy weaponry to open fire upon the horde of zombies. Bang, bang, bang. Several low-ranking zombies were struck, stumbling before collapsing. The others, however, remained oblivious, continuing their relentless pursuit of Shin Feifei. The military police, witnessing the zombies' lack of resistance, were elated. Their greatest fear was engaging in hand-to-hand combat with the undead. The military police grew increasingly jubilant, gradually advancing deeper into the dungeon, encircling the iron bed. Help! Help! One military officer suddenly discovered a zombie clinging to his thigh, sinking its teeth deeply into him. The sharp fangs tore through his uniform, ripping away flesh and fabric alike. It bit me. Before long, not just one, but many military officers were crying out in pain as they too were bitten. Soon, the previously incapacitated zombies began to rise. The rest were pinned to the ground, being gnawed upon by the undead. A cacophony of screams erupted, reverberating within the dungeon. Some soldiers on the periphery, witnessing the chaos, hastily retreated, only to find the iron door behind them barred shut by the ravenous zombies. A high-ranking zombie stood at the entrance, brandishing its claws, grinning wickedly. Quick, open the main door to the dungeon. What is happening? The circuits for the dungeon's main door have been damaged by the zombies. It won't open anytime soon. What? The zombies are so cunning. Hurry, call in the corpse hunting squad from the base for assistance. A chubby officer arrived, assessing the situation and urgently seeking military support. This female zombie was far too formidable. Even orchestrating the encirclement of military personnel, these ordinary special forces soldiers were no match for her. Only expert corpse hunters stood a chance of capturing her. Look, what are they doing? One laboratory personnel pointed towards the glass observation chamber. Ha, ha ha. One of the evidently more advanced zombies pointed at the talisman affixed to Shin Feifei's forehead, signaling to the humans. The implication was clear. Remove it, quickly remove it. No, you can't take it off. The plump man suddenly lunged against the glass observation dome, shouting frantically. Removing the talisman proved somewhat challenging for the zombies, but for untainted humans, those not infected by the zombie virus, removing the talisman was still within the realm of possibility. No, we can't. We must. One of the human military officers, grasped by a zombie by the throat, struggled defiantly against the urge to remove the talisman. Roar, before he could finish his words. The defiant officer was bitten through the neck by a zombie. Instantly, blood sprayed everywhere, splattering onto the iron bed where Shin Feifei lay, dotting her pale face and forehead. The talisman was half-soaked, rippling slightly as golden characters shimmered. His neck nearly severed, with only a shred of flesh still connecting his head, he felt terror-stricken. His eyes remained wide open, his legs still twitching, not yet fully lifeless. The dungeon echoed with the crackling sounds of zombies devouring bones. The grotesque sight was utterly horrifying, leaving him trembling, unable to speak. Ha ha ha. Noticing the officer's hesitation, the zombie gripping his throat grinned, preparing to take a bite. No, please, the officer, seeing the gaping maw of the zombie drawing nearer, recoiled, pleading for mercy. Let him come over. At that critical moment, a sweet and melodious female voice rang out. Shin Feifei, lying on the iron bed, suddenly opened her eyes to gaze at him. In the dungeon, Shin Feifei, who had lain unresponsive on the iron bed, suddenly spoke. Come here. Help me remove the talisman. I assure you they won't harm you. Shin Feifei smiled, her voice as sweet and melodious as a songbird. Why you really want to eat me? The officer still hesitated. I, Shin Feifei, am a woman of my word. What I say is always true. You need not worry. Shin Feifei swallowed half her words, wishing to express that she would not be as treacherous and heartless as despicable humans. All right. Perhaps convinced by Shin Feifei's words or frightened by the brutal zombies, the officer acquiesced, trembling as he reached toward the talisman on Shin Feifei's forehead. Don't take it off, or I will kill you. The plump man screamed frantically, pressing against the glass dome, squashing his nose against it, attempting to halt the officer's actions, startled by the plump man's booming voice through the speaker. Rendering them temporarily incapable of dealing with this talisman, she wouldn't have gone to such lengths to manipulate the military personnel into removing it. Had her psychic energy not been suppressed, she would have already launched an attack to compel this man to remove the talisman. It was all the fault of the talisman. Shen Feifei loathed that wretched piece of paper on her head. The officer tugged at the talisman. Came a faint sound as the talisman fell. Ha ha ha. It seemed that humans untouched by the zombie virus were indeed effective against this talisman crafted by an old sorcerer. Quickly, pull off the remaining piece. Shen Feifei urged urgently, frustrated that just as she was on the brink of freedom, this ridiculous situation arose. All right, I'll remove it. The officer, startled by the half-torn talisman in his hand, swiftly reached out again. Stop. At that moment, a gunshot rang out, and a bullet pierced the officer's forehead, exploding his head. A military officer emerged at the dungeon entrance. Behind him, the massive dungeon door stood wide open. They were members of the corpse hunting squad from Z province, the most elite special forces of the military. And that officer was their leader, Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi, it's you. Shen Feifei roared in frustration. Just a second too late. This bastard had come to disrupt everything. Indeed, it is I. You cannot escape. Although Xiao Yi felt a twinge of bitterness, he resolutely stood with humanity. Bastard. Charge. Kill them. Shen Feifei was furious. Her eyes reddened with fury as she spat those words. Scoundrel. Despicable. Shameless. Xiao Yi covered his face with his hands, gritting his teeth in pain. To Shen Feifei, he was indeed despicable and shameless, a scoundrel, but he was human. Since the talisman had been partially removed, its suppressive energy had significantly weakened, its remaining power now less than a third of its former strength, allowing her energy to flow more freely. Had she not been gravely injured, she would have already risen to rebel. Now, she aimed to buy time to heal her wounds, and once recovered, she would find a way to remove that half-torn piece of paper. By then, no one would be able to stop her, not even Xiao Yi, who had already reached the second-tier advanced stage. Shen Feifei, you were once human. Can you truly bear to see so many compatriots suffer from the virus, dying with their eyes wide open? I suggest you cooperate with our experiments. Old Yao and the plump man took turns persuading Shen Feifei outside the glass dome, their faces gleaming with cunning delight. Shen Feifei nearly spat it out. To have her, the zombie queen, voluntarily cooperate with their experiments and act as their little guinea pig. What on earth were these people thinking? Did they really believe she was a fool who had been sold off and was now counting money for others? As January rolled around, the survivors in Z province huddled in their homes, tightly wrapping themselves in their clothes, unwilling to venture outside. In previous winters, abundant electricity allowed them to either use air conditioning for warmth or dress in layers to stay cozy. But now, with a scarcity of resources and energy, they had no choice but to endure the cold. Many wore thin garments that barely covered them, shivering in makeshift shelters that allowed the wind to sweep through. Besides huddling together for warmth, they had no alternative. Cough, cough, cough. This wretched weather is truly freezing to death. A middle-aged man, with a red nose and frostbite on his hands, coughed while wiping his runny nose. Didn't the municipal government promise to distribute winter supplies? Why has there been any news after so many days? A shabby-clad woman leaned against him for warmth, still trembling from the cold. This glass cover is an insulator. How could it possibly spark? Even with a strong wind, it shouldn't sound as if it were ablaze. Just as they stood there, bewildered and at a loss, a deafening explosion unexpectedly reverberated through the room. The once formidable, highly protective tempered glass cover suddenly shattered. Fragments of glass scattered like petals from a celestial maiden, striking the corners of the laboratory with brutal force. Ah! Ah! The anguished cries of the laboratory staff echoed through the chaos. Some were injured by the glass shards on their arms, while others bore wounds on their foreheads or bodies. Professor Yao was the most unfortunate. Being closest to Shen Feifei, he was bombarded with glass shrapnel, leaving him covered in cuts and bruises. Blood immediately mingled with glass fragments, staining his white lab coat crimson. It was fortunate that he managed to shield his eyes just in time. Otherwise, his small, bean-like eyes would have been ruined. With his body lurching, Professor Yu collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The laboratory descended into pandemonium. People shouted and ran in every direction, cries of distress mingling with sobs. In this tumult, no one paid attention to Shen Feifei anymore. Inside, the wind intensified, forming a visible dark energy vortex in the air, swirling above Shen Feifei's iron bed before converging into her body. Every pore of Shen Feifei opened wide as she relaxed, allowing the energy to rush into her being like a torrent. Gradually, her body began to swell, resembling an inflated balloon, her skin becoming translucent. revealing an abundance of energy surging within her. Alarmed, she realized she had consumed too much too quickly, feeling overstuffed. If this continued, she would surely burst. Shen Feifei wished to slap herself. She instinctively guided her abilities to cycle and absorb the energy. Compressed into a singular energy crystal, slowly, she returned to her normal form. Third level, it was almost within reach. Shen Feifei was ecstatic, a surge of determination propelling her toward the third threshold. With a series of muffled thuds, the restraints binding her hands and feet were effortlessly broken. The talisman affixed to her forehead vibrated violently, fluttering as if trying to escape, leaving only a small corner still clinging to her skin. Instantly, she felt an unprecedented lightness and comfort. She had broken through to the third level. Shen Feifei's joy was boundless. Fueled by this momentum, she summoned her powers to combat the talisman on her forehead, nearly causing her to spit blood. Xiaoyi, it was Xiaoyi, that scoundrel, intervening at the critical moment of her breakthrough. The whirlwind within the room gradually subsided, leaving Shen Feifei motionless upon the iron bed. Having just reached the third level, her powers were still unsteady, but Xiaoyi's interference had forced her to stagnate once more, requiring more time to recuperate and focus her energy. Woman, as long as I am here. The reverberating wave penetrated the cave, extending far beyond the base. A city. Almost all the zombies congregated outside, filling the streets and alleys, standing frozen with heads tilted back, eyes closed, blissfully absorbing the snowstorm that enveloped them, shaking off the snowflakes that had settled upon them. Boss, it's the boss. The boss is in danger. She is calling for us. A girl resembling a leader, her previously innocent and joyful expression transformed, shouted loudly. Behind her stood several other girls exuding the aura of high-ranking zombies. They were Shen Feifei's younger sister Lele, the bespectacled girl, and a few other roommates who had turned into zombies. The bespectacled girl had also evolved to the initial stage of the second level, while her friends Chanqian and Yinin had barely touched the threshold of the mid-stage since entering the second level. They had gradually regained their ability to speak. Although they could not recall events from before the apocalypse, they had unconsciously recognized Shen Feifei as their sole leader, to whom they owed lifelong loyalty. Conference room. High-ranking officials from the military and government were convening for a meeting. This recent snow disaster has inflicted severe losses on the populace. Many supplies have been ruined and rendered unusable. The city government must expedite the distribution of relief materials. The elderly base commander addressed the mayor. It's not easy for our city government either. Millions of refugees are reaching out for aid. Yet we have no means of production. How can we supply them with so many resources? Those items can be cleaned and reused. In these exceptional times, we must promote a spirit of self-reliance and frugality. We cannot always depend on the government for handouts. It's utterly lazy. The rotund mayor, dressed ostentatiously, casually filed his nails as if dismissing the concerns. The city officials had narrowly escaped annihilation by the military during their last encounter, urging them to complicate matters for the military and seize greater control over the base. With the Li family's backing, they had no desire to allocate supplies to the so-called undeserving populace. And now they were even more unwilling. Witnessing their shameless demeanor, the base commander was furious, his beard bristling. He longed to drag this gluttonous cohort out and execute them. Yet, due to the Li family's influence, he had to endure, turning his face away in disdain. The atmosphere in the conference room had been heavy for quite some time, until one individual finally spoke up, breaking the silence. Ahem. In the wake of this recent snow disaster, many have fallen ill with high fevers and have lapsed into unconsciousness. To prevent a recurrence of the biochemical incident from last June, I propose we centralize the management of those afflicted with fever. The refugees here are unruly and will not cooperate with government efforts unless substantial resources are distributed to them. Unfortunately, our city administration lacks such provisions, making this task exceedingly difficult, the mayor remarked, pausing his manicuring to blow on his nails, displaying a languid indifference towards Xiaoyi, the deputy commander of the base. They were affiliated with the Li family, and it was common knowledge that the Xiao and Li families had long been at odds. Furthermore, it was this very Xiaoyi who had previously spearheaded efforts to eliminate them, a grudge they remembered well. Naturally, they were disinclined to assist him, opting to stall as much as possible. As for the fate of those suffering from fevers, they were unconcerned. They regarded them as mere expendables. With plenty of such individuals outside the base, the death of a few mattered little. The prospect of a resurgence of the biochemical virus was equally dismissed as nonsense. Should panic arise among the base's refugees, the consequences would be beyond anyone's capacity to bear. An official with glasses interjected, sipping water and conveying an implicit threat towards Xiaoyi. Xiaoyi, incensed, rose abruptly from his seat, his face betraying palpable fear and urgency. What is the matter? The base commander promptly took the document, his expression grave. Military protocol dictated that meetings should not be interrupted, lest one face disciplinary action. Only in the case of dire emergencies, when every second counted, would personnel from the intelligence room dare to intrude. Instantly, silence enveloped the conference room. All eyes were fixed on the crucial document in the commander's hands. Awaiting his words, the mayor, too, ceased his nail grooming, his gaze fixed on the paper, eager to snatch it away for himself. What, pray tell, is of such utmost urgency? The mayor could no longer contain himself and inquired. Typically, they were prone to procrastination and evasion, shirking responsibility. However, their concern for their own lives and those of their families was undeniable. What military crisis could possibly warrant such urgency? Was it the arrival of zombies? The base commander disregarded their inquiries and, alongside Xiaoyi and the other military personnel, strode into the operations command room, slamming the door shut behind them. What sort of attitude is this? The mayor, trailing behind the base commander and eager for details, was displeased to find himself shut out. He had completely forgotten how they had previously treated the military. However, the entrance to the operations command room was guarded by fully armed soldiers, preventing them from advancing further. They were left to wait outside for news. According to the latest satellite intelligence, a significant number of zombies from City A and its surroundings are rapidly advancing towards the base. Enlarging the image, thousands upon thousands of zombies, a dark mass, shuffled forward with stiff, awkward movements, occasionally emitting guttural sounds. Among this slow-moving horde of zombies was an unmistakable sight, a convertible Hummer. Unlike the other zombies who were being pushed along passively. Unlike their filthy counterparts, these women were clad in pristine, immaculate attire, their faces unblemished. One of the female zombies even sported glasses, exuding an air of cultured sophistication. The driver's seat was tall. The arduous task of this assassination would naturally fall to the zombie hunting squad. In the operations command room, everyone remained transfixed, as glued to the satellite screen. Several armed helicopters roared to life, carrying the formidable zombie hunters towards the Zombie King's Hummer. If their ambush succeeded, the encirclement of the base could be dismantled, allowing millions of humans to continue their existence. All held their breath. As the armed helicopters approached the zombie horde, mere moments before launching their missiles, a swarm of large birds swooped down from the sky. With their crimson eyes, sharp teeth, and glossy black claws, these birds violently struck the armed helicopters. Their talons, akin to hooks or daggers, tore through the helicopter's roof and ripped away its rotor. The ferocious impact shattered the aircraft's bulletproof windows. In an instant, the pilot was seized by a large bird and yanked from the cockpit, erupting in a fiery explosion. Unsurprisingly, none of the zombie hunting squad members aboard the helicopter survived. Even if they were fortunate enough to escape the crash, the subsequent explosion would claim their lives. Yet all that remained were the remnants of the aircraft, still emitting smoke. No trace of living humanity could be found. A second armed helicopter took off, laden with the hopes of the base's inhabitants. Chapter 86. The Zombie Siege 2. In the survivor base of Province C, the operations conference room was filled with tension, with tens of millions of zombies approaching. Our base boasts only a few 100,000 soldiers and insufficient ammunition. Even if we fought to the last man, we could not halt the zombies' advance. What are we to do? The operations officer stared at the densely packed zombie horde on the satellite screen. Having endured more than half a year of biochemical crisis, they understood the value of life more than ever. None wished to perish so easily. Requesting troop support from Jianbei seemed futile, and evacuating millions to Jianbei was utterly impossible. Yet there were tens of millions of zombies, while their base housed fewer than 2 million people. Even if the zombies merely stepped forward, they could flatten the base, not to mention the presence of highly intelligent zombie commanders nearly as clever as humans. A young officer suggested. His words invigorated the assembly, reminding them of the derelict harbor just a few miles away. Indeed, prior to the biochemical crisis, it had served as a civilian port, with numerous vessels docked there. After the apocalypse and efforts to expand food sources, their base had dispatched troops to cleanse the area of zombies and even sent fishermen there. Now, it could prove useful. Chief of Staff, how long until the zombies reach our base? The commander inquired. At their current pace, the vanguard will likely arrive at the base this afternoon. That left little time to evacuate the populace. The officer's brows furrowed in concern. Act swiftly. Evacuate the elderly. His face betraying a fierce resolve. These government officials, who had lived in comfort and ease, with ample benefits yet no tangible contributions, now sought to flee at the first sign of danger, not on his watch. But the ships at the harbor are limited. We cannot evacuate tens of thousands in less than half a day. If we do not manage to evacuate, we shall share the fate of the base and the populace. And the officers hurriedly made their way to the front lines, mobilizing various units to confront the zombies. Hey, what has happened? What on earth is going on? Outside the operations room, the group of government officials remained, anxiously awaiting news from the military. The earlier shouts from the officers had sent chills down their spines, and now, seeing the officers rushing past without a word, only heightened their anxiety. Yet, hardly anyone was willing to spare them a glance. Eyes fixed anxiously on the horizon, unblinking dot on the streets. Waves of soldiers and militia rushed through the throngs of people, hastening toward the outer city. However, apart from a few strong men being forcibly pushed toward the front lines, the majority of the populace frantically clutched their meager belongings, squeezing toward the gates of the inner city. It seemed that once they reached the inner city, their safety would be assured. In that moment, the cacophony of adult shouts and children's cries filled the air, a tumultuous uproar. Some even climbed atop the heads of others, attempting to push through. Amidst the chaos, some ill-intentioned souls seized the opportunity to loot, smashing storefronts, igniting fires, and committing unspeakable acts. In the turmoil, many military units dispatched for defense found themselves unable to break free, trapped at the city gates by the surging crowd. Commander, our troops are blocked at the gates of the inner city by refugees. They cannot break through. What should we do? An officer, panting heavily, rushed to report to Xiaoyi. Fire warning shots. Those who disobey military orders shall be executed on the spot. Xiaoyi commanded grimly. If this chaos continued, one by one making their way through. Fortunately, they could finally dispatch some personnel. Xiaoyi wiped the sweat from his brow, though he knew the base could not hold, and sending troops to defend it was futile. There were still tens of thousands of them. Waves of zombies surged forward, densely packed, appearing as a dark mass from a distance, with arms as numerous as trees and mouths filled with jagged teeth. They charged forward. Bullets struck them as if drops of rain falling into the ocean, disappearing without a trace, having almost no effect. They felt no pain. Bullets hitting them merely paused their advance momentarily. Even if an arm was severed, they had another reaching forward. If a leg was broken, they could still crawl onward. If their abdomen was pierced, they would drag their intestines along, continuing their relentless assault. They were nearly the perfect frontline warriors. So long as their heads remained intact, they would not cease their attack. Before them, the fresh meat continuously tempted the creatures, and they deemed any sacrifice necessary to feast upon humanity as worthwhile. This was evident from the ever-lengthening drool and the excited expressions in their eyes. Damn it. Aim for the head. Only a shot to the brain can bring these zombies down. You fools. The officers at the front lines navigated through the crowd of defenders. They were met with a chorus of strange zombie howls. Soon after, a massive flock of dark birds descended from the sky. With their crimson eyes, long wings, and sharp claws, they swooped down upon the soldiers and officers. Each bird carried off a human. Look, the zombies. The horde is coming again. After the initial tumult, while most were still regaining their composure, one sharp-eyed individual pointed to the exterior of the defenses and shouted, "We can't kill them all. We're doomed. Run." One militia member, haunted by the earlier surprise attack by the zombie birds, succumbed to panic upon seeing the new horde and fled towards the city gate. The officers shouted in vain, desperately trying to halt the retreat, but the majority had already fled in disarray. Only a disciplined few thousand regular soldiers and a handful of fearless militia fighters remained at the lines. Outside the defenses, the figures of the zombies drew ever closer. The ammunition was running low, and there were hardly any bullets left. Without guns or cannons, these ordinary people were helpless against the fanged. As pressure mounted, cold sweat beaded on the foreheads of the soldiers, their hearts pounding as they gripped their steel rifles, their knuckles turning white. They were afraid. They too wished to flee, just like the militia. Yeah. Do you have any idea that there are millions of zombies besieging the base? You still find time to sing. Xiaoyi struggled to suppress his anger, speaking in a low tone. How amusing. Do you think I should be sad? I'm actually quite pleased that the zombies are attacking the city. Shen Feifei finally ceased her singing, retorting nonchalantly. You, Xiaoyi faltered, realizing that Shen Feifei was no longer the human she once was. Use your brain for once. Shen Feifei blinked her long eyelashes, refusing to admit anything. Feifei, don't lie to me. I have evidence. Xiaoyi straightened up, pulling a pristine satellite photo from his pocket. It clearly depicted Lei and others advancing through a horde of corpses in a Humvee. Xiaoyi scrutinized Shen Feifei from a position of authority. Oh, I didn't realize Lei had evolved into a zombie queen. I haven't had the chance to congratulate her yet. What a pity. Yes, I may have gone too far and let you down, but I had no choice. I am human, the hope of the Xiao family. What choice did you want me to make? Xiaoyi's face contorted in pain. And I'll accept any punishment you deem fit. Xiaoyi bit his lip, Pleading earnestly that as he spoke, he reached out with his slender, clean fingers, gently gliding them across Shun Feifei's face, locking eyes with her. His gaze sincere and filled with tenderness. In that moment, Shun Feifei felt a tremor in her heart, and the corners of her mouth twitched ever so slightly. Very well, if you remove the talisman from my head, I shall instruct Lele to cease the siege. Shun Feifei's heart softened slightly, and she let out a quiet sigh, yet her demeanor remained calm and composed, unruffled by the situation. Remove the talisman, shall we? Fine, I shall remove it. Shao Yi finally acquiesced. Although a pang of reluctance gripped his heart, he was acutely aware that once he took the talisman from Shun Feifei's head, she would undoubtedly flee, and he might never see her again in this lifetime. Nevertheless, compared to the lives of millions residing in the base, this price seemed worth bearing. Releasing Shun Feifei could save the lives of countless humans, and the hordes of zombies outside the base would retreat. Even if he never laid eyes on her again, it was a sacrifice he could accept, as Shao Yi's fingers reached for the talisman on Shun Feifei's head. For she was indeed a benevolent and principled zombie queen. Do not. Xiao, you cannot remove the talisman. Suddenly, the rotund figure reappeared, gripping Shao Yi's arm tightly. Why not? Did the lives of the millions in the base not outweigh this scrap of paper? Shao Yi's anger flared. How could these scientists be so engrossed in their research, devoid of any regard for human life? No, you do not understand. It is like this. The plump man started, and he raised his hand to cover Shao Yi's ear, whispering urgently. Vaccine? Antiviral serum? The only. After speaking, the plump man cast a glance at Shun Feifei. Upon hearing his words, Shao Yi fell silent, his brow furrowed as if engaged in a fierce internal struggle. Shun Feifei's blood was the sole source for creating the serum against the zombie virus. If they released her, she would undoubtedly refuse to cooperate with their experiments, and humanity's only chance for rebirth would vanish. Yet, if he did not release her, hundreds of thousands of lives in the base would soon fall prey to the zombies. How could he bear to witness such brutality unfold before him? What to do? To release or not to release Shun Feifei? With a satellite phone in hand, the indecisive Shao Yi began to call his father. Shao Yi, release me at once. Shun Feifei sensed a shift in the tide's end. Lowering his head to issue the command, as if unable to face Shun Feifei, before hastily departing. Shao Yi, you treacherous scoundrel, await the day when those millions of refugees return as vengeful spirits to seek you out. Ha ha ha. Behind him, Shun Feifei felt a profound disappointment in Shao Yi, laughing maniacally as tears streamed down her face. Chapter 89. Feifei goes missing. The atmospheric pressure was low, the sky shrouded in gloom, and the sun hung in the heavens like a dim, yellowed orange. Above the ocean, a military transport aircraft soared at a low altitude, maintaining a steady distance from a cargo ship traversing the waters below. Huan, it's me, Feifei. I'm here. Feifei, is that you? My dear leader. The nurse searched frantically until she finally realized the voice belonged to the girl lying on the bed before her. It is I. Shun Feifei turned her head and smiled at the nurse. This nurse was none other than Shun Feifei's classmate and dear roommate, Huan. Leader, I have finally found you again. Wu, upon seeing those familiar eyes. She would not resort to cannibalism. The crux of the matter was her unwavering trust in Shun Feifei. She believed her leader had always been a good person, and even as a zombie. Shun Feifei piloted the transport plane, chatting and laughing with Huan. The others aboard had been bound together and tossed into the cargo hold alongside Old Yao. Suddenly, she noticed several black dots appearing on the radar. Debris rained down into the ocean, quickly sinking beneath the waves, leaving only a small ripple in the vast expanse of the sea. Chapter 90. The amnesiac girl. The vast ocean stretched endlessly. Clear waters meeting the azure sky in the distance, forming a straight line. The surface bore no signs of humanity or vessels, save for an occasional shrill cry from a few sharp-beaked seabirds. Skimming the surface and leaving behind trails of white foam, a heart-shaped green gem, carried by the undercurrents, drifted slowly along. Gradually, it floated to a small hole in a web-like protective net, where it was halted. It had been a long time since the aircraft explosion on the surface, and February had given way to spring in some areas. Shun Feifei had also vanished, disappearing without a trace with the sound of the explosion. She moved, the elderly couple gasped, instinctively stepping back a few paces. It can't be a zombie from Huagua. I've heard that Jiangnan is overrun with zombies that devour the living. Did she float over from there? Her head lifting slightly. After a long moment, she laboriously propped up half of her body, her face streaked with water, hair plastered to her cheeks, seawater cascading down. She looked ahead with a bewildered, unfocused gaze. Fei Fei Shui Shui, the girl instinctively uttered the most familiar phrase, unaware of its significance. What did you say? The old man, seeing her could speak, had most of his doubts alleviated and asked her again. The elderly couple exchanged glances. She's lost her marbles. The water must have made her daft, the old woman remarked. Seems like she has amnesia. She can't speak properly, the old man speculated. The girl gazed at the unfamiliar furnishings of the room. Yes, just stay. Since you keep saying water, we'll call you Shui Bian from now on. The old woman supported her, embracing her with a warm smile. Thus, the amnesiac girl, who struggled to articulate her thoughts, took up residence with the elderly couple. Operating under a constitutional monarchy, with their king referred to as the Great King. The Great King was a spiritual pillar for the people of our country, a deity in their hearts, and they would often pay homage to his portrait. Barring their citizens from entering our country, increasing military expenditures, actively expanding and training soldiers for potential conflicts, distributing epidemic prevention manuals to every household, preparing protective gear against biochemical viruses, and conducting regular educational drills. Those boxes, the old woman instructed from her perch at the cash register, calculating accounts as she spoke. Inside the stall, a girl busily attended to various tasks. She unloaded goods from the truck and placed boxes of fish on the large scale with remarkable diligence. Shui Bian had been in her country for over a month, and although she still couldn't recall who she was or where she came from, she had fully adapted to life in her country. The elderly couple owned a small wholesale fish stall in her country, relying on it for their livelihood. Without children of their own, they treated Shui Bian as their own daughter, caring for her with great attention to detail. The couple's sole worker at their fish stall had recently resigned, and given their advanced age, particularly the old man, who required a cane to walk, they were incapable of performing the heavy labor required for moving goods. Unfortunately, finding a replacement worker was proving to be a daunting task. What were they to do? Should they cease operations? But if they did, from where would their living expenses come, and how would they survive? The elderly couple began to wear long faces, sighing deeply. Although the girl by the water was still somewhat taciturn, she was far from foolish. The couple had rescued her from the brink of the sea. At first, the couple was apprehensive. After all, she was a young girl, seemingly delicate and frail. Could she possess the strength of a robust man to engage in such laborious tasks? They hesitated to accept her offer. She was undeniably intelligent and a quick learner. Through daily conversations with the couple, watching television, and using the computer, she absorbed a wealth of linguistic and cultural knowledge. Within less than a month, she mastered the complexities of the local language. Engaging freely in conversation with others, she also keenly observed and learned the local customs and work practices, mimicking speech and actions with remarkable accuracy. Now, when she stood among the crowd, one could hardly distinguish her as an outsider. Whenever she attempted to recall her past, a sharp pain would throb in her head, preventing her from delving further. Resigned, she decided to let the past lie, content to embrace her present happiness, regardless of what had transpired before. After all, she was thriving now, and nothing from her past, even if the heavens had once collapsed upon her, could alter that. This girl was, by nature, someone who adapted effortlessly to her circumstances, seemingly lethargic in her pursuit of ambition. Hardly comparable to the grand enterprise of your esteemed stall, the elderly woman replied, her expression darkening momentarily before she plastered a polite smile on her face. These individuals were the proprietors of the nearby Xiao Yuan fish stall and other local fish vendors. The leader of the Xiao Yuan fish stall exclaimed, "Old lady, spare us the pleasantries. We are here to take over your fish stall, so pack your things and get lost." He plopped down at the counter. "You didn't know? Hee. Your husband must not have informed you. Now that you're aware, you should hurry up and pack your things." Xiao Yuan and his band of rival stall owners burst into laughter. Rarely daring to resist, with her husband by her side, she felt emboldened, but he had gone out for supplies yesterday and had yet to return. Being of advanced age and now faced with intimidation, why would they fear her scrutiny? Additionally, Xiao Yuan's family also operated a fish stall, a significant business with the capacity to procure their own eels. Why would they need to source from Xuanxin fish stall? Given their odd behavior, it would be a surprise if the contract were indeed legitimate. Shui Bian was unafraid of their threats and continued to undermine their arrogance. "Fine. Take a look. Just take a look." What had happened to the old man? Where is old Jianxiang? How could he have signed a contract with you? Shui Bian continued to interrogate them. "Your old man is doing just fine. Yesterday, he had quite a few drinks and was overjoyed." She felt utterly powerless in this situation. "Moo, there is still over 1,000 pounds of eel in the storeroom, but we are short by over 8,000 pounds. We must devise a plan ourselves." leaving no room for others. Consequently, they had made many enemies over the years. At this moment, as Xuanqing sought assistance, there were indeed some who would be willing to lend a hand. Before long, several stalls began to deliver eels, rendering her appearance even more ghastly. It's over. It's over. Xuanqing fish stall is truly at an end. This business, painstakingly nurtured and managed by her and the old man for over a decade. How could he have signed such a deal in a moment of confusion, especially with such a tight delivery timeline? Gazing at his phone, he discovered a multitude of missed calls from Xuanqing fish stall. Understood it was best to abandon her tasks and retreat to the storeroom. Upon arriving in the country, she had no memories, no knowledge of her origins, nor any identification. Her greatest fear was the police arriving to check identification. Perhaps you could return another time, Jianxiong's father suggested, offering them a pack of cigarettes. Not interested. What kind of rubbish is this? We're here on official business, so hurry and fetch Xueyan, or you'll be accompanying us. Especially with them watching from across the way. Stop. The person you seek is me. Release Jianxiong's father. Realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, Xueyan stepped forward resolutely to shield him from further trouble. Several officers sat behind a large table, while Xueyan sat alone in a solitary chair. Cough, cough. Young lady, what is your name? The same 30-something officer, now leisurely sipping tea and swiveling in his chair, questioned Xueyan. Xueyan retorted, tilting her head back to evade his foul breath. How naive you are. Do you not comprehend who I am? I am in charge here. The moment I declare you an illegal immigrant,